Our story begins inside a massive island fortress that serves as a juvenile reformatory. Rumors quickly spread among the inmates about a crazy fight that just started in the yard. One guy laughs and says that people constantly end up losing their lives inside this place. The prisoners gather around the fence and eagerly push each other to get a better look. However, the smiling teenager suddenly stops and looks ahead in complete disbelief. A bloodied kid is grabbing his opponent and refuses to back down despite the heavy injuries. Even though multiple inmates try to hold him back, he keeps pounding the boss' right-hand man. The wild youngster rages and fights with insane energy while the crowd watches in shock. Breaking free from the group, he prepares to take down anyone who dares to stand in his way. The massive fight in the yard finally ends with the main character sitting on top of his beaten opponent. One of the spectators watches in absolute terror because he did not expect this outcome. Standing tall over his opponent, the bloody fighter proves that he is not someone to mess with. The boss lies defeated on the ground with his face completely ruined from the heavy strikes. Everyone in the crowd is completely speechless, and some even wonder if the kid is actually human. The inmates compare him to a monster that just crawled out of hell, or a vicious dog that only knows how to bite. Suddenly, the bright searchlights from the guard tower turn on and shine directly on the young fighter. While the light covers his body, he secretly thinks that the prisoners have everything completely wrong. He slowly walks toward the heavy steel gate because his past life was actually much worse than this prison. As the gate opens, the boy remembers how his previous life was nothing but a total pile of garbage. An empty school hallway shows the quiet place where everything started to go wrong. A terrified student with glasses stands under the dim light while trembling with fear. Quietly opening a door, he enters a dark room to escape his terrible nightmare. Looking around the storage space, the boy hopes that his tormentor will not find him here. Quickly securing the entrance, he tries to block out the scary world outside. Shaking uncontrollably, his legs refuse to stay still because of the sheer panic. Gritting his teeth, the helpless kid tries his best to suppress any sound of breathing. Hugging himself in the shadows, he remembers how he learned this painful lesson the hard way. Suddenly, the heavy sound of approaching footsteps echoes right outside the room. Tears stream down his face while a creepy voice calls out his name from the hallway. Walking slowly down the corridor, the dangerous bully searches for his next target with a smile. Staring at the narrow gap under the wood, the young student feels completely trapped. Crouching in the dark, he desperately prays for the monster to just walk away. Realizing that the footsteps have stopped right in front of him, his heart sinks in terror. The door suddenly swings open as a chilling voice announces that the game of hide-and-seek is over. Sweating profusely, the terrified student realizes that his hiding spot is no longer safe and he needs to run away. The sinister bully stands at the doorway with a creepy smile on his face as he catches his helpless target. Shaking with pure fear, the poor kid understands that some monsters in this world are far worse than hell itself. Without wasting any time, the aggressive teenager delivers a brutal blow that sends the helpless boy flying back. Standing over him with a mocking grin, the attacker calmly tells his victim to close his eyes to lessen the pain. Adjusting his glasses, the cruel predator promises to finish this painful game quickly without failing. Groaning in pain, the student can only shed tears while the bully prepares to unleash another round of violence. The absolute worst kind of people are those who find genuine pleasure in making innocent lives a living nightmare. Dragging the beaten boy like garbage, the heartless teenager complains that his weapon got damaged during the beating. A long trail of blood on the floor proves that the weak have absolutely no chance of survival in this harsh society. Because of these rampant crimes committed by minors, the angry public begins to demand much stricter punishments. The current laws are useless since young criminals under 14 often get released without serving any real time. To calm the citizens, the government decides to send these extreme young offenders to secure juvenile reformatories. Weak laws only make teenagers more violent because they believe they can get away with absolutely anything. Bullying becomes a regular game for these kids, while the poor victims live through a daily nightmare. With no way to escape the constant torment, some students decide to end their pain in the worst way possible. The school gates look peaceful on the outside, but they hide a very dark reality for many teenagers. Another helpless boy gets cornered in an alley by a group of cruel students looking for trouble. One of the aggressors slaps him while mockingly asking why he does not call his older brother for help. They laugh about the rumor that his sibling is currently locked up in a reformatory for doing something terrible. The main bully steals all the cash from his wallet under the excuse of punishing a criminal family member. Raising his voice, the terrified kid tries to defend his relative, but the bullies do not care about the truth. A heavy punch immediately cuts him off and sends him crashing straight to the concrete floor. They brutally kick him on the ground while claiming that he simply needs to be re-educated. Walking home with fresh bruises, the younger brother of our main character just feels glad to survive another day. Walking down the street, the weak boy notices a sad stray dog sitting right next to an empty cardboard box. Gently petting the poor animal, he sadly realized that they both share the exact same painful wounds. Suddenly, a desperate scream in the distance makes him freeze on the spot as he tries to ignore the noise. Approaching the alley, he pleads for the violence to stop while another helpless student gets brutally stomped. Looking closely at the victim, the boy recognizes the uniform from the neighboring high school. Before he can even run away, a couple of familiar bullies spot him and call out his name with smirking faces. One of the dangerous teenagers quickly wraps a heavy arm around his shoulder to keep him from escaping. Completely surrounded by the hostile group, the terrified kid can only stand frozen next to the bleeding victim. The main bully greedily demands some cash under the excuse of buying lunch for his younger friends. Snatching the wallet, the cruel teenager complains that even a street dog carries more money than this. Pocketing the cash, the aggressor orders the boy to bring him a nice breakfast the very next morning. Trembling with pure terror, the weak student quickly nods and promises to do exactly what they want. Standing alone in the quiet alley, the helpless boy stares down at the floor with a hollow expression. Nearby, the severely beaten student slowly groans in deep pain after suffering a terrible punishment. A student with glasses timidly approaches the aggressive group to ask if they can let the poor kid go. Turning around with a mocking look, the bully explains that the victim deserves this pain because his brother is a killer. Getting dangerously close, the attacker warns the student not to push his luck just because they call him senior. Trembling with fear, the weak classmate asks if they would dare to say those same words in front of the legendary school boss. That name belongs to a wealthy psychopath who enjoys tormenting innocent students just to pass the time. This cruel monster leaves his targets with only two choices, which are to lose their minds or end up losing their lives. Pointing a finger, the bully tells the terrified senior to leave immediately if he wants to avoid a brutal beating. Apologizing silently in his head, the helpless teenager walks away because he lacks the strength to fight back. Left completely alone in the dark alley, the poor younger brother gets brutally stomped while the bullies laugh at him. The crying student walks away because he feels extremely pathetic for leaving the other boy behind. Tears stream down his face while he walks home completely alone because nobody is there to help him. Arriving at his messy apartment, he hears loud voices coming from inside the main room. An angry man demands money from the mother while she desperately tries to save some for living expenses. Slamming a heavy bottle on the table, the abusive partner yells at her to shut her mouth. Peeking through the cracked door, the teenager watches the cruel man start to beat his mother. Covering his ears outside the room, the weak son can only cry and apologize for being too powerless to help. The horrible insults echo in his mind as the helpless kid trembles from the constant trauma. To make matters worse, the poor kid also has to deal with brutal bullies at school every single day. The cruel bully forces the poor student to lick his dirty shoe while mocking him in front of everyone. The group of attackers even begins to insult his mother by calling her a dog. Hearing these terrible words makes the young boy boil with an uncontrollable rage. Back in the present, the teenager suddenly decides that he cannot just stand by and watch anymore. He bursts into the room when he sees the abusive man raising a heavy glass bottle against his mother. Turning around with a furious glare, the giant man gets ready to teach the boy a lesson. Without any hesitation, the cruel adult smashes the thick bottle directly over the kid's head. Shards of broken glass and blood instantly cover the face of the poor student. The force of the brutal blow sends the helpless teenager crashing straight to the floor. Standing over them, the angry man screams that he will crush the boy if he tries to interfere again. Lying on the ground, the injured kid notices a sharp utility knife resting on the nearby desk. While the abusive man continues to torment his mother, the desperate teenager slowly reaches for the weapon. His hand shakes violently because he has never done anything so dangerous in his entire life. The angry adult prepares to strike the crying mother once more without showing any mercy. Pointing the blade forward, the young boy screams at the monster to stop his violence right now. The aggressive adult stares at the small blade with a look of pure rage. Terrified for her son, the mother desperately begs him to calm down before things get worse. Holding his ground, the teenager tears up and yells that he will protect his mother no matter what. Spitting on the floor, the giant man looks at the kid with absolute disgust. Laughing mockingly, the cruel adult reaches for his leather belt to prepare for a fight. The bully calls him a total loser at school who is just trying to act tough at home. Heavy footsteps echo through the small room as the angry monster steps forward. Crying on the floor, the poor mother begs the attacker to stop his madness. The furious man yells at the kid to try something and calls him a worthless failure. Raising his heavy belt high, the muscular brute promises to teach the boy a painful lesson. A dangerous shadow falls over the trembling student as the whip swings down fast. Refusing to back down, the teenager pushes the sharp metal blade out even further. Behind his cracked glasses, the young boy looks at the enemy with pure desperation. Unleashing all his built-up rage, the weak student suddenly lunges forward with his weapon. A massive crimson splash covers the room when the final attack connects. Heavy rain begins to pour from the dark clouds as a storm brews over the neighborhood. Inside the small apartment, a wild struggle takes place while the heavy rain washes the streets outside. The abusive stepfather is seen through the window as he swings his heavy arms around during the fight. A sudden splash of red liquid covers his body when the young boy actually manages to land a hit. The sharp utility knife drops to the wooden floor with a loud metallic sound right next to the belt. Falling backward onto the dirty ground, the terrified student stares at the red puddle in complete shock. His eyes widen with pure horror because he never expected to actually hurt someone with his own hands. The bleeding mother stands in front of the massive monster, while the teenager cries out for her. Shaking with pure rage, the aggressive man grabs her and screams that the brat actually dared to stab him. Tears stream down the boy's face as he desperately explains that he only wanted to protect his family. Refusing to listen, the angry adult screams at the kid and calls him a total coward for using a weapon. Taking a heavy step forward, the muscular bully prepares to unleash a terrible punishment on the teenager. Suddenly, a pair of trembling hands desperately grabs his leg to stop him from taking another step. Looking up with crying eyes, the poor mother silently begs the furious man to spare her child. Falling to her knees, she desperately explains that Jen did not mean to hurt him and begs for his mercy. The angry stepfather grits his teeth and screams at the crying woman to let go of his leg immediately. Without showing any mercy, the aggressive giant swings his heavy fist and strikes the poor mother because she is in his way. Blood splatters as she takes another brutal blow while her terrified son can only scream for her in absolute despair. Tears stream down his face as the weak student desperately begs the violent monster to stop this terrible abuse. The muscular brute suddenly stops his attack and turns his furious gaze back toward the trembling boy. Standing tall, the aggressive adult promises to discipline the kid properly so he never tries to fight back again. Weak and bleeding on the floor, the loving mother looks at her son and quietly whispers for him to run away. A cold sweat breaks out on his neck as the terrified boy swallows hard while trying to make a final choice. Looking through his dirty glasses, the emotional teenager promises to protect his mother, even if he has no strength. The injured woman begs him not to worry about her safety and urges the young boy to escape before it is too late. Nearby, some empty glass bottles roll across the wooden floor as the tense atmosphere in the room gets heavier. Summoning all her remaining strength, the desperate mother screams at the top of her lungs for the kid to run. Slowly rising from the ground, the weak student prepares to move because he realizes he cannot win this fight. Running out of the apartment, the crying teenager apologizes in his head for leaving his beloved parent behind. Watching the kid escape, the furious stepfather yells in pure anger because he wants to punish the young boy. Inside the room, the angry stepfather continues to beat the poor mother while blaming her for everything. Crying on the ground, the injured mother whispers her son's name and tells him to keep running away to safety. Heavy rain pours down on the empty street, while the lonely student walks away in the freezing storm. Tears mix with the cold rain as the helpless boy realizes that he failed to protect his beloved parent. Feeling completely useless, the teenager walks down the dark road when a group of girls notices him. Walking under their umbrellas, the students feel pity for the random boy who is getting completely soaked. One of the young girls looks at him with a worried expression because he seems incredibly sad. Feeling deeply embarrassed, the poor teenager wishes everyone would just stop staring at his miserable state. Suddenly, a shadow blocks the heavy rain when someone unexpectedly holds a large umbrella over his head. Looking up in shock, the wet student sees a kind girl offering her own umbrella so he can stay dry. Smiling warmly, the gentle stranger warns him to hurry home before the cold weather makes him sick. The stunned teenager holds the handle in complete silence because nobody has ever shown him such kindness. After giving away her umbrella, the cheerful girl quickly runs back to share one with her close classmate. While walking away, the nice girl explains that she always follows her brother's advice to help people in need. Standing under the rain, the boy wonders where he is supposed to go now since he cannot return home. Suddenly, he feels something warm and fuzzy gently brushing against his wet leg. His eyes widen in surprise as he looks down to see what is touching him. A small stray dog stands right in front of him and barks softly in the pouring rain. Looking closely at the animal, the boy wonders if this is the same creature he met back then. Gently petting its wet head, he admits that he has no food and no home to return to anymore. The dog suddenly barks and starts walking away as if inviting the teenager to follow behind. Without wasting any time, the young boy starts running through the storm to keep up with the animal. Giant dark buildings tower over the empty streets as the heavy rain continues to flood the city. The unlikely duo crosses the wet road together while the small guide leads the way. Panting heavily from the long run, the exhausted student finally catches up to the barking pup. Sweating and completely out of breath, he struggles to keep his eyes open after such a long day. They stop near a large building where they can finally find some shelter from the cold storm. The boy realizes that the clever animal guided him to this specific location for a reason. Placing his wet umbrella against the wall, he decides to stay since he has nowhere else to go. Huddled in the dark corner, the tired boy decides to spend the night there with his single umbrella. The next morning, the bright sun rises over the tall city buildings to start a brand new day. Suddenly, a loud barking sound echoes as a big angry dog corners the little puppy in the street. Hearing a very familiar voice nearby, the young boy freezes in shock and looks up with wide eyes. Standing right in front of him is his cruel school bully who is hanging out with two popular girls. The terrified student trembles on the ground while the arrogant teenager asks what he is doing there. Looking at the poor kid with disgust, one of the girls wonders if they are actually friends. The mean teenager smiles and quickly confirms their friendship with a very creepy look on his face. Walking closer, the smug bully claims that life would be completely boring without his favorite target. Protecting his new friend, the brave little puppy jumps forward and growls at the mean group. Glaring down at the silent teenager, the angry leader demands to know why he is not speaking up. Slapping his face mockingly, the bully tells him to show some courage and start barking like a dog. Gritting his teeth in deep humiliation, the crying student can only hold his cheek in silence. The bully suddenly loses his temper and warns the boy not to make him angry because he is already bored. Shaking with intense fear, the weak teenager struggles to find any words to defend himself. Grabbing him tightly by the hair, the aggressive bully forces the student to look up in pain. The furious teenager yells at his target to hurry up and start barking like an animal. Suddenly, the brave little puppy leaps forward and bites down hard on the bully's hand. The mean teenager steps back in complete shock as blood drips from his injured arm. Staring in absolute disbelief, the young student realizes that the tiny animal actually protected him. Gritting his teeth in pure rage, the angry bully stares at the small creature with murderous eyes. Unleashing his own massive pit bull, the aggressive teen orders his beast to attack without mercy. The giant dog growls fiercely as it confronts the tiny puppy in the middle of the street. Baring its sharp teeth, the terrifying pit bull suddenly lunges forward to start a brutal fight. The massive beast easily dominates the struggle and bites the poor puppy, who cannot escape. Tears fill the boy's eyes as he watches the tiny creature get defeated on the cold concrete. A cruel smile spreads across the bully's face because he enjoys seeing his target suffer. Covering his face, the crying teenager begs the aggressive group to stop this terrible violence. Locking the boy in a tight grip, the wicked teen forces him to watch the entire scene. The giant beast continues its relentless attack as the bully mocks how the weak can never protect anything. Crying in total despair, the helpless boy begs the mean teenager to stop this terrible cruelty before the pup dies. The wicked bully only smirks with pure evil when he hears his victim pleading for mercy. Grabbing the student by his hair, the mean teenager forces him to look down and watch the entire fight. The aggressive leader warns the crying kid to never defy him again if he wants to survive. With a final brutal strike, the giant pit bull completely overpowers the brave little animal. Tears burst from his eyes as the devastated teenager lets out a painful scream of pure sadness. Without showing any pity, the heartless bully aggressively shakes the sobbing boy to humiliate him even more. Looking down with complete disgust, the arrogant teenager calls the poor kid a totally pathetic loser. With a violent push, the aggressive bully throws the crying student hard onto the cold concrete. The wicked teen points at the floor and cruelly orders the boy to eat dirt so he can be forgiven. Giving a terrifying threat, the bully says he will start counting to 5 and warns him not to resist. Kneeling in absolute despair, the lonely boy cries because he realized his single friend is now gone. Looking at his tiny friend lying on the cold ground, the crying boy wonders why everything gets taken away from him. The student remembers how the brave creature gave him hope and made him think that he could finally protect someone too. Tears run down his face as the helpless teenager realizes he is completely alone in this dark world. Clenching his fist in absolute desperation, the kid believes his fate is to lose every single thing he loves. Standing nearby, the cruel leader watches the sad kid and starts walking toward him with a mocking smile on his face. Moving closer, the mean teenager asks his target what he is planning to do now since his little defender is gone. With a menacing look in his eyes, the bully asks if the weak boy is actually planning to defy him this time. He warns the student that fighting back will only land him in a terrible juvenile prison for committing a serious crime. Smiling widely, the arrogant teen adds that the weak boy would probably get eliminated on his very first day in that place. The wicked bully whispers that escaping or trying to end his own life will never solve any of his problems. He then brings up the mother, saying his bad buddies will take care of her when she gets sent to a terrible nightclub. Continuing his cruel words, the bully insults the boy and says he should just be called a useless dog from now on. Hearing these horrible insults about his parent causes a sudden spark of intense anger to light up inside the student. Loud laughter echoes through the area as the bully continues to mock the helpless family without showing any mercy. Whispering close to his ear, the arrogant teen mockingly claims that just hearing his victim's name makes him shake with fear. At this very moment, the student can no longer hold back his intense rage. Shaking with pure fury, he suddenly lunges forward and strikes the cruel bully with all his might. Grabbing his enemy tightly, the angry teenager screams that some lines should never be crossed. Shocked by the sudden retaliation, the arrogant leader yells in disbelief because he got hit. Trying to fight back, the bully struggles to regain control of the situation. Without showing any hesitation, the desperate boy grabs his target and bites down hard on his face. With a brutal pull, he tears a piece away while blood splatters everywhere. Letting out a painful scream, the injured opponent holds his bleeding nose in agony. The popular girls scream in absolute horror as they witness the terrifying scene. Crying out for help, the defeated bully rolls on the ground while his friends run away to find safety. Standing over his enemy, the quiet student breathes heavily and looks down with empty eyes. Covered in blood, his cold face shows absolutely no sign of regret for what he just did. Sometime later, the sun shines brightly over a massive building in the middle of the city. A heavy wooden gavel hits the desk to announce that the official trial is now starting. The judge reads the charges against 15-year-old Jen for his extreme actions against his classmate. Right after the chaotic incident, the poor student gets arrested and has to face the authorities. Sitting in the room, he tries to explain the bullying, but the police officers refuse to believe a single word. Sadly, the enemy used huge bribes to silence the teachers and even paid off his own father to lock up his mother. Left without any support, the poor kid realizes that nobody is going to help him escape this terrible situation. Soon the judge delivers a harsh ruling sentencing the teenager to 5 years in a juvenile reformatory. Walking out in handcuffs, the boy knows he is leaving one bad place just to enter something much worse. Arriving at the massive metal gates, he prepares himself to face a completely new kind of nightmare. Looking ahead with cold eyes, he knows that only the strongest individuals can survive in this harsh environment. With a loud sound, the heavy doors slam shut and trap him inside a dark world with no escape. Outside, the rain pours down heavily on the barbed wire fences of the secure facility. Heavy iron chains rattle with every step as the new inmates are marched down the cold corridors. Suddenly, a mean guard aggressively shoves the boy and yells at him to stop dragging his feet. Feeling a deep sense of injustice, the kid wonders why the victim gets punished while the bully walks free. Shortly after, they are led into the examination room to undergo a strict inspection. The guards immediately order the nervous teenagers to take off their clothes and stand in a line. Standing in the cold room, the young boy looks around at the intimidating inmates taking off their shirts. A stern guard sits at his desk and demands to know the name of a nervous chubby boy standing nearby. Hearing a stuttering response makes the officer glare with intense anger at the frightened kid. Turning his attention to Jen, the guard mentions his wild reputation for biting off his rival nose. Handing over a small slip of paper, the man declares that his new name is now number 8725. Soon the guards force the group outside to get sprayed down with freezing water in the middle of the corridor. Shivering in his thin shorts, the teenager stands silently while trying to endure the freezing temperature. An inspector wearing a face mask orders him to raise his hands and turn around for a physical check. The medical officer carefully examines his back and writes down his details on an official clipboard. Putting on a rubber glove, the doctor gives a humiliating order that makes the poor boy cry in total despair. Large, intimidating criminals with massive tattoos wait in line to receive the same treatment. The medical inspector quickly performs the checkup while the poor boy cries from the extreme humiliation. With his self-respect completely shattered, the kid holds up his board for the official prison mugshot. Shortly after, the morning light shines through the windows as the inmates gather in the main hall. Suddenly, a loud guard commands everyone to stand up straight because the big boss is arriving. Walking into the room, a dressed-up man clears his throat to get the attention of all the teenagers. Smiling warmly, the director tells the kids to sit down and claims this place is not a strict prison at all. The elegant director reassures the group that they can rely on him for anything during their stay. Hearing these surprisingly kind words makes the main character feel a tiny bit of hope for his future. The cheerful man wishes them a good education so they can become valuable members of society. Soon a stern guard calls the boy over and tells him it is time to head toward his assigned cell. Holding his bedsheets, the teenager walks into a room full of terrifying guys who smile when they see him. Inmates inside the reformatory mock each other as the atmosphere remains extremely tense. Walking down the dark hallway, the main character hears terrible threats from the nearby cells. Holding his small plastic container, the young boy carefully follows the guard with deep anxiety. Suddenly, the officer stops walking and turns around with a highly suspicious smile. The man warns that they prepared a very special place just for the new prisoner. Arriving at the end of the corridor, the supervisor points directly toward a creepy-looking room. Standing before the heavy bars, the quiet teenager feels a cold sweat run down his face. Without any warning, the cruel guard aggressively shoves the boy inside the dark space. The officer mockingly tells him to enjoy his new life in this horrible facility. Inside the room, several dangerous inmates stare, and one asks for his name. Surrounded by these bullies, the frightened kid nervously stutters his real name. A sudden brutal slap hits his cheek and almost knocks him straight to the cold ground. The angry leader screams that he wanted to know his assigned prisoner number instead. Holding his swollen face, the poor student realizes that his nightmare is only beginning. The bullies surround the poor kid and announce that it is time for his welcoming ritual. Terror fills the boy's eyes as he realizes there is absolutely no escape from this group. A brutal beating begins immediately as they knock his supplies to the floor and strike him. Covering his head on the cold floor, the young prisoner has to take every single hit. Standing over his victim, the room leader declares that the weak teenager is now his dog. Clenching his teeth through the pain, the boy tries his best to just endure the nightmare. Another inmate crouches down and mockingly asks if the quiet kid has a problem with them. Patting his head mockingly, the cruel teenager says that should be enough pain for now. Grabbing his hair, the bully tells him that it is time to learn the rules of this place. A strict pyramid system dominates the facility where the new arrivals start at the bottom. The room leader explains that all supplies must be given to him for redistribution. Looking down at his empty bowl, the boy learns he must never defy anyone ranked above him. Leaning in very close, the bully warns that things will get extremely ugly if he disobeys. Suddenly, the leader decides he needs to use the bathroom and demands a human step stool. Kneeling on the floor, the shocked teenager realizes the terrible humiliation he must face. Because the toilets have a strict flush limit, the inmates are forced to use the high sink instead. Standing directly on the boy's back, the arrogant leader calls this a special duty for newcomers. Smiling with absolute satisfaction, the mean bully begins to relieve himself without any shame. Feeling the warm liquid splash all over his face, the desperate teenager shakes with pure anger and disgust. With a sudden burst of power, the angry kid stands up and throws the heavy bully straight to the ground. Shaking with absolute rage, the dirty leader screams that he is going to end the kid's life for this. Immediately, the entire gang of inmates jumps in and starts beating him down with heavy wooden sticks. Bleeding on the cold floor, the young boy silently apologizes to his mother because he thinks he might die. Suddenly, a pair of legs steps forward and a calm voice tells the angry crowd to stop the beating. Standing protectively over the victim, another student wearing glasses appears to stop the incoming attacks. Smiling politely, the new defender asks the leader to let things go and promises to teach the boy the rules. Pointing his heavy stick, the furious bully screams that this situation is none of his business. Keeping his calm smile, the smart teenager reaches into his pocket and pulls out a secret bribe to ease the tension. Pointing out the danger of taking things too far, the smart teenager warns that the higher-ups will get involved. Realizing the risk, the boss agrees to stop while another fat bully complains about the quick mouth of the weakling. Leaving the new boy under his care, the leader warns that any future trouble will also be his responsibility. Crouching down near the injured kid, the helper hands over a tube of medicine to help heal his fresh wounds. Holding the tube, the protagonist wonders why this stranger decided to step in and save his life. With a serious expression, the savior advises him to endure the abuse because that is the only way to survive. Offering a helping hand, the kind teenager promises to lend his strength to make sure they both make it out alive. Soon he explains how the entire reformatory runs on a highly strict schedule with no room for mistakes. Pointing behind himself, the roommate explains that they are split into specific groups to handle daily chores. Suddenly, a loud clanging sound echoes through the hall as a guard opens the heavy gates to start their free time. Many inmates suddenly sprint down the dark corridor, while some whisper about an upcoming event. The friendly helper tells the main character to watch closely as he explains the massive layout of the facility. Looking over the crowded yard, the glasses boy explains that this dangerous area is the real reformatory. A dark-haired boy stands near the fence as a massive tattooed inmate steps up and loudly challenges him to a fight. Cracking his knuckles with a terrifying smile, the giant bully prepares to teach the kid a painful lesson. Before his opponent can even finish talking, the dark-haired fighter unleashes a brutal punch straight to his face. He easily takes down multiple enemies at once while the nearby prisoners scream and cheer behind the fence. Seeing the bloody battle unfold, the young protagonist watches with wide eyes and wonders why nobody is stopping them. Instead of stepping in, the lazy guards just stand around and smoke while completely ignoring the brutal violence. Smiling calmly, the helpful classmate explains that this place looks like a normal prison, but the reality is far worse. Pointing at the layout, he explains how the 4 blocks share all the common areas because everything is split up. Inside this dark facility, the only law that actually matters is raw power and brute force. Hearing this shocking revelation makes the main character wonder what his friend really means by those words. The smart roommate clarifies that physical strength is the only thing that decides your rank in here. The absolute strongest inmates can even take control of entire districts instead of the lazy guards. The supervisors are happy to let them run wild as long as nobody actually ends up dead. They simply look the other way when things get bloody, and the glasses kid points at the current battle. Behind the metal fence, the cheering crowd goes completely wild while making heavy bets on the match. Facing 4 opponents at the same time, the powerful fighter easily dodges and kicks them to the ground. Suddenly, one massive brawler manages to grab him and smiles confidently despite having a bloody face. Without wasting a second, the dark-haired beast winds up a massive punch and completely crushes his opponent. The powerful fighter easily grabs his opponent and twists his arm to completely disable him. He then unleashes a devastating strike that sends the poor guy flying straight into the metal fence. Watching this absolute destruction, another fighter with wrapped hands clenches his fist while wondering if this guy is a real monster. Letting out a loud battle cry, the brave challenger charges forward to try his luck against the beast. With a single brutal uppercut, the dark-haired fighter instantly knocks him out and sends him crashing down. Breathing heavily, the champion grabs his shirt and calmly walks away while leaving a trail of defeated enemies behind him. The crowd of prisoners goes absolutely wild while chanting the name of Kojo, who has proved his absolute dominance today. Looking at the champion walking away, the amazed student thinks the guy does not even seem like a normal human. This dangerous fighter leaves a very lasting impression with just his dark and shadowy profile. Staring at the ceiling that night, the weak kid wishes he had even a tiny fraction of that incredible power. Curling up on his cold bed, the lonely teenager falls asleep and waits for a brand new day to arrive. Eating lunch inside the loud cafeteria the next morning, the protagonist wonders why nobody was punished for the battle. The friendly roommate calmly explains that all trouble is settled through direct fights without guard interference. The young student asks if this means absolutely any person can challenge the top fighters of this facility. Smiling calmly, the helper warns that challenges are useless because those beasts show zero mercy to weak opponents. Shivering with fear, the main character realizes that guys like them must find a different way to survive. While eating their lunch, the smart roommate explains that they must find a powerful ally if they want to survive. Suddenly, a loud shout echoes through the large cafeteria, telling everyone to gather around immediately. A massive shadowy figure enters the room, while the other prisoners whisper about the arrival of the boss. Urgently pulling his friend up, the glasses boy warns that they must never make this terrifying leader angry. Another inmate tries to act friendly, but the giant completely ignores him and keeps walking forward. Stopping right in front of the main character, the massive fighter asks the terrified boy to confirm his identity. Sweat drips down the protagonist's face as he nervously confirms his name to the giant standing before him. Without any warning, the muscular beast grabs the teenager by his shirt and pulls him incredibly close. Looking down with a terrifying expression, the giant introduces himself as the fierce leader named Retsu. He reveals that he is the older brother of the school bully, whose nose was bitten off during their first fight. The terrifying boss explains that he arranged the transfer specifically to take personal care of the young kid. Turning to the shocked crowd, the leader loudly announces that the new boy is his exclusive target from now on. With a sudden movement, he throws the poor teenager to the floor and leaves him trembling in absolute fear. Nearby inmates watch the defeated boy and laugh about his terrible luck. Helping him stand up, the friendly roommate suggests heading straight to the medical room. Sometime later, the protagonist gets assigned to clean up an empty shower room all by himself. Looking around the quiet space, the teenager hopes he can finally find some safety away from the bullies. Suddenly, the heavy door is kicked open with a loud bang that shatters his temporary peace. A massive bald inmate enters the room with a very creepy smile on his face. Walking closer, the giant bully says the new kid looks like the perfect target to mess with. Cornering the terrified teenager, the predator says he just wants to have some fun. Trembling with fear, the weak kid begs him to stop, but his pleas are completely ignored. Without warning, the massive bully turns on the shower head, and water starts spraying everywhere. Shivering under the cold water, the young protagonist realizes he is trapped in a nightmare. Licking his lips under the spray, the weird giant claims this weather sets the perfect mood. Grabbing the poor boy from behind, the creepy inmate starts tormenting him without any mercy. The helpless teenager struggles to get free as the brute tries to overpower him completely. Gritting his teeth in pure terror, the young victim can only hope for someone to save him. The creepy bald bully keeps holding the poor student while the cold water continues to spray on them. Suddenly, another hand reaches out to stop the scary giant from continuing his terrible actions. The Glass's roommate holds the massive arm tight and begs the beast to stop right there. Turning around with a glare, the giant asks if the weakling is trying to play hero once again. The brave friend warns that harming the boy will cause a massive problem with the absolute boss of this place. Hearing this warning, the bald giant lets go of his victim and tries to laugh it off as simple teasing. Walking away, the beast whispers a terrifying threat that this temporary protection will surely end very soon. The smart helper watches the bully leave, while feeling a deep sense of dread about the future. Still trembling on the wet floor, the main character wonders how they can ever escape such a nightmare. Helping his friend Stan, the roommate explains that rejecting the top boss will only bring worse trouble. Walking down the lonely hallway, the tired teenager realizes his daily chores are now a major hazard. Suddenly, a pair of heavy boots sprint down the dark hallway at a very fast pace. Several angry prisoners charge forward with their fists raised to launch a sudden attack. Standing in their path, the Glasses boy looks back in complete shock as they confront him. Without giving him any time to run, one of the thugs lands a massive punch right on his face. They throw him to the floor and start kicking him because they think he snitched to the boss. While the group keeps beating the poor student, a female doctor suddenly walks in to stop them. One of the bullies smiles and claims they are just teaching the weak kid a little lesson. The calm nurse warns them not to go too far and tells them to leave the area immediately. Agreeing to her request, the gang members decide to stop and leave the injured boy behind. Walking away, the angry thug mutters that the Glasses kid got incredibly lucky this time. The heavy door of the medical room closes as the bullies head back to their quarters. Inside the quiet clinic, the kind lady prepares the bed and tells her patient that it might sting. She gently applies some medicine to the painful red marks on his badly bruised back. The gentle doctor advises him not to endure all this pain alone and offers her future help. Clutching his pillow tightly, the hurt boy weakly claims that he is completely fine. The kind nurse stares in pure shock when she realizes how tough the Glasses kid actually is. She admits that the weak-looking boy has way more courage than she originally expected. Later that night, the loyal friend sits alone in the dark room and realizes Masaki never returned from the bathhouse. A terrible thought crosses his mind as he remembers the creepy giant who went to corner his roommate. Running to the heavy metal gate, the worried teenager starts shouting loudly for a guard to help them. This sudden noise immediately wakes up a dangerous cellmate who looks extremely annoyed by the disturbance. Ignoring the threat, the desperate kid keeps banging on the iron bars while begging for someone to save his friend. Suddenly, the angry room leader charges forward and violently throws him down to the hard floor. Trembling on the ground, the poor boy looks up at the massive inmate with terror in his eyes. He quickly grabs the bully by his leg and desperately explains that their friend is in serious danger. Without showing any mercy, the aggressive leader kicks him away and tells him that the guards will find the boy. The terrifying thug commands him to stay completely quiet and goes back to bed while grumbling about his sleep. Left alone on the cold floor, the weak kid clenches his fist in absolute frustration and helplessness. Standing in the dark room, the Glasses boy desperately worries about what happened to his missing roommate. Hearing a loud commotion in the morning, he runs out and pushes through a massive crowd of whispering inmates. His heart stops when he notices a group of prisoners staring at a terrifying scene just a few feet away. Tears fill his eyes when he sees his weak friend being carried away on a medical stretcher by a prison guard. Nearby inmates whisper and point toward a dark cell that is completely covered in fresh red stains. Standing right next to the scene is the creepy bald giant who is smiling like a total psychopath. Pure rage fills the young boy as his fist trembles violently from the sheer unfairness of it all. Glaring through his glasses, he directly asks the massive bully if he was the one behind this brutal attack. Laughing mockingly, the giant says that the previous fight was entertaining, but he is far from done. Leaning dangerously close, the predator creepily whispers that the Glasses kid is actually his next target. Grabbing the boy by his arm, the beast drags him away while the helpless victim struggles to break free. Feeling desperate, the brave kid bites down on the giant's hand as hard as he can. The furious giant immediately starts punching the poor boy to make him let go. Even with all the heavy hits, the stubborn teenager refuses to open his mouth. Suddenly, another hand reaches out and grabs the bully's massive arm to stop the attack. The giant glares with rage, but the mysterious savior easily slaps his hand away. Looking up in absolute surprise, the glasses boy realizes his savior is the strong cellmate. With a completely calm face, the strong fighter tells the bully to move so he can take a shower. Sweat drips down the bald giant's face as he realizes who just stood up to him. Knowing he stands no chance, the big bully decides it is best to leave the area. The silent fighter complains that the place is dirty while the giant walks away in pure anger. To vent his frustration, the angry brute suddenly lands a harsh kick on the glasses kid. Dropping to the floor, the poor boy can only watch as the terrifying giant leaves the room. Still trembling on the cold ground, the teenager stays quiet while his savior gets ready to wash up. Water slowly drains away as the chaotic situation in the shower room finally starts to quiet down. Looking at the strong inmate washing up, the glasses boy wonders about his true identity and why he is so feared. He desperately wishes he could obtain that kind of incredible power to protect the people close to him. The quiet fighter notices him staring and tells the teenager to leave the area if he is already finished. Suddenly remembering his injured roommate, the boy gasps in realization and runs out of the bathroom. His heavy footsteps echo loudly down the empty prison hallways as he rushes back to check on his friend. Entering the quiet room, he spots Masaki lying silently on a bed with many bandages wrapped around his body. The weak victim looks very miserable and blames himself for always causing so much trouble for everyone else. Sitting by the bedside, the glasses teenager feels completely helpless and wonders how he can ever grow stronger. Hearing a small sound, Masaki slowly opens his eyes and notices his worried roommate sitting right next to him. The injured boy weakly explains that his wounds are already treated, so he just needs to rest on the bed for a while. Tears instantly fill the teenager's eyes as he confesses that this whole disaster is entirely his own fault. Gently holding his hand, the kind friend tells him not to cry because his safety is the only thing that matters. Sobbing heavily, the helpless boy asks why his brave friend had to go so far to protect him from the bullies. Masaki closes his eyes and takes a deep breath as he tries to recover from the brutal assault he endured. Lying on the bed, the injured boy slowly pulls out a small photograph from his shirt. Looking at his young roommate, he smiles weakly and says the teenager reminds him of his own little brother. He shows a picture of a smart student who always got targeted by terrible bullies at school. To protect his sibling after a tragic incident, the brave kid decided to take the entire blame and ended up here. He admits that he constantly wonders if his beloved sibling is finally living a peaceful life out there. Staring at the photo, the protagonist gets completely frozen when he recognizes the face of that bullied boy. The wounded classmate notices this strange reaction and directly asks if they have ever met before. With deep hope in his eyes, he desperately asks how his brother is doing and if he is truly okay. Forcing a bright smile, the teenager lies and says the sibling looked very happy while hanging out with friends. Tears of pure relief fill the hurt boy as he realizes his sacrifice was not a mistake after all. Suddenly standing up, the angry protagonist declares he will report the giant bully to the prison guards. When his roommate quickly grabs his arm to stop him, the confused teenager asks why they should stay quiet. Placing a finger on his lips, the patient tells him to quiet down before anyone else hears them. Leaning very close, the roommate whispers that this entire facility is hiding a very dark secret. The main character can only stare in absolute horror as he realizes the true danger of this place. The injured boy leans close to whisper the terrifying truth about the dark rules of the facility. Suddenly, a loud bang on the iron bars interrupts their private conversation. Both teenagers turn around in complete shock when a loud voice calls out from the doorway. A smug bully stands outside the cell while making some highly offensive comments about their close relationship. Getting extremely angry, the glasses boy steps forward to defend his hurt roommate from the mean remarks. Behind him, the injured friend trembles with anxiety while trying to keep the situation under control. Standing up, the brave roommate warns the bully to watch his mouth or face the anger of their powerful leader. Hearing that dangerous name, the aggressive thug immediately freezes as cold sweat runs down his face. Terrified of getting into trouble, the bully quickly makes a cheap excuse and walks away from their cell. The protagonist wonders how his friend can remain so calm under pressure and asks about his future plans. Looking down, the wise boy explains that everyone must hide their true nature to survive in this cruel prison. He adds that prisoners must use every possible advantage and connection to protect themselves from danger. The teenager wonders if this survival strategy has anything to do with the massive secret his roommate knows. Instead of answering, the hurt friend simply tells him to rest so they can visit the medical clinic tomorrow. While the young boy climbs into his bunk bed, a pair of glowing eyes watches him silently from the deep shadows. Clouds cover the full moon as a dark night settles over the prison. Lying in bed, the teenager suddenly hears some painful coughing sounds coming from the bottom bunk. He looks down at his injured roommate, who is still suffering greatly from the brutal beating. The boy rolls over and begins to wonder if staying quiet is truly the best way to survive in this place. He desperately wishes to become as strong as the mysterious cellmate who scared the giant bully away. The protagonist wonders how the silent fighter managed to easily defeat 4 opponents all by himself. Imagining himself in a real battle, the excited kid throws a couple of quick punches straight into the empty air. He quickly realizes his weak arms are not ready for a fight and lowers his hands in disappointment. Staring at the ceiling, the protagonist deeply worries about how he will protect his friend and stay safe. The next night, a heavy rainstorm starts to pour down on the barbed wires surrounding the prison. Supporting his limping friend, the protagonist walks through the dark hallway after a late visit to the clinic. Walking down the dark hallway, the 2 boys suddenly notice some people moving around late at night. A powerful warden wearing a long coat slowly approaches them with several guards right behind him. The scary official stops in his tracks and directly asks the group what they are doing out of their cells. The female doctor steps forward and explains that the injured teenager needs a quick visit to the clinic. Feeling extremely nervous, the main character quickly lies and claims an old wound simply reopened. The creepy boss smiles and tells them to take care of themselves before walking away with his guards. Once the coast is clear, the protagonist asks his friend why they did not report the violent bully to the warden. Shaking his head, the wise teenager explains that nobody in this terrible facility can be trusted. Leaning in close, he whispers that some people are secretly manufacturing illegal substances inside this prison. The shocked protagonist yells in surprise, but his friend quickly covers his mouth to keep him quiet. The boy explains that they can use this massive secret as leverage once they find the true mastermind. Staring directly at his roommate, he warns the younger boy to never repeat this dangerous secret to anyone. As the group slowly walks away, a pair of glowing eyes watches them silently from the deep darkness. After walking for a long time, they finally arrive inside the quiet medical clinic. Gently cleaning the painful wounds, the female doctor tells him to endure the pain. Without warning, the door slides open as 2 guards suddenly barge into the room. Shouting loudly, the lead guard announces that the director ordered the injured boy to go to an outside hospital. Looking completely terrified, the injured teenager instantly refuses to leave the facility. Stepping forward, the female doctor says she will take full responsibility for his medical care. Glaring with cold eyes, the guard warns the doctor that she will lose her job if she interferes. Overwhelmed by the scary threat, the female doctor looks down and stays completely quiet. Realizing there is no escape, the injured classmate finally agrees to go with the guards. Patting his shoulder, the protagonist tells his friend to get well soon and promises to wait for him. Wearing a very grim expression, the older teenager slowly turns around to leave the clinic. Whispering quietly, he warns his younger roommate to remember his words and endure everything. Turning back one last time, he reminds the boy that nobody in this terrible place can be trusted. Sounding loudly on the cold floor, his footsteps echo as the guards lead him down the hallway. Smiling happily, the protagonist foolishly believes that a real hospital will finally help his friend. Walking down the corridor, the protagonist hopes the brutal bully will finally get punished for his terrible actions. The next day, the bright morning sun shines over the prison yard as the inmates gather inside the busy cafeteria. Holding his heavy metal tray, the glasses boy hopes his roommate is resting well at the comfortable outside hospital. Suddenly, some gossiping inmates nearby start whispering about a crazy person who tried to escape the facility last night. Wearing a creepy smile, a blonde inmate reveals that the runaway who got killed was actually their former cellmate Masaki. Hearing this terrifying news, the protagonist instantly drops his food tray on the floor with a loud metallic crash. Tears of pure shock fill the boy as he struggles to accept the sudden death of his closest friend. The trembling teenager tells himself that there must be some kind of mistake because his roommate was sent to a hospital. Before he can process his grief, heavy black boots step into the room as several security guards march inside. Leading the group is a terrifying officer named Shiro, who is known for being far more ruthless than any bully here. The terrifying officer stands before the crowd while the entire room waits in complete silence. The leader loudly announces that Masaki attacked some guards during a wild escape attempt last night. He adds that the runaway got hit by a truck and died instantly, which leaves the protagonist completely frozen. The boy screams that this is impossible because his injured roommate could never pull off such a stunt. Glaring at the crowd, the ruthless official warns everyone to follow the rules if they want to stay alive. The scary guard team slowly walks away while the young boy can only think of his departed friend. Suddenly, a massive bald bully laughs nearby and complains that his favorite toy is gone too soon. Hearing these disgusting words, the main character trembles with rage and clenches his fists tightly. The heavy villain continues to mock the deceased teenager by saying he was easy to break in the end. He details how he easily threatened the poor victim until the boy became a totally submissive target. The cruel giant smiles while saying he wanted to play with both of them, which pushes the boy over the edge. Unleashing all his built-up anger, the protagonist swings a massive fist straight at the mocking bully. The teenager swings with all his might, but the giant easily dodges the wild punch. The massive bully immediately counterattacks with a brutal punch that sends blood flying. The force of the powerful blow sends the poor boy sliding across the cafeteria floor. The ruthless giant quickly follows up with a heavy kick straight to the boy's stomach. Standing over his victim, the villain laughs at the weak attempt to play a hero. The angry brute grabs the teenager by his uniform to lift him back up for more. The bully clicks his tongue in deep annoyance at how fragile the young kid is. He violently kicks the helpless protagonist away like a piece of useless trash. The other cruel inmates watch the one-sided beating while smiling in amusement. The giant continues to stomp on the fallen boy on the floor without showing any mercy. Grabbing his collar again, the angry thug asks the bleeding boy why he is playing dead. The villain raises his massive fist to deliver one final crushing blow to the face. Suddenly, a powerful hand reaches out and catches the giant's fist midair. The strong roommate calmly appears and points out that the brute just spilled his hot soup. Sweat pours down the thug's face as he realizes his worst nightmare has just returned. Standing tall, the mysterious cellmate firmly holds the giant bully's fist to stop the fight. With an effortless flick of his wrist, the powerful boy completely deflects the massive arm away. Nearby inmates quickly advise against interfering because the strong fighter is too dangerous to touch. Another prisoner nervously offers his own food just to keep the silent powerhouse from getting angry. A worried lackey begs the giant thug to calm down so they do not get into trouble with the guards. The tense standoff finally ends as the combatants slowly back away from each other in the cafeteria. Feeling deeply humiliated, the bald villain grinds his teeth because retreating makes him look like a coward. Lying bruised on the dirty floor, the poor main character can barely open his swollen eyes to see. A friendly face crouches down and tells the teenager to get medical help for his severe injuries. Gritting his teeth in complete frustration, the beaten protagonist struggles against the intense physical pain. The crowd quickly disperses as the deadly roommate and the heavy bully walk away in different directions. Clutching his bruised chest, the weak teenager slowly forces himself to stand up despite the terrible agony. Limping heavily, the injured protagonist drags his feet to leave while his mysterious savior walks ahead. Holding his lunch tray, the quiet fighter suddenly approaches the bald brute, who is standing in the middle of the way. Wearing a cold shadow over his face, the strong teenager demands the bully to move out of his path immediately. The bald giant freezes in fear as the quiet fighter calmly walks past him without showing any fear. Veins pop on the giant's forehead as he suddenly screams at the silent teenager to stop right there. A nervous lackey quickly runs over to hold the angry boss back before a massive fight breaks out. Looking back with a cold glare, the strong classmate warns the bully to stop before he embarrasses himself. Grinding his teeth in absolute rage, the bald brute refuses to back down even though his target is extremely calm. Watching from the dirty floor, the protagonist wonders if his savior can actually win against so many opponents. Walking away without a care, the powerful teenager tells the giant to move because his lunch is getting cold. Snapping completely, the giant villain leaps forward and throws a massive punch with all his power. Nearby inmates watch the sudden attack and instantly start placing bets on who will survive this crazy clash. Charging like a wild beast, the giant reveals he has been training hard since his last embarrassing defeat. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the bully demands his opponent to stop dodging and fight him like a real man. With incredible speed, the silent fighter easily dodges the heavy strike while keeping his food tray perfectly balanced. The surrounding crowd cheers loudly because they believe the giant boss will end this fight with just one single blow. Looking up with wide eyes, the main character gets terrified by the insane strength of the legendary prison fighters. The bald giant gets extremely annoyed and screams that he has had enough of the dodging. Suddenly, the quiet fighter bumps his leg against a metal bench which stops his movement. Seeing his chance, the massive bully smiles with a creepy face and yells that this is his moment. The big thug throws a massive punch, believing he will finally become the absolute boss of the entire yard. With a heavy swing, the brute misses again because his target moves back just in time. Finding himself trapped against another table, the young fighter realizes he has run out of space to run. Wearing a scary smile, the giant attacker claims he has finally trapped his opponent. Unleashing another heavy strike, the villain lunges forward, but the boy easily slides past the blow. Reacting with insane speed, the quiet roommate raises his elbow to launch a devastating counterattack. With a swift motion, he strikes the giant bully right in the face with incredible force. A heavy spray of saliva and blood flies from the brute's mouth as he takes the massive hit. The huge villain crashes hard onto the concrete floor, while his shocked lackeys run over to check on him. Looking down at his lunch, the powerful classmate mutters that a tiny bit of his soup still got spilled. Walking away calmly, the strong teenager leaves a path of terrified inmates who quickly step aside in respect. Lying in complete humiliation on the cold ground, the defeated boss can only grumble in absolute anger. Watching the scene, the bruised teenager realizes that absolute power is the only thing that matters in this harsh prison. Suddenly, a loud voice interrupts the silence as an angry prison guard arrives to stop the massive commotion in the hall. The officer asks the beaten giant if he needs medical attention, but the proud bully furiously rejects the offer. Clicking his tongue in deep annoyance, the guard looks down at the weak protagonist, who is still struggling on the floor. He coldly orders everyone to stop causing trouble and instructs any injured prisoner to head over to the infirmary. Limping away in complete shame, the giant villain glares back at the quiet roommate who has already returned to his meal. The defeated thug mutters a silent threat while passing by the powerful boy who continues to eat without paying attention. Turning his angry gaze toward the protagonist, the bald brute warns that the weak teenager will not be so lucky next time. He adds that their scary faction leader will be released from isolation in about 1 year to handle both of them. Hearing this terrifying promise, the young glasses boy freezes in absolute horror as the giant walks away with a grin. Shortly after the brutal fight, the injured protagonist makes his way to the quiet infirmary where a familiar doctor waits. While getting his wounds treated, the boy cannot stop thinking about the giant warning that their leader is coming to kill him. Seeing his terrified expression, the worried doctor asks if he is fine, and the trembling teenager quickly tries to act normal. Suddenly, the infirmary door swings open as the powerful roommate steps inside the quiet room. The silent classmate walks over to a cabinet and grabs a bottle of medicine without saying a word. Seeing his savior about to walk away, the bruised teenager desperately reaches out his hand. The young boy begs his classmate to wait, but the cold fighter simply tells him to move out of the way. With tears in his eyes, the desperate protagonist drops down on his knees and begs the guy to teach him how to fight. The silent roommate looks down at the bowing teenager with a completely blank expression on his face. When asked why, the trembling boy explains that the dangerous leader will seek revenge on both of them. The strong fighter looks closely at him and asks if his only goal is to survive this prison. The teenager shouts that he must stay alive so he can see his beloved mother again one day. The cold classmate rejects the plea and says that staying quiet and enduring suits the weak boy much better. The desperate boy quickly reaches out and tightly grabs his roommate by the sleeve to stop him from leaving. He knows that mere endurance will never protect him from the savage thugs who rule over this lawless prison yard. Bowing his head in complete humility, the injured teenager begs once again to be taught how to defend himself. From the reflection in the glass, the prison doctor silently observes the emotional confrontation between the two youths. The cold classmate immediately brushes the hand away and repeats that this situation has nothing to do with him. Turning his back, the silent fighter states that he is not there to act as a babysitter for weak people. The desperate protagonist reaches out again to stop his savior from stepping out of the small medical clinic. He explains that their mutual enemy is a ruthless monster who even took a life back during his middle school days. Looking back with a serious expression, the strong youth explains that any training would be completely useless. The cold teen advises the fragile protagonist to just focus on recovering from his heavy injuries and go back. Walking out the door, the dark-haired boy warns his roommate not to get in his path without real determination. Left alone with his thoughts, the glasses boy slowly walks back to his cell while wondering how he can survive. Suddenly, the quiet walk is interrupted when the young teen hears a loud commotion coming from the main corridor. A group of aggressive inmates are violently arguing and stealing belongings from another helpless prisoner. A heavy boot brutally stomps directly onto a precious family photograph that had been dropped onto the cold floor. Seeing the precious photo getting stepped on makes the glasses boy snap in pure rage. Without thinking twice, he charges forward to confront the bullies who are laughing. The teenager screams for them to stop because that memory belongs to his deceased friend. Instead of listening, a heavy boot sends the fragile protagonist crashing hard to the floor. The cruel attackers mock him for being completely alone while grabbing the paper. Right before his eyes, the heartless thugs tear the precious family photograph into pieces. The shredded remnants of the picture flutter down onto the dirty prison floor. Gritting his teeth with absolute fury, the young boy promises himself that things will change. He sprints out of the dark hallway to find the only person who can help him. Running through the heavy rain outside, the desperate student reflects on his miserable life. Tears mix with the cold raindrops as he realizes he refuses to die like a coward. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoes through the yard as his silent roommate trains with a giant sandbag. Looking at the strong fighter, the determined teenager decides to stand on his own 2 feet. Standing in the heavy rain, the desperate main character declares that he is ready to do absolutely whatever it takes. Bending down in a deep bow, he desperately begs his strong roommate to give him just one last chance. Looking closely at his classmate, the quiet fire notices that the weak boy finally has a different look in his eyes. The strong teenager points to a pile of heavy sandbags and says he will teach him if he moves them within 1 hour. Smiling slightly under the rain, the powerful fighter gets ready to test the determination of his new student. Giving the signal to start, he watches as the glasses boy instantly rushes forward with a serious expression. Running through the wet yard, the determined teenager begins the brutal task without wasting a single second. Lifting the first massive sandbag onto his shoulder, the fragile protagonist struggles against the heavy weight. Screaming through the pain, the young boy pushes his body to the absolute limit because he refuses to fail this trial. Remembering his past, he realizes he spent years carrying heavy bags for his mother and running away from cruel bullies. Slapping the heavy bag onto the new pile, the wet sand makes a loud thud as it hits the concrete floor. Taking just 1 minute to complete the first round, the motivated teenager believes he can actually finish in time. Crossing his arms, the silent fighter finds the quick progress quite impressive and hopes the boy will not disappoint him. Watching from the dry corridor, other inmates wonder why the weak boy is doing such crazy physical labor in the heavy rain. The thugs talk about how dangerous the quiet fighter is and warn each other to never mess with someone so ruthless. 2 prisoners talk about visitation rights and how difficult it is to get approval. They walk past the heavy iron bars and head straight toward the special area. Inside the chamber, a bandage-faced guy violently squeezes a soda can while demanding a strike. The scary leader sitting on the couch calmly tells him to stay patient for now. This answer only makes the angry young man yell louder about losing his nose. A dangerous silence fills the room as the massive boss stares back with glowing eyes. Losing his temper completely, the loud thug slams the table and demands an answer. Without warning, a brutal punch sends the fragile teenager crashing into the floor. The scary faction leader glares with absolute rage and insults the weak fighter. Grabbing the beaten boy by his head, the giant tells him to fight his own battles. Trembling in absolute terror, the defeated thug quickly apologizes and begs for mercy. The massive boss tightens his grip and warns his subordinate that they must be patient for now. The scary leader eats some fruit while planning to make their enemy suffer slowly over the next year. Back at the training yard, the sun begins to break through the storm clouds as the boy lifts 15 more heavy bags. Panting heavily, the weak teenager drags another massive load across the concrete floor with all his remaining strength. Standing nearby, the silent classmate notes that there are only 10 minutes left and the boy will probably fail. The strong roommate is quietly impressed by the effort, but knows the fragile kid cannot handle real training yet. Seeing his tutor walk away, the exhausted teenager wonders if his helper is already disappointed in his lack of talent. He remembers how useless he always was and starts to believe that he has no real talent for fighting. With his legs shaking uncontrollably, the desperate kid wonders if the whole trial was just a trick to get rid of him. Despite his heavy doubts, the bruised boy grits his teeth and refuses to stop moving even if he is destined to fail. Suddenly, the cruel voices of his past bullies echo inside his head, mocking his pathetic struggle. The imaginary monsters scream that he is a complete failure, just like his beloved mother. The shadow of his broken enemy grabs his face and mockingly tells him to look in a mirror. The cruel voices tell the desperate teenager to just accept his fate and wait for death. Sweating and shaking under the heavy burden, the boy silently rejects those cruel words. With a sudden burst of pure rage, the teenager screams out loud for everyone to stop looking down on him. Hearing the sudden scream, the silent roommate stops walking and looks back in surprise. Deciding to fight until his very last breath, the determined student runs forward with the massive load. Gritting his teeth, the weak boy promises to change his life and never regret his choices even if he dies. The silent fighter smiles as he realizes his weak classmate is actually doing a pretty decent job. Another massive bag hits the pile with a loud thud as the exhausted teenager continues his brutal task. Seeing that there are less than 10 bags left makes the determined boy resolve to finish this task. Watching closely, the dark-haired fighter realizes that the protagonist is pushing his body past his limit. The tutor quickly steps forward and orders his student to stop before he ends up hurting himself. Gritting his teeth, the stubborn boy refuses to stop because he desperately needs to prove his own worth. Tears and sweat stream down his face as he shouts that he is going to survive this prison no matter what. The roommate tries to block him while warning that pushing any further could literally end his life right there. Realizing his warning words are not reaching the boy, the strong classmate prepares to physically stop him. Ignoring the warnings, the frantic teenager keeps moving his legs while whispering that he is almost there. Staring at the ground, he notices that there are only 3 heavy sandbags remaining on the wet concrete floor. A wild smile appears on his face as the determined teenager tells himself that he can actually finish the job. A sudden heavy punch lands right in the stomach of the exhausted teenager to halt his dangerous movement. The weak boy gasps for air and wonders why his roommate had to stop him so violently. Standing tall under the bright sun, the muscular roommate cracks his knuckles and looks down at the fallen kid. The strong fighter explains that he had to use force because the boy already reached his absolute physical limit. Trembling on his knees, the stubborn student mutters that he still needs to see this trial through to the very end. Gently placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, the tutor calmly says that he has already done more than enough. Looking up with teary eyes, the main character asks if the strong teen will finally agree to teach him how to fight. Smiling down at his classmate, the dark-haired roommate promises to train him and make him the strongest person around. Hearing those words, a wild expression of relief and madness appears on the face of the exhausted protagonist. With his goal finally achieved, his tired body gives out completely and he collapses onto the hard concrete floor. Everything goes pitch black as the unconscious teenager slowly begins to dream about a mysterious stranger. Through his blurry vision, a strange man wearing a colorful shirt appears and speaks a name that he does not recognize. Suddenly, the dream turns into a terrifying nightmare as the spooky man screams a threat with a monstrous expression. Waking up with a loud scream, the panicked teenager sits up in bed while tightly clutching his white sheets. A startled nurse nearby holds a medical drip and stares at him in complete shock because of his sudden loud panic. The female doctor finishes inspecting the boy and remarks that his physical state is honestly quite terrible. Suddenly, the door swings open as his strong classmate appears at the entrance with a completely serious face. Turning her head around, the medical worker gives the intruder a very sharp and warning glare. She agrees to leave and explains that they only have 10 minutes of free time before she returns. A quiet click echoes through the silent infirmary as the heavy wooden door finally shuts behind her. Staring in complete surprise, the weak teenager looks up as his tall roommate approaches the hospital bed. The dark-haired youth explains they will use the quiet storage room for their secret sessions to avoid suspicious eyes. Leaning forward, the powerful fighter warns that their lessons must remain a total secret from all the other inmates. Overjoyed by the great news, the ecstatic kid bowing on his bed promises to give this opportunity his absolute best. His smile instantly fades when the tutor coldly points out that carrying those sandbags was just a simple warm-up. Walking toward the exit, the tall teen adds that sheer determination alone will never be enough to survive. Gently pressing a cotton ball onto his bruised skin, the main character starts treating his painful wounds. Looking down in deep sadness, the glasses kid realizes that even his maximum effort is still far from being enough. Noticing his sudden change of mood, the caring doctor asks if something is bothering him while wrapping his arm. Looking up with curiosity, the bandaged boy asks what kind of person his mysterious trainer named Kojo really is. The doctor explains that their quiet roommate is a complete mystery who always acts as a lone wolf. She mentions that he only entered this dangerous prison for the sake of his beloved family. Snapping her scissors shut, she warns the young kid that some dangerous secrets are better left untouched. After explaining that the guards are already bribed, she kindly wishes the determined teenager good luck. Under the bright sun, the daily free time period begins, and the boy sneaks away to find the storage room. Opening the heavy door slowly, the amazed protagonist gasps in surprise when he sees the massive space inside. Stepping inside, the young student realizes that the dark room has absolutely no light sources. Emerging from the shadows, his new mentor explains that training in the dark will quickly sharpen his senses. Feeling highly motivated, the polite kid bows deeply and greets his trainer with absolute respect. Looking back with a serious face, the strong fighter says there are exactly 2 rules they must follow. Standing with his arms crossed, the serious trainer explains the first rule is to never talk about their lessons to anyone. Agreeing instantly to the strict rule, the motivated boy shouts his reply with a very determined expression. Shortly after his loud answer, the curious teenager raises his hand and asks about the reason behind this secrecy. Shrouded in darkness, the mentor coldly states the second rule is to obey every single order without asking any questions. The tall fighter decides to start by assessing his classmate and gives him exactly 1 minute to show his physical limit. Instantly, the eager student starts doing rapid frog jumps before dropping down to the floor for some painful push-ups. Moving as fast as his heavy body allows, the exhausted boy squeezes out several difficult sit-ups despite his aching muscles. Sweat drips from his forehead as the struggling teenager barely manages to pull himself up on the high metal bar. Standing nearby, the calm trainer counts 23 frog jumps and 6 push-ups, plus 30 sit-ups and only 2 pull-ups. Disappointed by this terrible performance, the mentor calls the score pathetic and realizes he must change his approach. Seeing that his student has completely run out of energy, the dark-haired teen orders him to stop immediately. Crashing down onto the hard floor, the panting kid gasps for air while his teacher wonders if yesterday was just a fluke. The tutor demands 40 frog jumps and 20 push-ups as well as 60 sit-ups and 4 pull-ups in 1 minute within 3 days. Hearing the insane goal, the confused boy complains because he expected to learn real combat moves instead of basic exercises. The mentor looks down and asks how the weak student even expects to learn real combat right now. Suddenly, a powerful fist stops just an inch away from the shocked boy face. Staring at the massive fist, the teacher asks how he expects to dodge or counter any real attack with such a weak body. Turning his back, the trainer simply tells him to continue while the desperate kid begs him to wait. Panting heavily, the exhausted student asks if he can please have just 5 minutes of rest to catch his breath. Glancing back, the mentor firmly tells him to obey and admits that his earlier explanation was probably not enough. The tall teen explains that his student is overwhelmingly weak and needs a custom plan to build up his basic stamina. Pointing out their dangerous room leader, the trainer says the boy must easily do 70 push-ups to even stand a chance. Hearing that he must reach 70 reps in just 1 single minute, the young boy gets completely shocked by the target. The trainer crosses his arms and warns that strength is the only thing that actually matters in this brutal cell block. He warns the student never to underestimate the room leader because that vicious monster always keeps his cruel promises. Sweating profusely, the main character realizes that failing to gain real power means he has absolutely no future here. A massive shadow looms behind the boy as the mentor warns that his daily life will quickly turn into a waking hell. Looking at his trembling student with a calm expression, the trainer wonders if the boy still wants to quit and rest. Gritting his teeth with newfound rage, the determined teenager refuses to give up and prepares to push past his limits. Looking at the barred window, the determined boy screams that he will absolutely do whatever it takes. Staring straight at his classmate, the desperate teenager states that he wants to live more than anything else. Bowing deeply to his new mentor, the young kid begs the strong fighter to teach him how to survive. Glancing sideways, the trainer notes the boy has spirit, but warns him not to make this decision a regret. Sweat drips down the student's face as he hears that he must now prove his resolve through actions. A sudden memory of a beaten man flashes in his mind, reminding him of the precious things he has to protect. Staring down with a dark expression, the mentor asks if the weak teenager truly understands his warning. Shouting at the top of his lungs, the eager boy agrees and learns that his brutal training begins immediately. Sitting at her desk, the doctor watches the lesson and barks out corrections to fix the boy's terrible posture. Smiling softly, she thinks to herself that the silent trainer is actually just a big softy who acts tough. Gasps for air fill the silent room as the main character reaches his physical limit once again. His weak body finally gives out completely, and the exhausted boy collapses face first onto the floor. Sitting up later, the teenager notices his new clothes are way too large and wonders why he must wear them. The tall mentor explains that the loose clothes are necessary to hide any fast changes in his weak body. He warns that the other inmates will surely crush him if they discover he is secretly training to get stronger. Nodding in agreement, the young boy listens as his mentor offers to teach him about the prison power structure. The tall trainer explains this is vital information, and the student asks if all the block leaders are like Kanemoto. Shaking his head, the mentor explains that the room leader is actually the only boss obsessed with raw physical force. Adjusting his glasses, the curious student wonders how the other inmates managed to rise to the very top. A slight smile appears on the fighter face as he asks if the boy really thought strength alone was enough to rule. The mentor explains that these clever bosses used wisdom to rise to power and even hold secret monthly meetings. To keep things hidden from the guards, the powerful leaders always gather inside the visitation room for discussions. Because of constant tension, each block leader brings a trusted bodyguard to ensure they do not get ambushed. It turns out that today is the exact day of their monthly conference, and 3 of the bosses are already seated. A light tapping sound echoes through the tense room as a finger impatiently knocks against the round wooden table. A pink-haired boss named Kureha Tetsu smiles and suggests they should start talking like they usually do. The tattooed leader looks over and mocks his rival for staying completely silent after a recent incident. Slamming his hands down, the angry room leader snaps that the current situation has absolutely nothing to do with him. Smiling mockingly, the long-haired rival suggests that the aggressive boss should be locked away before he causes trouble. The pink-haired boss continues to tease and wonders what will happen if their angry colleague can no longer fight. The pink-haired boss laughs mockingly while calling his angry colleague completely pathetic and lonely. Slamming his hand on the table, the muscular leader yells in rage while his scarred companion tries to calm him down. This scarred boss is the West Ward leader who explains that a serious investigation is making everyone highly nervous. Smiling playfully, the pink-haired boss points out that their angry colleague actually wants the weak teenager dead. The talk continues as they wonder if the lackey acted alone since that aggressive guy never shows any restraint. With a creepy grin, the long-haired leader claims that the lackey is extremely dumb just like his master. Losing his temper completely, the muscular boss reaches out and grabs his rival firmly by the collar. Glaring with pure rage, the aggressive leader asks if his mocking opponent really wants to start a fight. Instead of backing down, the crazy boss quickly raises a heavy glass container with a massive smile on his face. Suddenly, he smashes the glass right over the giant head and claims his opponent is absolutely no match for him. Seeing the victim fall, the worried leader warns them that getting caught by the prison director will end badly. Suddenly, a cold voice orders them to stop, making the worried leader turn around in complete shock. A cool man casually lights his cigarette and calls their little playground fight absolutely ridiculous. Standing at the doorway, the East Ward leader enters while calling all of them nothing but loud brats. Moving with incredible speed, the strong newcomer grabs the fallen giant to put an end to the chaos. The powerful newcomer easily stops the fight by grabbing the pink-haired boss before things get even worse. The scarred boss sighs in relief and thanks him because he was the only one who could actually stop the chaos. Still bleeding from his head, the angry room leader demands they finally start the meeting as planned. Sitting back down with a bloody face, the pink-haired rival looks highly annoyed but tries to stay calm. The strong East Ward leader commands them to keep a close eye on everyone and warns them not to kill the boy. The scarred boss agrees with the warning because they really need to avoid any more trouble inside the prison. Meanwhile, the quiet cell block leader sits in absolute silence while trying to control his immense rage. Leaving the table, the dominant leader warns them that they will pay a heavy price if they drag his ward into this. The pink-haired boss smiles mockingly and says he has no problem as long as the monster controls his pet. Receiving absolutely no reply, the crazy leader happily takes this silent response as a sign of agreement. Clapping his hands cheerfully, he declares the meeting finished, and the bosses finally leave the room together. Left completely alone in the room, the furious giant takes out his rage by shattering a glass with his bare hand. Gritting his teeth with immense rage, the muscular leader looks like he is about to explode from anger. Suddenly, his subordinate enters the room and notes that the other block leaders did not seem very convinced. The angry boss smiles mockingly at the warning, because he truly believes that absolutely nobody can stop him. He orders his follower to let everyone know they can do whatever they want to the boy, as long as they do not kill him. Bleeding heavily from his hand, the vicious giant mutters the boy name while anticipating some extremely violent fun. Back in the cell block, the young student realizes that there are many different types of dangerous leaders here. The trainer explains that the East Ward leader named Narus hates conflict and prefers to keep his area peaceful. While this boss will protect his people, he will also personally hand down a terrible punishment if anyone steps out of line. Hearing this description, the surprised student wonders if one single person can truly hold that much absolute power. The mentor explains that Narus is the strongest fighter in the entire facility, and his past remains a complete mystery. After sharing this crucial information, the trainer decides that it is finally time to get back to their intense practice. He orders his student to start with 20 push-ups, and the determined boy immediately agrees to the challenge. Sitting at her desk, the doctor smiles while listening to the mentor loudly correct the young teenager form. While writing her official report, she silently hopes that the struggling kid will find a way to do his absolute best. Meanwhile, a tense guard blocks a quiet hallway and declares that the entire area is completely off-limits to everyone. Inside a private room, an angry boss screams at his bald subordinate for making him look like a complete fool. Unleashing his massive rage, the furious leader lands a heavy punch that sends his follower flying across the room. Spitting blood, the beaten lackey desperately promises to track down their rival and beat him to a pulp to make things right. Looming over the fallen man like a giant shadow, the boss calls him worthless trash and asks how much more he must suffer. Suddenly, the scarred leader steps forward to calm his ally down and reminds him that anger will not solve their problems. He suggests letting the matter cool off because the poor subordinate has already received more than enough punishment. The scarred man advises him to show restraint since they currently have much bigger issues to worry about in the prison. Trembling on the floor, the defeated bald follower humbly begs for forgiveness while his master simply grunts in response. Glaring down with pure malice, the tattooed giant warns his lackey never to fail again before loudly ordering him to leave. The beaten subordinate slowly walks away from the room while the other leaders watch him leave. The angry boss mutters that this is all the young kid's fault and promises to make him pay dearly. His smiling ally agrees and says they will make sure the poor kid suffers through every single moment. Meanwhile, the sweating teenager works hard on his training without knowing about the incoming danger. The scene shifts to the massive prison building during a peaceful and quiet afternoon. Inside the empty bathroom, we see a row of shower heads that are slowly dripping water onto the floor. Holding his mop, the exhausted main character complains that his entire body is still incredibly sore. Suddenly, one of the showers turns on by itself and starts spraying water with a loud noise. Confused by this, the young boy reaches for the main valve to shut the water off completely. Instead of stopping, every single shower in the room suddenly bursts to life at the exact same time. While the wet teenager tries to understand the situation, a mysterious hand slowly reaches for his head. Before the boy can even react, a bully grabs his dark hair and slams him down toward the cold floor. The cruel inmates explain that their leader ordered them to give him a very special welcome today. Looking down, the terrified student sees a dirty bucket filled with water and disgusting insects. The laughing thugs immediately shove his face straight into the dirty bucket to torture him. Inmates are working hard in the laundry room to wash and fold piles of prison uniforms. The young student pushes a cart full of dirty clothes and tries to talk to the other guys nearby. He gets confused when everyone in the room suddenly ignores his presence and keeps quiet. Moving toward the massive washing machine, the protagonist begins loading the heavy wet fabrics inside. Two vicious bullies slowly creep up behind the clueless teenager while he works on his task. Suddenly, a strong kick sends the helpless student flying headfirst into the dark metal drum. The mean attackers quickly shove his legs inside so they can close the heavy circular door. Laughing like crazy, the main bully slams the glass shut and immediately hits the start button. Water rushes in as the trapped protagonist spins around desperately inside the turning machine. Banging his fists against the thick glass, the poor kid begs them to let him out of there. One of the thugs gets nervous about the extreme torture, but his partner tells him to relax. Another nearby inmate watches the cruel scene and silently wonders how anyone could survive such pain. Later in the busy cafeteria, the traumatized boy holds his food tray with a completely broken expression. He slowly lines up for lunch while trying his absolute best to ignore the hostile eyes around him. A smug inmate suddenly dumps a bowl of boiling hot soup right over the poor kid head. Screaming in absolute pain, the helpless student collapses to the floor while trying to protect his burning face. The laughing bully acts completely innocent and mockingly asks if the injured kid is doing fine. Another aggressive thug immediately steps in and slams his heavy tray straight into the protagonist's head. Grabbing the fallen boy hair, the cruel attacker tells him that their big boss ordered them to make sure he eats well. Suddenly, a loud guard yells at the group and threatens to send everyone straight to solitary confinement if they do not stop. Walking away, the annoyed officer simply tells the bleeding student to go to the prison clinic by himself. A bloody bandage lands on a metal tray as the doctor finishes treating the young kid's fresh wounds. She gently wraps a clean white plaster on his forehead while noting that his body cannot take much more abuse. Looking extremely concerned, the doctor asks the main character if he has any actual strategy to survive this place. Standing near the door, the mentor calmly explains that this terrible ordeal is something the boy simply must face alone. The young student looks up in total shock and wonders why his own trainer is saying such a cold thing to him. Smiling slightly, the mentor explains that experiencing pain is actually the best way to get much stronger. He tells the kid to observe the enemy's patterns while getting hit, so he can learn to dodge their future attacks. The confused boy wonders how he is supposed to think so clearly while receiving a brutal beating from everyone. Placing a firm hand on his shoulder, the skilled mentor offers to teach him the ultimate way to survive. The trainer asks if the boy wants to spend the rest of his life being mocked and pushed around. He challenges the kid to use that heavy humiliation to become a strong man who makes his enemies tremble. Sweating heavily from the pressure, the young teenager breathes deeply and prepares for the intense challenge. Suddenly, the fierce mentor lunges forward with incredible speed to test his reaction time during the fight. A powerful strike narrowly grazes the student's chin as he struggles to keep up with the fast movements. The teacher warns him that letting his guard down in a real battle will easily get him killed. He explains that every single attacker reveals a specific habit right before they unleash their strike. Focusing his vision, the boy commits the moving fist to memory and carefully analyzes the direct path. Using that split second of supreme focus, the student finally manages to dodge the oncoming punch. Noting that it took a whole hour just to dodge one attack, the teacher says real combat is still too hard. The mentor gently pats his shoulder and explains that this is exactly why getting beaten up is so valuable. He tells the teenager to never waste this great opportunity to study the moves of his actual opponents. Putting on his brown jacket, the trainer says he has to leave and orders his student to head back to his cell later. The mentor smiles and warmly tells his student that he actually did a great job today. He adds that the young boy is definitely not a helpless loser anymore, which leaves the kid totally shocked. After saying those kind words, the mysterious teacher slowly walks out of the room and leaves the boy alone. Inside the private clinic, the doctor tells the mentor to stop being so incredibly harsh on the poor kid. Walking away, the trainer replies that being gentle to the student will not help him survive this brutal place. He explains that they are running out of time, and their current training method is simply too risky for them. The doctor wonders if the young boy will eventually break under all this pressure, if their secret gets exposed. Smiling confidently, the skilled fighter replies that his new student is actually much tougher than he looks. He claims that he fully trusts the kid to push past his limits and become a truly powerful warrior very soon. To prepare his eyes for fast attacks, the determined student studies how his enemies move during their wild fights. The teenager begins spraying heavy water directly at his own face to force himself to keep his eyes wide open. Tears mix with the freezing water as he endures the intense pain to build his ultimate reaction speed. Back in the dangerous hallways, the bullies continue to beat him up without knowing he is actually studying them. Even while receiving heavy hits, the boy starts tracking their fast fist movements and slowly gets the hang of it. The attackers complain that hitting him is getting boring, while even the guards pretend they do not see the fight. In the cafeteria, two inmates talk about placing a bet on how many times the poor boy will get beaten up today. The chatty guy quickly tells his friend that something even worse is about to happen in the facility. He reveals that a dangerous inmate known as the Collector is finally being released from solitary confinement today. This scary legend is famous for taking creepy souvenirs from the victims he defeats in his brutal matches. Sitting in the dark cell, the creepy lunatic smiles wide because he is absolutely itching to go wild again. Later that day, the free time announcement echoes across the massive yard, and everyone heads outside. Other prisoners start whispering to each other when they notice the terrifying monster walking around. A stern guard warns the creepy guy named Kiyoyama to stay out of trouble or he will go right back to solitary. Instead of listening, the crazy villain just grins widely and continues looking for his next target. Walking straight toward the main character, the dark-haired psychopath stares down at him with an eerie look. He casually challenges the young student to a fight while the other prisoners watch the scene in total shock. Nearby inmates explain that this lunatic is not even the strongest fighter, but he is completely out of his mind. They whisper that his hobby is choking his opponents and keeping their personal items as weird prizes in glass jars. The smiling psycho introduces himself to the young boy and acts like they are just having a normal chat. With a terrifying grin, he asks for his left eye and tells him to just pretend it was an accident to the guards. The protagonist feels a sudden wave of shock from the creepy request. Seeing his silent reaction, the smiling psycho takes the quietness as a direct invitation. Lunging forward with extreme speed, the crazy villain instantly starts his first aggressive attack. Nearby inmates quickly start taking bets on which fighter is going to win this intense battle. A rapid strike suddenly flies toward the student chest before he can even put up a defense. Groaning in pain, the young boy grabs his aching chest after taking the heavy impact. Staring creepily at his victim, the crazy fighter comments that the boy looks fresh and fun to break. Preparing his next big move, the scary challenger smiles and readies another massive swing. Dashing forward like a wild animal, the creep forces the protagonist to stay totally focused. Trying to remember his mentor advice, the young boy tries to pinpoint the exact path of the fist. By carefully studying his opponent's posture, the teenager attempts to see through his strange habits. Moving with perfect timing, the young student swiftly ducks to dodge the terrifying attack. Even though it is extremely hard, the boy realizes his intense training is finally starting to work. Clicking his tongue in pure annoyance, the psycho looks back at the target who just escaped him. Charging ahead once more, the furious villain warns the teenager that luck will not save him again. He suddenly realizes the crazy opponent always attacks with his left hand before trying to choke with his right. Deciding to gamble everything on his next move, the brave teenager prepares to make his final stand. His glasses fly off and shatter on the concrete floor as the surrounding crowd watches in complete silence. With one massive strike, the young boy lands a clean hit and sends the crazy psychopath crashing to the ground. Before the villain can even recover, the determined protagonist quickly follows up with another powerful punch. The other prisoners stare in absolute disbelief after seeing their terrifying collector get completely crushed. Breathing heavily, the victorious student stands over his fallen enemy while trying to catch his breath. Watching from behind the tall metal fence, the proud mentor quietly smiles at his student's great achievement. Everyone who bet against the young main character is completely shocked to lose all of their money. Back in the clinic, the boy happily smiles until the doctor gently flicks his head to tell him not to get cocky. Looking at the injured teenager, the concerned doctor warns him that he could have easily died during that crazy fight. Smiling through his pain, the happy boy replies that he simply wanted to survive and cannot believe he actually won. Looking down at his hands, the teenager feels sad because the special glasses his mother bought him are now totally broken. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes through the room as their mysterious mentor walks inside to check on them. Bowing respectfully, the grateful protagonist thanks his coach, but the strict man says he only beat the weakest fighter. Turning his back, the trainer coldly explains that things will get much harder since plenty of tough enemies still remain. Extending his arm, the teacher surprises his student by handing over a small wooden box as a reward for his first victory. Walking away, the mentor warns the kid to prepare for intense training because he must become like a wild dog to survive. Shaking her head, the annoyed doctor complains that the tough instructor could easily try praising his student sometimes. Opening the gift, the teenager gets shocked to find some contact lenses that are meant to help him see during battles. Suddenly remembering another task, the lady points to a mysterious package on the table and asks the boy to open it. She mentions that a sudden message almost made her late for work as she delivers the unexpected package to him. Opening the package, the boy stares in absolute shock at what is inside. It is a container filled with the exact spicy rice cakes his mother used to make for him. The smiling doctor mentions that she met his mother, and she seemed to be doing very well. Hearing this news, tears immediately begin to swell in the young teenager's eyes as he holds the food. He suddenly remembers his childhood, when his loving mother would cook this delicious meal just for him. The warm scent of the fresh food brings back his happiest memories from before he entered this place. Taking his first bite, the boy weeps silently as he tastes the familiar flavor of his childhood home. He wipes his tears and asks the female physician how she could possibly know about his favorite food. She explains that their mysterious trainer actually called her before the big fight and asked her to buy it. The doctor adds that the strict mentor secretly believed in him and has incredibly high expectations. Pulling out a tissue, she tells him to enjoy his celebration meal and make sure to get some good rest. Chewing his food, the determined protagonist knows that his training tomorrow will be even more brutal. Elsewhere in the prison, a terrifying opponent gets completely crushed under the boot of a powerful enemy. The bald giant ruthlessly steps on the defeated psychopath for losing to a complete weakling. Spitting blood on the floor, the creepy collector laughs and says he wants to know more about his new favorite rival. Annoyed by the creepy laughter, the big bully kicks the defeated fighter in the head to shut him up. Sitting on the boxes, a mysterious long-haired boss lights his cigarette and asks to handle the main character himself. The leader orders a two-toned-haired fighter named Ishida to keep a very close eye on the rising star. The sneaky observer wonders if the kid got lucky or if he is truly transforming into a real beast. The next morning, under a dim light, the strict instructor announces 2 brutal new training methods for the young boy. Swallowing his nervousness, the determined student prepares his body for another round of absolute hell. Without giving any warning, the terrifying trainer dashes forward like a bullet to test the kid's reflexes. A brutal strike lands directly on the teenager's chest, making him gasp for air from the immense impact. Another rapid punch flies toward the young boy as the mentor continues his relentless training. The coach orders him to tighten his core to protect his vital organs during the session. The trainer suddenly grabs the student by his throat to teach him the importance of breathing. He is ordered to stay still and count exactly how many seconds he can survive without any oxygen. The instructor explains that time feels slower, and your senses get totally dull when you cannot breathe. He adds that a fighter body temporarily freezes the moment they finally take their first breath. To survive this threat, the teacher tells the teenager that he must learn to control his own heartbeat. The tough coach explains that true strength comes from using pure willpower to master your own flesh. Understanding how the human body works is the only way to deliver a truly devastating strike. The student is told to memorize a full skeletal diagram from the doctor to map out his targets. Without this crucial knowledge, a fighter is just swinging his fists around in a completely blind way. Pinning an opponent and driving a knee straight into a vital spot can instantly end any dangerous match. The teenager tries to practice his moves, but his coach immediately yells at him to focus on his footwork. The young boy continues his training by landing one powerful kick after another to build up his speed. Unleashing a massive strike, he uses both of his feet to deliver a devastating final blow. Staring ahead with complete focus, the teenager catches his breath after the brutal workout. The strict coach smiles and praises his student for finally making some real progress. He tells the kid that it is finally time to start fighting on his own to test his new skills. The instructor advises him to target his own room leader as the perfect first opponent. Wrapping up his hands, the student prepares to become the vicious beast everyone will fear. Suddenly, an announcement echoes through the prison walls, ordering everyone to return to their cells. Before parting ways, the mentor tells the boy to choose his own terms for the upcoming clash. Walking back, the teenager wonders if he should fight his target in private or in front of a crowd. His deep thoughts are suddenly interrupted when someone calls out his name from inside the room. Entering the dark cell, the boy spots some of his annoying roommates hanging around the bunk beds. He gets incredibly angry when he notices another prisoner casually lounging on his clean mattress. Furious to see his bed ruined, the boy violently pulls the dirty sheet off his mattress. Looking closely at the fabric, he notices a bunch of nasty brown stains left by the rude intruder. Shouting in pure disgust, the teenager realizes some of the sticky filth got directly on his skin. Seeing his hilarious reaction, the long-haired roommate bursts out laughing and mocks the newcomer. Rushing over to the sink, the protagonist quickly turns on the faucet to wash away the disgusting grime. Suddenly, another roommate sneaks up behind him and whispers a weird offer to protect him for a cheap price. A dangerous look appears in the young student's eyes as he refuses to take any more disrespect. Without saying a word, the brave boy slams his head backward to strike the creepy bully right in the face. Groaning in intense pain, the shocked roommate stumbles back while clutching his freshly injured nose. Becoming completely enraged, the bleeding bully quickly swings a massive fist to retaliate. Putting his recent training to use, the nimble teenager effortlessly ducks to dodge the incoming attack. Moving like a shadow, the protagonist slips behind his opponent and prepares to finish the fight. Smiling with blood on his face, the bully admits the attack was not bad and decides to finally get serious. Stomping his foot onto the floor, the angry fighter dashes forward and unleashes a massive punch that is barely blocked. Feeling his hands go completely numb, the young student realizes his opponent possesses an incredible amount of strength. Looking down with a smug face, the aggressive roommate boasts about how he fought his way to become the leader of the cell. He mentions his deep hatred for brown-nosing and explains that weaklings usually end up in a very bad state. Shouting a massive threat, the enraged leader throws another heavy punch to finish off the young teenager once and for all. Reacting with incredible speed, the clever protagonist reaches out and firmly grabs his enemy wrist midair. With a sudden twist, the boy breaks the opponent's arm, which makes the bully scream in absolute agony. Grimacing through the immense pain, the furious room leader promises to end the young main character life. Watching the wild fight, the other roommates are stunned to see their powerful boss getting absolutely wrecked. Unleashing his pent-up rage, the brave teenager lands a powerful strike directly on his opponent's face. The arrogant bully gets sent flying across the room and struggles to keep himself balanced on the cold floor. In that tense moment, he suddenly remembers the doctor teaching him about the weak points in the human body. He recalls how easily a joint can break when it gets hit with a lot of force. Aiming for the weak spot, the young fighter delivers a devastating kick directly to his enemy knee. The arrogant leader screams in absolute agony when he feels the bones inside his leg cracking. Without wasting any time, the protagonist slams his heavy opponent flat on the ground. Mounting the defeated bully, the boy prepares to finish this crazy fight once and for all. He remembers his trainer advising him to completely crush the opponent's spirit to win the battle. He starts hammering the bully face with a series of brutal punches to make sure he stays down. Seeing their boss get destroyed, the other roommates realize they will suffer if they do not intervene. The long-haired prisoner quickly charges forward to save his leader from the dangerous kid. Moving like lightning, the clever teenager intercepts the new attacker with a sharp strike to the throat. Gasping for air, the long-haired bully collapses to the ground while clutching his throat in absolute pain. Suddenly, another inmate charges from behind and raises a heavy metal bowl to smash the boy's head. Turning around with a terrifying gaze, the young fighter asks if the coward wants to get beaten up too. Shaking with pure terror, the weak attacker quickly backs away and lies that he was only passing by. Still lying on the cold ground, the defeated leader secretly slides a sharp weapon out of his leg bandage. Gritting his teeth with pure rage, the sneaky bully mocks the protagonist for letting his guard down too soon. Without warning, the boss leaps up and slashes the teenager with his homemade knife. Fresh blood splatters across the floor when the sharp blade cuts directly into the protagonist's chest. Screaming a massive threat, the crazy leader lunges forward again to finish off the injured young boy. Moving with lightning speed, the clever teenager uses his hand to block the dangerous weapon midair. Staring back with glowing red eyes, the angry protagonist whispers that his opponent is the one who will die. With a sudden movement, the brave boy pulls his enemy close to deliver a final crushing blow. A devastating punch lands directly on the bully face and completely shatters his arrogant nose. The sharp weapon slips out of the limp hand and clatters loudly on the concrete floor. Grabbing the bleeding leader by his collar, the furious student prepares to show him true nightmare. Dropping the unconscious body of his target, the teenager stands victorious as the new boss of the cell. He breathes heavily while sweat drips down his face from the intense battle. The roommates watch in absolute shock and realize that everything is about to change. Holding the defeated opponent by his hair, the teenager declares that he is now the official leader. A guard suddenly walks down the dark hallway and announces that the lights will go out in 10 minutes. Everyone inside the cell quickly begins to prepare their beds before the prison goes completely dark. Clenching his fist, the young boy can barely believe that he actually won his very first real fight. Another prisoner casually bumps past him and tells the new boss that he is blocking the way. The long-haired roommate comments on the brutal victory and explains that these are just the prison rules. He warns the protagonist not to get too comfortable since outstanding targets always get crushed eventually. The student wonders about the dark fate of the defeated leader who lost his position. The experienced inmate laughs and explains that losers in this place always suffer a miserable end. He adds that showing off his true strength means everyone will want to challenge him from now on. Standing alone in the shadow, the young boy prepares himself for the endless battles waiting ahead. The guard yells for everyone to go to sleep as the lights finally turn off. The teenager lies down while thinking about how the defeated leaders go through complete hell. He knows that the only way to climb this place is by using his fists to defeat the big boss. To protect his friend, he must continue pushing himself to become much stronger than before. Realizing his current limits, the boy decides he still needs to learn a lot more from his mentor. Silence fills the dark hallways of the prison as the late-night hours finally arrive. A watchman slowly patrols the corridor with a flashlight to make sure everyone is asleep. Inside another cell, a teenager with two colored hair holds a secret paper note. His follower approaches from behind to report that the leader of the other room was defeated. Looking at the small message, the strong leader realizes that the previous boss actually lost. He crumples the paper while referring to the main character as a dangerous stray dog. Clenching his fist, he says the newcomer has finally started showing his true fangs. Over in the south ward of the facility, someone starts laughing loudly over some open books. Laughing happily on the floor, the strange inmate notes that the protagonist is doing way better than expected. Meanwhile, over in the west ward of the prison, another strong fighter gets some surprising news. Holding a tiny piece of paper, the scarred teenager smiles when he learns about the main character victory. The scene shifts to the east ward as a guard slowly walks down the quiet hallway during his nightly patrol. Stopping outside a dark cell, the officer gently knocks on the metal bars to get the attention of the inmate. He informs a mysterious boy named Naruse that the newcomer has successfully defeated the old room leader. Resting his tattooed hand on a wooden table, the strong student asks if anyone got hurt during the battle. The guard replies that the young hero is completely fine while the previous boss suffered some heavy injuries. Standing by the window under the bright moonlight, the heavily tattooed boss stares quietly into the night. He sighs deeply while realizing that this powerful newcomer is going to cause a massive amount of trouble. The next morning finally arrives as the bright sun shines down on the massive walls of the youth prison. Inside the busy cafeteria, all the other inmates whisper and gossip about the crazy fight from the night before. Looking around the crowded cafeteria, the young student notices that everyone is treating him with a lot of respect. Suddenly, a tall boy with a massive scar on his face approaches his table and introduces himself as the West Ward leader. The protagonist wonders why this dangerous rival leader can walk around the North Ward without any trouble. Smiling calmly, the visitor explains that he is actually good friends with the main boss of this section. He explains that the big boss is planning to attack soon but offers to help the protagonist instead. The young teenager listens quietly and asks his visitor what he expects to get in return for this help. Smiling with a sly look, the scarred rival demands that the protagonist must act as a secret spy for him. The arrogant leader brags about his massive power and promises that keeping the boy safe will be very easy. Without even looking back, the clever teenager instantly rejects the offer and continues eating his lunch. Getting extremely annoyed by this rejection, the rival leader asks if the boy thinks he can survive alone. The student calmly replies that the boss is probably only looking for allies because he is actually weak. Becoming completely furious, the dangerous rival slams his hand hard onto the table to show his anger. He yells at the main character to suit himself before turning around to walk away from the table. In the crowded cafeteria, everyone starts whispering about how the main character just rejected a powerful ward leader. A sneaky spy quickly tells his friend to send a message to their boss about the protagonist's rejection. Nearby, some inmates complain about all the sudden attention the young kid is getting. One scarred student admits he never expected the weak crybaby to actually win a fight. He adds that even though the beaten leader was weak, it is still a massive deal for someone like him. Walking down the quiet hallway, the young hero suddenly hears a deep voice calling his name from behind. Turning around, the teenager sees a strong inmate approaching him with a guard standing right next to him. The tall newcomer calmly comments that this is the very first time they are meeting face to face. Lighting a cigarette with the guard helps the powerful boy introduces himself as the East Ward leader. Later that day, the protagonist walks through the prison corridor while thinking about all his recent encounters. The young boy wonders if he can truly survive in this crazy place with so many enemies watching him. Suddenly, the distracted teenager accidentally bumps hard into a solid chest of a massive person. He immediately backs away to apologize, but gets completely frozen when he realizes who is standing there. Wearing a terrifying smile, the dangerous rival leader Kariha says he is finally glad to meet the famous rookie. Standing right in front of the giant group, the teenager calmly asks if there is some kind of problem. A loud voice suddenly screams about his bad attitude and introduces the terrifying boss of the North Ward. Hearing this name, the main character immediately wonders if another master is pulling the strings. Smiling calmly, the North Ward leader explains that the beaten roommate was actually one of his subordinates. He quickly adds that the young rookie does not even deserve to fight him in a direct match right now. Turning his back on the boy, the powerful leader commands his strong lackeys to teach the newcomer a lesson. Without wasting a second, one of the aggressive attackers lunges forward, but the boy manages to block the fist. Suddenly, a massive kick comes out of nowhere and strikes the teenager, who struggles to keep his balance. Before he can recover, another brutal punch lands as the two bullies coordinate their moves perfectly. A devastating strike hits his face, but the brave boy wipes the blood and tries to prepare for more. Another powerful kick connects hard with his body and sends a massive wave of pain through him. Suddenly, another massive fist comes flying, and the protagonist realizes he is in deep trouble. The heavy punch lands directly on his back and completely forces the young student down to the cold floor. Blood drips from his nose as he struggles to stand while the terrifying enemies look down on him. Standing nearby with a smug smile, the rival leader mocks the boy for failing to beat his two minions. He explains that the previous opponent was just a useless weakling, and beating him does not make the rookie strong. Crouching down next to the defeated boy, the cruel boss says he never forgives anyone who makes him lose face. The smiling leader adds that the teenager made him look bad, so it is only natural to pay him back. Walking away slowly, the cruel boss tells his massive minions to enjoy themselves while beating the rookie. Standing back up, the heavily bruised student realizes his training only prepared him for one-on-one fights. Wiping the blood from his lips, he wonders if his ultimate dream of becoming the strongest is too far out of reach. Walking slowly back to his quarters, the injured boy tries to hide his pain from the other inmates. Looking up from the side, his quiet roommate notices the fresh wounds and instantly understands what happened. Inside the room, the beaten former leader sits with a cast on his arm while a heavy silence fills the space. The young student quietly observes his roommate, who is sitting silently on the floor, wrapped in a blanket. Deciding to respect his classmate pride, the boy quickly looks away so he does not make things even more awkward. Suddenly, some mean-looking bullies watch from the side and plan to take advantage of the fallen boss. Walking over to the corner, an aggressive inmate loudly demands number 5351 to get up. The bad guy smiles while ordering the beaten leader to act as a human step stool so he can use the bathroom. Hearing this massive insult, the former boss stares up with pure anger burning in his eyes. Without any warning, the cruel bully delivers a heavy punch that forces the weak teen to the ground. The attacker laughs and reminds the boy that he is just an ordinary loser who must serve everyone now. Another bystander smiles while mocking the fallen champion and calling him complete trash in front of everyone. Grinding his teeth in absolute humiliation, the defeated room leader struggles to hold back his intense rage. Placing his bandaged hand firmly on the cold floor, the young boy tries to support the heavy weight of his enemy. The bully stands on his back and threatens to hurt him badly if he dares to lose his balance for even a second. Watching this terrible scene unfold, the protagonist cannot hold back his anger any longer and tells them to stop. Stepping forward with incredible speed, the brave student grabs the bully by his shoulder to stop the abuse. Looking the bully straight in the eyes, the protagonist calmly declares that this torture ends right now. One classmate argues that the old leader always did whatever he wanted, and it was simply the rule. Staring calmly at the group, the protagonist declares that he is the new boss who will decide the new regulations. He warns the bullies to challenge him directly with force if they have any complaints about his decision. Hearing this bold declaration, the bad guys stand frozen and look completely terrified by his confidence. Looking away with a sigh of disbelief, the long-haired inmate quietly mutters that this is a total joke. Suddenly, the fallen leader is called out by his name while the main character stands nearby watching him. Screaming with absolute frustration, the beaten teenager yells that he never asked for anyone to pity him. Glaring directly at the hero, he admits his defeat, but promises that he will get his sweet revenge in the end. Smiling cruelly, the bully steps hard onto the weak boy back while claiming everything is perfectly fine. Clenching his fists in anger, the furious student mutters some words as he prepares to stop the cruel behavior. The scene transitions to the quiet infirmary, where the young rookie goes to deal with all his stress. Wrapping his hand with white bandages, he starts delivering incredibly fast and heavy strikes to a punching bag. The frustrated protagonist wonders why his roommates are rejecting his help and refusing to accept his peace. He remembers the words of his classmate, who only wanted to destroy the rotten regulations of the prison. Striking the target with a final powerful punch, the teenager wonders why nobody can understand his true goals. Suddenly, the door opens and the female doctor steps inside the training room. She hands him a clean towel and asks what made him feel so frustrated today. Looking at the moving bag, she finally understands the reason behind his anger. The frustrated teenager admits that he only wanted to make things better for everyone there. The doctor explains that the other inmates cannot accept a new normal because they are used to the old rules. Placing a hand on his shoulder, she tells him that he must continue to fight to change things. The clever woman adds that he can only achieve his dream by officially becoming a block leader. The teenager quickly replies that he needs to learn how to deal with multiple opponents at once. Smiling calmly, she advises him that the easiest trick is to simply run away. Without warning, she lunges forward with incredible speed to demonstrate her point. The young fighter gets completely shocked by how fast she can move. She gently touches his face while explaining how to deliver a perfect finishing blow. Light shines through the barred window as they continue their intense lesson. Suddenly, she grabs his collar to make sure he is paying full attention to her words. The mysterious woman smiles while revealing that she is actually not just some ordinary doctor. She tells him to get ready for work and wishes the new room leader good luck with his upcoming chores. In this facility, all inmates must work together to earn points based on their performance and daily behavior. Accumulating enough points allows the prisoners to see their family, which is why everyone takes the work seriously. The jobs are assigned by the block boss, and the absolute leader of the North Ward is a guy named Ishida. A guard warns the newcomer that if even one person slacks off, the entire group will lose their points. Shouting at the prisoners to work hard, the guard leads the entire group straight into the massive work area. Walking inside, the teenager hopes that earning enough points will finally allow him to see his mother again. Nearby, some inmates secretly whisper about a plan and warn each other not to interfere with the boss orders. Suddenly, a heavy machine door slides shut, indicating that the tough work session is officially starting. Two sneaky inmates look at the rookie and whisper to each other that they are fully prepared to start their plan. Walking over to the distribution line, the teenager politely asks the kitchen staff for a sterilized tray. One of the workers, with a devious look on his face, quickly grabs a metallic tray from the hot machine. The guy hands over the tray and proudly mentions that it is currently heated to about 200 degrees. The main character places the boiling item on his metal cart, but suddenly hears a strange cracking sound. Looking closely at the bottom, we see that one of the wheels is completely broken and cannot roll. The rookie tries to push his heavy load but gets extremely confused when the platform refuses to move. He asks for a replacement cart, but the worker rudely replies that they do not have any spares left. Trying to find another solution, the young student asks a nearby inmate to help him carry the load. The guy immediately rejects his request because his own cart is already packed to the absolute limit. The devious worker mocks the protagonist and asks if a tough block leader is actually afraid of some heat. Hearing these mocking words, the angry teenager immediately realizes that these bullies are doing this on purpose. Giving in to his mounting frustration, the rookie quickly reaches out and grabs the bully by his collar. Suddenly, another prisoner tries to stop him because fighting inside the work area will dock their points. Watching this intense scene, a nearby bystander screams for help and claims that the rookie is turning violent. A massive thug steps forward and asks the rookie if he is looking for a brutal beating. Looking around the factory room, the confused teenager notices that all the guards are completely gone. The smiling bully explains that they are currently alone because the guards went on a scheduled break. Realizing that this is Ishida's setup, the protagonist knows he cannot defeat so many enemies at once. To avoid a massive brawl, the clever student decides to let go of the worker collar and back down. Suddenly, a massive hand grabs the protagonist's head and slams it down onto the metallic surface. Holding the boy down, the angry bully threatens to push his face directly into the hot steam machine. The cruel thug loudly commands him to pick up the burning food trays and carry them manually. Without any protective gloves, the young fighter is forced to grab the boiling hot metal with his bare hands. Gritting his teeth in absolute agony, the student struggles to lift the painful weight of the trays. Laughing at his struggle, the bad guys warn him not to drop the load unless he wants to start over. Walking all the way to the cafeteria, the exhausted boy finally drops the heavy metal containers. The boy finally delivers the heavy trays and asks the kitchen staff to check the final count. Seeing the severe burns on his palms, the shocked worker asks what happened to his hands. The staff member shouts that he is taking the injured rookie to the medical room, while the guard lazily waves them off. Smiling secretly, the guide leads the young protagonist down a quiet corridor of the facility. Walking past a sign pointing to the freezer room, the teenager suddenly notices that his guide has stopped moving. Looking around the empty hallway, the protagonist realizes they are going the wrong way and asks what is happening. Turning around with a creepy smile, the guide says he is just planning to treat him with the help of his friends. Another big bully blocks the exit and tells the young fighter to give up since these are Ishida orders. A long-haired inmate tries to speak up, but the thugs immediately threaten to throw him in there too if he complains. The group stands right next to a massive door where the temperature is set to -60 degrees. Without showing any mercy, the massive thugs grab the student and violently throw him inside the cold freezer. The mocking guide tells him to stop complaining, because no guards will ever come to check on this freezing area. One bully points to a hot pipe and says this is a special present from their boss Ishida. Without warning, the massive thugs grab the young hero and pin him down. They force his injured hand directly onto the hot metal valve to burn him even more. Gritting his teeth, the rookie realizes he was foolish to think he could solve things peacefully. As the heat burns his skin, he decides that he cannot survive in this place by being weak. Letting out a scream of pure pain, the teenager looks up with absolute rage in his eyes. Tightening his bleeding fist, the protagonist decides to finally stop holding back. Unleashing his hidden strength, the brave rookie throws a massive punch right at the bully. Crimson drops hit the cold floor as the giant bully gets sent flying back from the impact. Seeing his friend go down, the remaining leader gets furious and promises to crush him. Raising his fists, the young fighter remembers the doctor training as he prepares to face the crowd. The doctor explained that running away is actually a smart tactic because it makes the opponent drop their guard. Following her advice, the young hero baits the angry thug and suddenly delivers a massive kick directly to his face. Before the fight can continue, a loud noise echoes through the hallway as a guard suddenly opens the heavy door. The angry officer shouts at the inmates to stop fighting and warns that they will lose all their daily work points. The frustrated thugs are forced to back down, but they glare at the rookie and promise to settle the score later. Both groups quietly disperse and walk back to their designated workstations to avoid any further trouble. Looking at the floor, the bruised protagonist realizes that the guard actually saved those bullies from a bad beating. The student understands that Ishida is far more cunning than his previous enemies and cannot be beaten by raw power alone. Staring at his bloody hand, the young fighter wonders what kind of traps the evil boss will set for him next. Suddenly, the young boy remembers a helpful advice about avoiding trouble without needing to rely on physical strength. Remembering the past, he recalls a powerful guy offering protection if he joined the eastern sector of the prison. During a tough training session, a skilled mentor yells at him to focus before easily knocking him to the floor. Crouching on the floor, the exhausted rookie apologizes when his teacher notices that his mind is completely elsewhere. His distraction stems from a crossed-out list after a guard brutally denied his application to see his beloved mother. The officer lazily explains that prisoners who lack enough points are simply not allowed to have any visitors. Wondering if his weakness caused this failure, the teenager gets a harsh reality check from his straight-talking partner. The experienced fighter reminds him that even without physical advantages, he possesses an unbreakable spirit. Placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, the wise mentor states that this determination will soon turn him into a deadly wolf. The mentor assures the teenager that his hard work will eventually help him reunite with his beloved mother. Tightening his bandaged fist against the ground, the young rookie feels a massive surge of renewed determination. Recognizing that power is his only hope, he stands up and asks his experienced teacher to continue their training. Striking a confident fighting stance, the motivated fighter declares his ultimate goal of reaching the very top. Back in the prison corridor, a loud banging noise echoes near the heavy doors of the restricted hallway. An angry bald giant stomps away while complaining about Ishida's cunning schemes and how annoying the situation is. Leaving the cold freezer room behind, the clever protagonist walks slowly while calculating his next strategic move. The massive bully mutters that he wants to find some random target to beat up so he can relieve his heavy stress. Watching the angry giant walk past him, the teenager realizes that raw physical power is still highly respected here. Turning around, the huge thug spots the rookie and mocks him by asking if the new room leader is enjoying his day. The young rookie responds by giving the massive thug a cold and extremely sharp glare. The angry giant deliberately bumps his shoulder against the teenager to start a fight. Feeling ignored, the bald man screams in fury while another inmate begs him not to cause trouble. The giant suddenly strikes the other inmate with a brutal punch just for mentioning Ishida. Flexing his massive muscles, the bald monster declares that he will prove his absolute worth. Seeing his opponent become completely reckless, the clever teenager lets out a tiny smirk. The bald giant attacks with a heavy punch, but the young hero quickly raises his arms to block. Shaking from the heavy impact, the rookie feels a sharp pain and realizes the guy has monstrous power. Seeing another fast fist coming his way, the young student knows he cannot win by just defending. Remembering a helpful tip about human anatomy, he decides to target the weak lower jaw of his enemy. Pivoting on his heel, the agile fighter quickly adjusts his stance to deliver a decisive counter. The teenager launches a powerful punch aiming directly at the giant chin to knock him out. To finish the fight quickly, the rookie prepares to launch another strike without giving him a break. The fast teen strikes again, but the giant incredibly manages to dodge the deadly follow-up blow. Feeling extremely frustrated, the young hero realizes his attack missed the target by a tiny margin. Smiling mockingly, the bald giant easily catches the protagonist's hand mid-air to stop his attack. Suddenly, the massive monster leans forward and delivers a brutal headbutt directly to the boy's face. Stumbling back in pain, the injured student struggles to keep his balance while blood drops onto the floor. Wiping the crimson from his lips, the determined fighter taunts his enemy by asking if that is all he has. Pivoting on his heel, the agile fighter drops low to execute a swift sweep targeting the opponent's ankles. Placing his bandaged hand on the floor, he launches a powerful kick that connects perfectly with the giant leg. Losing his balance completely, the massive thug crashes hard onto the ground from the heavy impact. Looking closely at the fallen giant, the clever teenager wonders if the lower limbs are his ultimate weakness. Struggling to stand up, the furious bald man wonders if he made a huge mistake by taking this kid lightly. Gritting his teeth in pure rage, the giant screams to his nearby allies to kill the young student immediately. Hearing the command, multiple inmates instantly rush forward to surround the protagonist and overwhelm him. One aggressive attacker launches a flying kick while the exhausted teenager raises his arms to block the impact. The heavy blow lands hard as the young boy struggles to defend himself against the massive crowd of fighters. Wiping the blood from his mouth, the bruised rookie realizes that there are simply too many enemies to fight at once. Glancing to the side, the clever teenager quickly looks around the dark hallway for any kind of escape route. His eyes widen when he notices that the heavy door to the freezing cold room is left slightly open. Turning on his heel, the agile student instantly sprints away from the group to lead them into a trap. The angry giant screams at him and wonders if the rookie truly believes he can run away from this fight. Moving like lightning, the young hero slips inside the freezing cold room before anyone can grab his jacket. Laughing out loud, the massive bald bully mocks the boy and says he is happy to play a game of hide-and-seek. With a creepy smile, the monster warns that this game will actually end with the young fighter losing his life. Taking a heavy step forward, the massive thug slowly enters the dark room to search for his hidden target. Walking deeper into the cold area, the confident bully tells the rookie to just give up and come out of the dark. Suddenly, a strange feeling washes over the giant as he tries to find the teenager in the thick, freezing fog. Out of nowhere, a powerful strike connects directly with the villain face before he can even react to the threat. Using the thick fog to his advantage, the agile teenager moves like a ghost to completely confuse his slow opponent. Jumping high into the air, the brave rookie launches a massive kick to teach this arrogant bully a painful lesson. Feeling the heavy impact, the giant realizes things are bad and stumbles backward toward the open doorway. Moving with lightning speed, the clever rookie slams the thick freezer door shut to lock the monster inside. Setting the temperature to -150 degrees, the boy listens to the furious screams of his enemy. Later in the yard, some inmates laugh while sharing the hilarious story of how the rookie locked up the angry giant. Suddenly, another group of tough prisoners walks over to claim their territory and tells the gossiping guys to leave. A smug prisoner mocks the newcomers by asking if they have thawed out yet, which instantly triggers their heavy anger. The rival group is furious because their boss lost to a weakling, and they promise to make everyone regret this insult. Watching the argument, some smart inmates realize that this massive conflict will soon bring immense trouble for the hero. As night falls over the gloomy prison, a quiet tension hangs heavily in the air before a new problem begins to unfold. Sudden footsteps echo through the dimly lit hallway as several panicked inmates sprint to reach their destination. The protagonist grabs a running boy to ask what is happening, but the stressed guy just tells him to stay out of the way. Seeing the frantic guys run past him, the young hero wonders if they are actually heading towards his own cell. Walking down the corridor, he spots a group of intimidating prisoners gathering around the entrance. A tough cellmate pushes through the crowd, while declaring himself as the official leader of the room. The teenager watches silently while trying to understand why everyone is making such a big scene. Stepping inside, he is shocked to find the former room leader curled up on the floor in absolute agony. A nearby boy explains that the angry giant brutally beat this poor guy because he could not find the rookie. Suddenly, a tattooed fighter approaches the protagonist and asks why he still has not joined their powerful group. The smug bully adds that the rookie only survived because the former leader was too lazy to do his job properly. Looking completely broken, the injured guy realizes that even the evil boss has completely abandoned him. The tattooed fighter remarks that pure terror can easily break a man once he loses his high position. Suddenly, several armed guards march into the crowded room and order everyone to disperse immediately. Staring blankly at the floor, the broken student mumbles under his breath while the officers approach him. Losing his mind completely, the desperate guy suddenly lunges forward and strikes one of the guards in panic. The attacked officer gets furious and immediately orders his partners to restrain the crazy prisoner. Trembling with fear, the desperate prisoner screams that he can easily prove his innocence to the angry guards. The guards watch in absolute horror as the desperate prisoner suddenly takes a horrific action. Crimson blood pools and drips down his neck as the room fills with an eerie silence. He holds up a horrifying proof to show his boss that he really lost his sight and cannot spy anymore. Terrified guards immediately call for medical backup, while several nearby prisoners throw up from the gruesome sight. Watching the chaotic scene, the tattooed leader asks if having raw power truly justifies this kind of madness. The experienced boss warns the protagonist that falling from a high position always leads to a miserable end. He offers the young rookie a safe path to see his family again by simply joining his team in the East Ward. The quiet teenager contemplates his options and wonders what will happen when this temporary protection finally ends. Remembering his beloved mother and the dangerous enemies waiting for him, he realizes that being weak is not an option. Looking at his bandaged fist, the determined fighter declares that he only wants absolute power to survive. Hearing this bold declaration, the clever boss lets out an amused smile and respects his decision. The leader warns him to stay extremely alert because a dangerous opponent named Nagao will definitely seek revenge. Waving his hand, the strong fighter walks away while reminding the kid that his offer is always open. The next afternoon arrives with clear skies as the prisoners gather in the dusty yard for their daily free time. Suddenly, an authoritative guard shouts through the yard to order everyone back to their respective cells. Standing by the fence, the bald giant narrows his eyes when he notices a familiar face in the crowd. That person is actually the powerful boss of the South Ward, who has been making a massive fool of him lately. A nearby ally warns the giant that starting another big fight right after being warned is a terrible idea. Gritting his teeth, the angry monster replies that he does not care about anyone except for the top fighter. Taking heavy steps across the yard, he begins to march directly toward his next target. The furious giant is determined to crush this annoying rival and prove his absolute superiority today. He slowly approaches from behind, while the other group walks without noticing the sudden threat. With a malicious grin, the bald bully intentionally stomps hard on the rival clean white shoe. Feeling the heavy pressure, the South Ward leader stops walking and slowly turns his head around. Instead of apologizing, the giant loudly complains that the boss got dirt on his own shoes. Recognizing the cheap trap, the clever boss calmly states that he has zero interest in fighting him. Smiling wickedly, the bald monster steps closer and warns that running away is simply not an option. Out of nowhere, the giant unleashes a massive punch that hits the rival face with incredible force. A panicked guard immediately runs over and screams for the bald man to stop his violent actions. The crazy monster just laughs and claims they are merely doing some friendly training until someone dies. The South Ward leader quickly counters with a massive punch that hits the bald giant right in the jaw. Blood flies as the monster looks completely shocked that someone actually managed to land a solid hit on him. Following up with a crazy move, the agile fighter slams the heavy bully onto the ground with pure force. Gritting his teeth, the furious giant looks up and yells some nasty insults at his opponent for using tricks. Before anyone can celebrate, the bald brute grabs a nearby inmate who tried to get in his way. With terrifying strength, the monster easily tosses the poor guy across the yard like a rag doll. The bully then stomps his heavy foot right onto the fallen victim's face to show off his insane cruelty. He looks around with a creepy smile and wonders out loud if the entire South Ward is just filled with losers. Hearing this terrible insult, the ponytail leader and his crew get incredibly mad and prepare to attack. The loyal allies scream that they will never forgive this bald jerk and promise to show him real pain. Panicked guards rush into the area while yelling at the angry crowd to stop before things get out of hand. A massive prison brawl instantly breaks out as dozens of furious inmates charge forward to start a riot. Watching the absolute chaos unfold, the crazy beast just grins because he loves this kind of bloody violence. Suddenly, a loud alarm begins to buzz through the speakers to warn everyone that the situation is dangerous. Meanwhile, the strange vibration comes directly from the heavy door of the waste disposal room nearby. Inside a secret laboratory, a worker silently examines various test tubes while a strange vibrating noise echoes. Hearing the annoying sound, a massive tattooed boss steps inside and orders the scientist to stop his current work. The powerful leader then commands his loyal subordinate with split hair to go outside and check on the disturbance. Meanwhile, another young inmate wraps his hands with white bandages while listening to the loud alarm in the background. Adjusting his jacket, the split-haired fighter tells his friend that he will head out alone to inspect the situation. Outside, the heavy alarm keeps blaring through the metal speakers to notify everyone about the massive emergency. In the dusty yard, several beaten prisoners lie on the hard ground covered in bruises after a brutal physical battle. Grinning like a lunatic, the bald giant leaps forward to crush his ponytail rival with a devastating aerial strike. A heavy fist connects directly with the target face, sending a spray of red liquid across the sunny prison yard. Looking down at his staggering opponent, the massive bully laughs and mocks him for being a total disappointment. Wiping the fresh blood from his mouth, the injured leader looks up with pure rage and curses at his arrogant enemy. Suddenly, several armed guards run into the chaotic yard while screaming at the fighters to stop this illegal riot. The officers quickly tackle the rioting inmates to the ground and force them to stay down under heavy threats. Despite the incoming guards, the crazy monster laughs hysterically while bragging about his absolute physical power. Meanwhile, some mysterious people wearing clean white sneakers walk quietly down the empty hallway of the building. Down the quiet corridor, two powerful fighters meet up to discuss their highly dangerous plans. The tattooed leader warns that their current mission is way too risky to involve a normal kid. Looking down with a serious expression, the shaggy-haired youth replies that the boy made his own choice. The tattooed boss looks at his friend and points out that he secretly wanted this outcome all along. He begs him to stop dragging unrelated people into this dark world before things get completely out of hand. The worried leader warns that the young boy should never be allowed to walk down the same tragic path. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a quiet training room where a heavy punching bag hangs near the window. Out of nowhere, a determined rookie unleashes a powerful strike that rattles the heavy equipment. Entering the room, the long-haired fighter notices his friend is incredibly fired up after his recent victory. Looking at his bandaged hands, the teenager admits that he still has a very long way to go in his training. The experienced ally warns that the dangerous opponent is now seeking ultimate revenge for that embarrassing loss. Clenching his fist, the brave student replies that running away will never solve his massive problems. Staring at the passionate teenager, the friend wonders if the rookie is just incredibly brave or a complete fool. Smiling at the kid's determination, the older fighter promises to help him prepare for the upcoming battle. They both agree to start their intense training tomorrow with a shared nod of absolute confidence. The heavy metal door of the solitary confinement room suddenly opens with a loud metallic creak. Inside the dark space, the bald giant sits on the ground while feeling extremely defeated and angry. An authoritative officer enters the cell and warns the boss that his leadership skills have been terrible. Standing over the kneeling troublemaker, the strict guard reminds them that any future mistakes will have consequences. Getting completely emotional, the giant inmate yells that he should not be the only one getting punished. His angry leader immediately shouts at him to stay quiet and accept his terrible fate without complaining. Feeling the heavy pressure of his boss, the noisy bully shuts his mouth and looks down at the cold floor. The guard continues to whisper that they should get rid of the annoying monster forever to prevent more chaos. He claims that taking care of this problem permanently would actually benefit everyone in the entire block. Walking out of the room, the officer orders the boss to apologize to the top director to keep the peace. The heavy iron door slams shut, leaving the two gang members alone in the dark solitary cell. Looking up with a trembling face, the bald giant hears his superior call his name in a chilling voice. Cracking his knuckles with a terrifying smile, the furious boss promises to teach him a brutal lesson. Later that night in the South Ward, the inmates discuss how the bald monster is finished after his latest failure. Smiling through his bandages, the ponytail leader calls his opponent a total fool who fell right into his trap. Meanwhile, a mysterious long-haired fighter smiles wickedly while planning to crush his main rival's strongest bodyguard. Back in the dark solitary cell, heavy sweat drips onto the cold stone floor during a very tense silence. The beaten bald giant screams that he only wanted to protect their reputation and pride in the prison block. Suddenly, a devastating fist strikes the giant face with immense force to silence his loud complaining. The angry tattooed boss kicks his fallen subordinate for causing a massive headache with his stupid failure. Standing over the bloody mess, the furious leader coldly declares that he is completely sick of this useless junk. Before he can deliver another hit, a calm hand gently taps the boss' shoulder to stop his continuous violence. The split-haired fighter warns his leader that taking this guy life right now will only bring massive trouble. He smiles and offers to handle the apology himself so the powerful boss does not have to bow to their rivals. With a creepy grin, the clever partner reassures the leader that he already has an amazing plan in mind. The tattooed boss listens closely and agrees that making things worse right now is definitely a bad idea. The smart ally points out that controlling their crazy monster is becoming far too difficult for anyone. Staring in silence, the leader wonders if the talented rookie is truly getting much stronger with each passing day. He decides to let the young kid grow even more before setting him up to fight their most dangerous weapon. Smiling wickedly, the partner hopes both of the rivals end up destroying each other during the fight. The tattooed leader adds that he can easily pretend to know nothing about the trouble when it finally happens. Back at the training hall, the long-haired fighter explains that the massive enemy relies entirely on pure power. The rookie listens carefully as his companion says that finding a weakness is the only way to win this match. They must observe everything the giant does, including his normal routine of eating and walking around the yard. Crossing his arms, the young student realizes that every little detail could become a huge advantage for him. A smart doctor joins the lesson and points out that the bully giant body actually puts a heavy strain on his heart. She suggests running around to quickly tire him out because his insane power will drop once his stamina is gone. The next step is to anger him so he makes stupid mistakes and leaves himself completely open to a counterattack. Pointing at the anatomy model, she explains that the heavy giant balance is unstable and prevents quick movements. The young student suddenly remembers their previous fight and realizes that the giant lower body is indeed weak. With a serious look, the smart lady reassures the boy that this solid strategy is his best chance to win. She warns him to learn how to block properly, because he must withstand at least 3 direct hits to survive. The lady warns the rookie that getting knocked out by the giant makes all his effort meaningless. Sweating heavily on the hard floor, the tired teenager struggles to catch his breath after an intense workout. The exhausted boy looks up when a gentle hand reaches down to help him stand up. Pulling him up, the smart doctor tells him not to feel discouraged because he can definitely defeat his rival. Holding a small card, the long-haired companion says that their giant enemy will remain in solitary for half a month. Glaring with intense determination, the brave teenager knows that hard work is his only path to victory. Outside, the sun shines brightly over the quiet facility, while the training session finally comes to an end. Picking up his things, the young rookie prepares to leave while his companion watches him with a silent gaze. The student stops to ask what is wrong, but his friend simply tells him to go back and get some proper rest. A loud metallic sound echoes through the hallway as the heavy door slams shut behind the departing teenager. The doctor asks if keeping the photo secret is the right choice to avoid distracting the busy rookie. Frowning deeply, the lady points out that this cold attitude is very different from how he treats his own sister. Looking down, the quiet fighter replies that unnecessary emotions will only get the boy hurt in the upcoming match. The smart doctor continues to lecture him about not forcing his own painful path onto the young kid. Outside, the bright moon shines through the grid window as the long night finally settles over the facility. Standing alone in the dark corridor, the long-haired fighter remembers her harsh words about his massive ego. A painful memory flashes in his mind, showing how he once stood over a beaten enemy to protect his sister. Back then, a mysterious master with long hair was leaving the alley after resolving the dangerous situation. Desperate for power, the young boy quickly ran forward and grabbed the stranger dark coat to stop him. Looking up with tears in his eyes, the kid begged the expert to teach him how to become incredibly strong. Stopping in his tracks, the mysterious warrior looked back and calmly accepted the desperate boy request. The veteran warned that he would make him the strongest fighter, but he had to leave his family behind. The master explained that having any family emotions would only stop him from reaching the ultimate level. Holding the bandaged hand of his new master, the young boy prepared to walk down a very dark and lonely path. Coming back to reality, the quiet fighter smiles weakly while realizing that he was indeed being very selfish. The next morning arrives and the scene shifts to the quiet storage room where some supply boxes are stacked. Walking up to the sweating rookie, the experienced companion calls his name and hands him a mysterious letter. Looking at the white paper, the surprised teenager wonders what kind of message his friend has just given him. The letter contains a photo of his mother working happily at her food stall and doing completely fine. Tears well up in the boy's eyes as he stares at the image of his beloved mother. Suddenly, the emotional teenager grabs his companion's hand with a tight and grateful grip. He expresses his deepest gratitude while his quiet friend looks on with a calm expression. Watching the sweet interaction, the smart doctor smiles and thinks the boy is incredibly honest. Soon the training session ends and the scene shifts to the heavily guarded prison yard outside. The companion points to a blackboard and explains that real combat is the best way to grow. He details the first target who acts incredibly tough but is actually a complete coward. The teacher warns that this specific leader always calls his underlings to back him up in a fight. This means the young student will not just face a simple one-on-one match during his challenge. He must learn how to survive and win even when fighting a whole group of enemies at once. Later in the yard, a tough opponent steps forward and starts unbuttoning his shirt to prepare. Getting ready for the action, the brave rookie clenches his bandaged fists with absolute focus. Several heavy fighters quickly surround the solitary teenager in the middle of the open field. Even though he gets bruised and hurt, the young rookie refuses to give up his intense struggle. One of the tough opponents mocks the young rookie and asks if he really thinks he can win against 3 of them. Holding his injured shoulder, the young boy listens as the bully demands that he admit defeat right now. Glaring back with absolute confidence, the protagonist simply rejects the order and gets ready to counter. Standing tall, the brave teenager smiles and challenges his opponent to show him how losing actually feels. The main bully gets completely enraged by this calm attitude and grits his teeth in pure fury. Screaming that he will end the boy's life, the massive fighter charges forward but easily misses his first heavy punch. Suddenly, another partner jumps high into the air and attempts to land a devastating flying kick on the student. Moving like lightning, the young fighter blocks the incoming strike and delivers a brutal counter right to the jaw. The strong opponent instantly crashes onto the dirt floor after receiving the devastating punch. Heavy sweat drips down his face while the tired teenager tries to catch his breath during the short pause. He suddenly realizes that one enemy is still missing right before a shadow looms over him from behind. A heavy punch suddenly hits him right in the face and blood splatters everywhere. The young boy stumbles forward while trying his best to stay on his feet. Wiping the blood from his cheek, he realizes that his consciousness is starting to fade away. Looking at his 3 targets, he knows he must find their weak spots to survive this mess. He remembers that the first fighter relies way too much on using simple back fists. The second guy uses fast kicks while the big leader easily loses his temper during a fight. Gritting his teeth, the brave rookie decides that he finally has a solid plan to win. 2 of the angry bullies immediately charge forward to finish the tired teenager. Moving swiftly, the protagonist ducks under a dangerous high kick to avoid the hit. He lunges straight ahead and drives a powerful strike right into the leader's stomach. The massive boss looks down in total shock as the sudden pain stops him in his tracks. Before the leader can react, another opponent comes from behind to launch a massive punch. Using his quick reflexes, the clever student dodges and lets the 2 allies crash together. One of the attackers screams at his partner to stay focused and keep up the pressure. The heavily beaten boss stumbles backward while clutching his face in complete agony. Seizing the perfect moment, the young fighter spots a massive opening in his opponent's defense. He leaps into the air and delivers a massive flying knee strike directly to the bald guy's face. The tough opponent lets out a painful groan as the impact completely throws him off his feet. Standing over his fallen rival, the brave teenager prepares to deliver the final blow to finish the match. He drives a powerful fist straight down to knock the big bully completely out of the fight. The enraged boss tries to catch him off guard, but the young student is already prepared for his move. With incredible speed, the protagonist easily ducks under the incoming strike and slips past his opponent. Another fighter tries to assist his boss, but the agile kid smoothly avoids every single attack. Staring calmly at the incoming fist, the brave teenager blocks the punch with absolute confidence. He immediately counters with a devastating punch that lands perfectly on the opponent's chin. The beaten fighter stumbles backward while holding his bleeding face in absolute shock and pain. Realizing they underestimated the kid, the remaining bullies quickly discuss their next strategy. The angry boss grits his teeth because running away from a rookie is definitely not an option. Both opponents quickly regain their focus and prepare to attack the lone student at the exact same time. They charge forward together to launch a coordinated double strike and finally crush the teenager. The rookie firmly plants his foot on the ground to stabilize his balance. He lowers his center of gravity and steps back right as the twin attacks come rushing in. Suddenly, the boy drives a heavy elbow strike directly into one attacker to disrupt their rhythm. This powerful blow completely breaks the enemy coordination and leaves him stumbling. Seizing the brief opening, the young rookie immediately delivers a brutal follow-up strike. The battered opponent crashes hard onto the dirty floor and stays down. The last bully stands there in complete shock because he cannot believe what just happened. Screaming in anger, the furious boss charges forward while refusing to lose to a rookie. A loud clash echoes through the yard as the brave teenager blocks the powerful attack. Although the strike is incredibly strong, the clever student already knows his opponent's flaw. He realizes that using full power will eventually make the giant fighter lose his balance. Deciding to exploit this massive mistake, the young boy prepares his final counter move. He patiently waits to lure out the big punch before moving into the danger zone. The massive fist completely misses the mark when the agile rookie ducks low. Swiftly moving behind his unbalanced opponent, the protagonist prepares a decisive strike. With a sharp movement, the young fighter focuses all his strength to hit the exact weak point with a single strike. Moving inside the opponent's defense, the teenager prepares to land a continuous barrage of heavy blows on the massive boss. A powerful fist explodes against the target face because he refuses to give his opponent even a single second to recover. Unleashing his final strike, the boy keeps pushing forward to make sure the boss stays down on the ground for good. While frightened birds fly away in the dark sky, the defeated boss hand finally collapses onto the dirty floor. Standing tall in the middle of the field, the young student secures a complete and undisputed victory over the bullies. Watching the unbelievable scene from the sidelines, the other prisoners stare in absolute silence and total disbelief. Looking at the powerful shadow of the teenager, the spectators wonder if this rookie is actually the legendary fighter. Over the next 2 weeks, the tireless teenager challenges every single room leader inside the massive North District. Fighting with absolute focus, the brave rookie defeats every single boss to establish his ultimate dominance in the yard. Adjusting his hand bandages, the quiet teenager stands calmly among his fallen opponents with a completely cold gaze. Suddenly, the entire prison yard erupts in loud cheers as the amazed prisoners celebrate their incredibly strong leader. Whispering in pure admiration, the inmates admit that this young rookie is now the strongest warrior in the entire zone. Smiling warmly, a friendly prisoner approaches the champion to offer him some clean clothes and a refreshing drink. The guy happily offers to help with chores and even suggests giving the new champion a relaxing massage. Despite the praise, the exhausted boy feels unhappy with his performance because he still considers himself way too weak. Although he remains humble, his incredible reputation spreads quickly, and no one dares to call him a loser anymore. However, this sudden rise to fame also draws some unwanted attention from the most dangerous figures in the facility. Inside a private room, several powerful leaders gather to discuss the situation regarding a top fighter named Kanemoto. The pink-haired boss smiles while mocking how easily some weak rookies manage to fight back against their old companion. Another fighter laughs and admits that their rival is probably terrified because the young rookie is growing too fast. The group realizes that the strong teenager will become highly valuable if he manages to defeat their main target. Standing up with an imposing aura, the leader prepares to change the topic to their highly secret business deal. He looks annoyed while complaining about the sudden rain because it might easily ruin their upcoming shipment plans. His partner calmly responds that unexpected weather changes are completely normal and should not cause any major delay. Glaring silently, the final boss of the room decides that it is finally time for their own group to make a move. Heavy rain starts pouring over the dark prison building as the night gets colder. 2 guards carry bright flashlights while walking down the dark stairs to inspect the area. They head straight toward the sewage treatment plant, located deep underground. Inside the tunnel, several workers carry heavy boxes containing 12% more product than planned. The guard smiles while praising the creator of the illegal substance for being a complete genius. Suddenly, the large boss tells everyone to halt because he senses something strange nearby. With a quick hand gesture, the officer orders the workers to stop moving immediately. The heavy boxes are carefully put down on the concrete floor without making any loud noise. Everyone stands completely frozen while waiting to see what is happening in the dark tunnel. The crooked officer advises the boss to stay alert and explains that their distribution method is changing. He hands over a small white packet and instructs him to ship the excess cargo later. The tough fighter wonders why they are suddenly changing the plan and mentions another partner name. The guard warns that the director covered up a death and asks if this favor will be met with betrayal. Reaching his hand out, the corrupt guard promises to reward the muscular boss if he does his job well. He promises that the powerful Kuroyama group will take care of him once he gets out of this place. A heavy footstep echoes as a massive prisoner finally walks out of the dark solitary confinement room. The giant bald guy named Nagao immediately demands the heads of his enemies when a follower greets him. Hearing this terrifying request, the nervous lackey instantly begs the big boss for mercy. The tattooed leader in the blue suit approaches the giant and notes his return with a very serious face. Staring coldly at his companions, the bald giant wonders about the new rookie who is becoming way too popular. Smiling deviously, the main leader suggests giving the kid a chance since they have a special job for him. Meanwhile, inside the medical room, the main protagonist suddenly sneezes while the female doctor warns him. Wrapping his hands with clean bandages, the boy smiles and jokes that someone must be gossiping about him. The doctor warns that the top fighters will never let him ruin their solid reputation without a massive war. She gently checks his face and wonders if the young fighter actually has a smart strategy to win this battle. The dark-haired companion says that a cunning rival named Ishida might be planning a highly dangerous move. Suddenly, the doctor stops the training talk to bring up a mysterious detail that has been bothering her mind. She reveals that a former room leader supposedly took his own life, but the prison officials quickly stopped the case. The long-haired companion wonders if the corrupt officers did that just to protect their top fighter. The clever woman confirms the suspicion, but adds that the giant bald fighter will likely be abandoned soon. She explains that the dangerous giant killed 2 people, so keeping him around is a huge weakness. Gritting his teeth, the determined protagonist promises to take down both fighters if they stand in his way. Hearing this bold statement, the strong ally smiles because he loves to see the rookie showing so much fire. Letting out a soft sigh, the doctor admits that having high motivation is great for a rookie in this place. However, she warns him to never push his body too far because he needs to be in perfect shape for the fight. Looking down at his hands, the young student knows that his current strength is not enough to survive the war. The companion takes off his jacket and warns that a single mistake against these monsters can end his life. Refusing to waste a single second, the determined teenager takes off his top to begin his intense training. The experienced fighter challenges his friend to show the true depth of his resolve right now. With a serious expression, the brave kid gets into his stance and prepares to face his partner. Suddenly, a panicked messenger runs as fast as he can down the dark prison hallway. He bursts into the room where the top bosses are gathered to deliver some urgent news. The trembling messenger holds a white envelope while trying to explain the situation. Taking the paper, the silver-haired boss wonders if someone actually sent them a challenge. A strange smile appears on his face as he reads the surprising contents of the letter. The smug leader looks over at his massive partner and says that someone is looking down on them. This news makes the giant bald fighter incredibly angry because the rookie is targeting him directly. Meanwhile, the atmosphere inside the noisy cafeteria starts getting extremely tense. Several prisoners whisper about the shocking news that the brave rookie just issued a formal challenge. One guy claims that nobody can ever hope to defeat the legendary strength of the giant boss. Another inmate agrees, while another group of prisoners decides to start a massive betting pool. A skeptic says there is no point in placing a bet because the final winner is already obvious. Suddenly, a heavy metal tray crashes directly onto his head to silence his mocking words. Rubbing his painful head, the angry prisoner turns around to see who dared to attack him. The long-haired companion glares coldly while telling the loudmouth to shut his mouth for insulting their leader. The angry inmate points out that absolutely nobody expects the young rookie to survive this clash. Glaring right back at the crowd, the long-haired companion refuses to back down from the argument. An arrogant bookmaker watches the heated exchange with a very smug expression on his face. Without hesitation, the loyal companion slams a heavy bag of money on the table to bet on his friend. When the night free time finally begins, several excited prisoners rush through the dark corridors. Meanwhile, a shady fighter with two-toned hair quietly steps out of a private room to start his scheme. He approaches the smoking leader to report that the giant bald fighter is already heading to the arena. The sneaky guy explains that their giant companion has terrible vision in the dark and might panic easily. Looking up with a dark expression, the tattooed leader asks if they can eliminate both fighters at once. The companion smiles and says that the rookie is not actually that strong compared to their main force. However, he admits that the young teenager still possesses more than enough power to defeat the giant boss. Outside, a massive crowd of excited prisoners pushes through the main doors to secure the best viewing spots. The loud bookie yells to the gathering crowd that the betting odds for the rookie are currently 1-25. The younger guard wonders if leaving the fighters alone is a good idea while his partner lights a cigarette. Slamming his baton against the wall, the older officer warns the crowd that anyone who interferes gets solitary. The two rivals finally stand opposite each other in the empty bathhouse, ready to start their battle. Smiling menacingly, the bald giant promises to send the young boy straight to hell. The teenager calmly explains that he chose this specific room for two important reasons. He wants to avenge his fallen friend who suffered because of the cruel bully. Pointing his finger, the rookie adds that he wants everyone to witness the giant fall in a pathetic way. Hearing these harsh words, the massive leader grits his teeth in pure anger. With a loud roar, the heavy monster charges forward while aiming a massive punch at his opponent. Ducking under the heavy swing, the agile teenager easily avoids the dangerous strike. Using his incredible speed, the rookie immediately lands a direct counterpunch to the giant's stomach. However, the massive boss just laughs and mocks the boy because the attack did not hurt him at all. Gritting his teeth, the young rookie realizes his opponent has an incredibly thick and solid body. Before he can even retreat, the massive giant quickly catches his bandaged fist with a single strong hand. With a brutal swing, the heavy beast throws the teenager across the room and slams him hard against the ground. Wiping his mouth, the hurt rookie realizes the power of this monster is way beyond his initial calculations. Walking slowly toward him, the bald leader mockingly asks if that weak little punch was really all he could do. Shouting with absolute rage, the massive fighter launches another terrible punch directly at the standing kid. Raising his arms quickly, the teenager barely manages to block the heavy strike, but the impact still hurts him. Taking advantage of his struggle, the giant immediately delivers a powerful kick straight to the boy's stomach. Grabbing his target by the collar, the massive beast prepares to end the fight with one final swing to his face. The rookie spits a mouthful of dark blood as the devastating impact sends him flying backward once again. Watching from the sidelines, the worried companion notes that the situation is starting to look extremely bad. Several spectators notice that a powerful boss from another district has arrived to watch the intense match. Looking at the blood on the wall, many inmates believe the young rookie does not stand a single chance. Grabbing the teenager by his shirt, the massive giant mockingly asks if he really thinks he can get his revenge. The bald monster smiles deviously while pronouncing the name of the protagonist's fallen friend. Anger consumes the young rookie as he tells the massive bully to never speak that name again. With a sudden surge of rage, the brave boy delivers a devastating headbutt that sends his enemy back. The shocking move leaves the spectators completely speechless as they wonder how the kid got so strong. Even the massive boss looks incredibly surprised that the young fighter actually managed to hurt him. Suddenly, the entire room goes dark and the confused giant starts to panic because of his poor vision. Outside the room, the panicked guards immediately use their radios to report the sudden power outage. The crowd of prisoners starts whispering about the blackout and wonders if the rookie used this to escape. Standing in the pitch-black room, the bruised protagonist slowly gets back on his feet. He adjusts his posture and prepares to use the darkness to his complete advantage. His eyes glow with intense determination as he remembers a crucial lesson from his training. In a memory, his loyal companion asks him why he suddenly decided to wear a thick blindfold. The young fighter explains that the eyes are a major weakness because rivals always target them. He believes a true warrior must always prepare for the worst scenario before a major clash. By blocking his vision, the boy hopes to sharpen his other senses to survive the incoming war. During the practice match, the experienced fighter lands a brutal punch right on his cheek. Spitting out some blood, the mentor tells him to feel the surroundings using only his ears and skin. Taking a deep breath, the teenager tries to imagine the air movement and listen to every tiny sound. When another fast fist flies toward his face, the blindfolded boy successfully blocks it with ease. Seeing this incredible progress, the long-haired trainer smiles with genuine surprise and respect. Smirking under the cloth, the rookie admits that he finally understands how to fight in the dark. Opening his eyes in the pitch black, the teenager realizes his body is his only weapon right now. Hearing the massive opponent scream in confusion, the boy calculates that the target is exactly 3 meters away. Outside the room, the spectators complain about the darkness while the guards warn everyone to stay back. Although the blackout was completely unexpected, the bruised main character views this situation as a golden opportunity. Taking a quiet step forward, the agile kid knows he needs to completely drain the giant's stamina to win this match. To create a smart distraction, the clever teenager kicks a wooden bucket across the slippery floor. Believing he found his target, the angry giant blindly swings his massive fist and destroys the wooden bucket. Appearing suddenly from the shadows, the fast teenager delivers a brutal punch directly to the back of the giant neck. Holding his painful neck, the furious bully curses at the kid for using such a cheap trick in the dark. Screaming with absolute rage, the blind monster swings his heavy arms wildly while demanding his opponent to show himself. Hearing the heavy gasps, the protagonist notices that the giant opponent is quickly running out of breath. Taking advantage of this weakness, the clever teenager drops small metal pieces to create a noisy distraction. The confused beast blindly swings at the sound only to hit empty air and grow even more frustrated. With a calm expression, the skilled rookie slides a nearby mop across the wet floor to cause more confusion. After throwing another piece of metal, the young fighter suddenly turns on a shower to create a wall of sound. Getting completely soaked, the furious boss screams that he will never forgive the rookie for playing tricks. Outside the room, the shocked spectators hear the loud screams and suddenly want to change their bets. Realizing his opponent is fully exhausted, the brave teenager charges forward to land the final blow. Stepping out of the shadows, the brave kid lands a massive punch right on the giant face. Before the opponent can recover, the agile teenager sweeps his legs and sends him crashing to the floor. Painfully holding his head, the heavy monster slowly tries to get back up while catching his breath. Hoping to lure his rival, the clever boss decides to fake an opening and screams into the darkness. Seeing right through the simple trick, the young rookie gladly decides to accept the invitation. Hearing the quiet movement, the giant quickly turns around and swings his heavy arm at the shadow. Moving like wind, the young fighter easily ducks under the massive fist to avoid the lethal attack. Finding himself in the perfect position, the kid prepares to deliver a precise strike to end the war. Suddenly, he remembers his teacher asking him about the most effective spot to hit on an enemy body. The massive leader panics as he realizes the dangerous rookie is already targeting his fatal weakness. Remembering his training, the boy aims directly for the weak spot pointed out by his skilled mentor. With a massive roar, the strong teenager lands a devastating strike that instantly crushes the giant ribs. Spitting out a pool of dark blood, the heavy bully feels his entire body completely shut down from the pain. Landing gracefully on the wet floor, the brave rookie stands tall just as the bathroom lights turn back on. Looking at the unbelievable scene, the nearby spectators wonder if they are actually dreaming right now. The massive giant now lies completely flat on the dirty ground with blood pooling around his bald head. Screaming in pure shock, the crowded prisoners realize that the young rookie actually won the impossible match. Even the rival bosses watching from the back look totally stunned by the sudden turn of events. Rubbing his hands with a greedy smile, the clever companion celebrates the massive profit from his risky bet. Walking inside the bathhouse, the angry guard commands everyone to leave because the match is finally over. Turning toward the tired protagonist, the officer tells him to return to his cell with the other prisoners. Glancing back with a dark expression, the teenager coldly replies that things are not completely finished yet. Suddenly, the hand of the defeated giant twitches slightly, as if he is trying to get up one more time. Gritting his bloody teeth, the defeated giant refuses to let the fight end this way. Getting back on his feet, the furious leader screams that he will tear his opponent to pieces. The shocked crowd whispers in disbelief because the giant can still stand after taking so much damage. Standing unsteadily on his feet, the heavy monster stares at the calm protagonist who is waiting for his next move. Feeling desperate, the giant calls out to his allies in the crowd and asks why they are just standing there. Two of his strongest allies immediately step forward and prepare to enter the battle to help their boss. Suddenly, a strong hand grabs one of the allies by the shoulder and stops him from moving any further. The powerful boss of the East District smiles smugly and asks the henchmen where they think they are going. The crowd realizes that other top leaders have stepped in to make sure nobody interferes with the duel. Seeing this intense standoff, some spectators decide to change their bets and support the young rookie instead. The massive leader realizes he has no choice but to finish this brutal fight entirely on his own. Clenching his massive fist, the giant decides to defeat the teenager right in front of the entire crowd. Squeezing his fists, the massive giant charges forward with a terrifying scream to end the match once and for all. Dodging the heavy fist just in time, the agile teenager feels the wind brush against his bruised face. Realizing his body is completely exhausted, the young fighter knows he must end this battle with a single move. Screaming in absolute frustration, the bald bully swings wildly but only hits the thick water pipes on the wall. Using his incredible physical strength, the angry beast rips a heavy metal pipe right off the wall to use as a weapon. Holding the dangerous metal weapon, the furious leader promises that today will be the final day of the rookie life. Raising the heavy pipe high in the air, the crazy giant prepares to deliver a fatal strike to his young opponent. Staring directly at the incoming weapon, the brave teenager keeps his cool and waits for the perfect moment to react. Knowing that a single hit from that weapon would be fatal, the kid realizes that backing away is not an option. Moving with lightning speed, the clever rookie decides to slip inside the giant reach instead of running away. Capitalizing on the perfect opening, the agile protagonist lunges forward to land a devastating counterattack. The powerful impact causes the heavy monster to lose his balance and stumble backward across the slippery floor. Glaring with bloodshot eyes, the wounded bully refuses to go down and looks at his rival with pure hatred. The giant swings his heavy metal weapon down while shouting that the young fighter cannot win this duel. Watching from the side, some inmates wonder if the injured boss can actually finish the fight with raw strength. Moving with great agility, the young protagonist easily ducks under the massive swing to avoid the lethal strike. The bald leader looks completely shocked when he realizes his dangerous attack missed the target entirely. Capitalizing on the opening, the brave rookie delivers a powerful punch right under the giant chin. The massive force of the strike pushes the heavy monster backward as his weapon slips from his grip. Gasping for air, the wounded bully tries to stabilize his breathing while staring at his rival with intense anger. Refusing to accept defeat, the stubborn boss tightly grips his dangerous metal weapon once again. Screaming with absolute madness, the bald leader swings the heavy pipe down, hoping to crush the kid. Showing no fear, the agile teenager quickly bends backward and lets the giant weapon pass right over his chest. Realizing this is his best chance, the clever protagonist lunges forward to deliver the final counterattack. With incredible speed, the young rookie lands a devastating punch directly to the giant throat. The powerful impact sends the massive bully crashing heavily onto the wet floor with blood flying everywhere. To make sure his opponent stays down, the brave kid delivers a brutal stomp right onto the giant face. The entire bathhouse falls into a deep silence as the shocked spectators stare at the fallen monster in disbelief. Standing over the fallen giant, the exhausted protagonist looks down with a cold and determined gaze. The boy tells his defeated rival to repent to all the people he has ever hurt in this place. Delivering a heavy strike, the young hero sends a clear message that his reign of terror is over. Screaming in agony, the massive leader spits out blood as his entire body finally gives up. Groaning in extreme pain, the giant looks completely defeated while his eyes start to roll back. With one final stomp, the brave rookie makes sure the dangerous beast will not get up again. Watching the final moments of the fight, the nearby spectators can only stand there in total silence. Having used up all his energy, the victorious kid suddenly feels his vision growing blurry and weak. Losing his balance, the exhausted main character collapses face first onto the cold tile floor. Fortunately, his loyal companion rushes forward and catches the boy before he can hit the hard ground. Smiling weakly, the tired teenager asks his friend if he managed to see the entire battle. With a proud expression, the close ally replies that his performance was absolutely amazing. The epic match between the massive boss and the brave rookie has finally reached its end. Everyone watches in awe as the winner is carried away after achieving a complete victory. To understand how this wild situation started, the story suddenly travels 24 hours into the past. Holding a burning cigarette, a mysterious man decides it is finally time for his enemy to disappear. He inhales the smoke while explaining to his subordinate that the higher bosses are getting really tired of that guy. The tattooed leader wants to get rid of the annoying troublemaker before he can cause any more serious problems. He then orders the smiling fighter to make sure both of his major rivals end up taking each other down in the ring. Looking at the power box, the subordinate plans to cut the electricity if the battle takes too long to finish. They believe that fighting in complete darkness will make the intense duel much more exciting for the spectators. Turning around, the boss warns his loyal follower to be extremely sneaky so nobody catches him rigging the lights. He adds that if their champion cannot even win this simple fight, then he is completely useless to their organization. Back in the present, cold water splashes all over the bald giant who is still lying defeated on the wet ground. Slowly opening his eyes, the heavy monster groans in pain and wonders what is happening around him right now. Looking up, he is completely shocked to see his superior standing right next to a prison guard. Staring down with a very cold look, the dangerous leader tells him directly that he officially lost the big match. The defeated bully begs for another chance and promises that he will definitely win the fight next time. The serious officer steps forward and explains that there are no second chances, because those are the strict rules. Desperately grabbing the guard leg, the fallen boss cries out that he is still strong enough to keep fighting. The tattooed leader whispers to the guard that the defeated giant knows too much and needs to be handled quickly. The giant cries out in desperation that he has been working extremely hard for their crew for a very long time. Smiling coldly, the boss simply thanks his fallen subordinate and says goodbye before walking away without any regret. The officer then commands his colleague to follow him out of the room because they have other work to attend to. The supervisor insists on leaving the area so they can let the other inmates handle the situation. Waving his hand, the officer tells the worried guard to just ignore the giant and walk away with him. The defeated giant is left completely alone on the wet floor of the empty bathhouse. Suddenly, a pair of clean white shoes slowly approaches the bleeding monster on the floor. Looking up with swollen eyes, the bald leader realizes someone is standing directly in front of him. The broken giant asks if the sudden power outage during the match was actually his rival doing. Smiling mockingly, the enemy replies that it was just a coincidence even though he planned the entire thing. Gritting his teeth, the defeated giant realizes he was just a tool for the gang this whole time. The smug rival leans in close and whispers that he has wanted to end his life for a very long time. Turning his head toward the back of the room, the schemer calls out to the other prisoners watching. Smiling wickedly, the teenager tells the angry inmates that this is their perfect chance to get revenge. Some prisoners hesitate because they worry that the fallen boss might still find the strength to fight back. Another inmate quickly grabs his companion to reassure him that they have full permission to proceed. One brave prisoner steps forward and delivers a brutal kick directly to the giant face to start the attack. The angry crowd watches in shock as the first blow lands without any resistance from the former leader. The clever schemer smiles warmly and encourages everyone by saying there is absolutely nothing to fear now. Hearing those words, the entire group of prisoners charges forward to settle their old grudges with the bully. Looking up in absolute terror, the helpless giant desperately begs the angry crowd to stop their advance. The furious mob quickly surrounds the fallen beast and begins to beat him up from every single direction. Heavy strikes rain down on the helpless target as years of pent-up frustration finally explode in the room. One inmate repeatedly stomps on giant chest while yelling that his days of acting tough are officially over. Cruel punches land one after another and completely crush any remaining hope the fallen boss had of surviving. Another prisoner throws a heavy bucket while screaming about how his little brother lost his life due to this monster. Standing at a safe distance, the smiling teenager watches the chaotic scene with deep satisfaction in his eyes. Sensing that the job is successfully done, the young boy signals his companion that it is time for them to leave. He casually instructs his ally to head straight to the boss and report that their enemy is finally taken care of. The smug teenager looks down at the bleeding giant and orders his ally to report that the target is completely finished. Walking away with a cold smile on his face, the manipulative rookie silently bids a final farewell to his fallen former boss. Heavy rain continues to pour down on the dark and grim reformatory walls as the massive battle finally settles. Inside the quiet facility, two powerful men walk through the empty hallways while discussing some highly important business. The slick politician smilingly promises to keep his word since the upcoming election is extremely critical for his career. The serious supervisor respectfully mentions that he could have easily handled the simple explanation on his own. With a warm expression, the influential politician replies that showing real sincerity is always the most vital part of any deal. Stopping in his tracks, the rich visitor explains that his physical presence makes things much easier for everyone to understand. He offers a massive promotion by promising that his loyal ally will fully run the entire reformatory in just 3 months. To him, this facility is his greatest personal achievement and also a very effective way to gather some secret funds. Looking at the guard, the wealthy politician urges his trusted companion to protect the valuable place for both of their sakes. With a wicked smile, the visitor asks if the loyal guard truly understands the deeper meaning of this incredible offer. Meanwhile, the scene shifts directly to a very private meeting room located in another part of the building. Inside the room, several powerful gang leaders gather around a large table to discuss some urgent matters. A pink-haired boss mockingly points out that the strict supervisor usually loves rules, but now seems to ignore them completely. The dark-haired leader gets furious and warns the other boss to stop talking before he gets hurt. With a mocking smile, the pink-haired rival asks if the angry man actually has the guts to try anything. He continues mocking the hot-headed leader by talking about who will truly rule the entire northern district. Losing his patience completely, the angry leader slams the table and screams at him to shut his mouth. With incredible force, the furious boss delivers a direct punch that sends his mocking rival spinning backward. Wiping the blood from his mouth, the injured rival grins wickedly and tells him to go fight their actual enemy. Leaping over the table, the wild fighter charges forward to return the attack with full force. Watching the chaos unfold, the worried member of the crew desperately tries to stop the violent fight. The two powerful fighters continue clashing until a sudden sound from the doorway catches their attention. The serious supervisor steps into the room alongside a prison guard to stop the entire argument. Staring at the brawling bosses with a terrifying look, the supervisor says they must not value their lives. The entire room suddenly becomes incredibly quiet as everyone stops moving under his heavy gaze. Hoping to calm the tension, the nervous member quickly tries to offer the scary supervisor a warm drink. He politely hands over the cup, while explaining that his companion is not usually this aggressive. The nervous ally adds that recent stressful events have simply put the angry leader in a very bad mood. Smiling calmly, the rich man apologizes to the group and explains that he did not mean to startle anyone. He adds with a warm expression that he is simply worried about their well-being and hopes they can forgive him. The gang leaders quickly smile back and reassure him that there is absolutely no need for him to worry about them. Nodding happily, the visitor says they are good kids before announcing that he has some highly important news to share today. He reveals that the judicial department will soon inspect the facility, and he wants to show everyone that they are honest. Sitting back in his comfortable chair, the powerful man asks them directly if they can behave during this crucial event. The serious supervisor steps up to warn the group that causing any trouble will get them transferred to a real prison. The rich man points out that they will never enjoy their current luxuries if they get sent to a maximum security prison. Staring coldly at the bosses, the guard tells them to stay quiet for their own safety and avoid creating any problems. The pink-haired boss smiles and asks what will happen to the territory of the defeated giant now that he is gone. He wonders if the members there will completely lose control since they are currently missing their main leader. This question immediately makes the dark-haired boss furious as he glares at his rival and tells him to mind his own business. The guard intervenes and declares that a man named Amamori should officially become the new leader of that territory. Looking down at the angry boss, the guard states that this is a direct order, and they have absolutely no right to refuse it. He aggressively adds that personal feelings do not matter here, because the strict rules must always be followed. Smiling warmly, the wealthy visitor tells the serious guard to be a little kinder to the angry leaders. The politician adds that Amamori was placed in the Northern Territory specifically to get revenge for his brother. He explains that they do not know the judicial head yet, so it is much better to avoid causing any unnecessary trouble. Looking at the dark-haired boss, he suggests letting the boy take over until all the current issues finally settle down. The pink-haired leader happily agrees to the plan and loudly declares that the entire matter is finally settled. Placing a hot drink on the table, the rich visitor calmly transitions to their next major topic regarding production. Grabbing his glass with extreme force, the angry leader glares down while being told to handle things more carefully. Meanwhile, the bright lights of the medical wing shine through the barred windows of the quiet building. Outside the clinic door, a large crowd of curious prisoners pushes against each other to get a quick look inside. Suddenly, the door swings open as an angry female doctor yells at the noisy group to shut up so her patient can rest. A long-haired inmate quickly asks about the room leader condition, and she promises to answer if they remain quiet. Turning to the crowd, the long-haired ally immediately threatens to beat up anyone who dares to make another sound. As footsteps echo down the corridor, the serious medical worker stares intensely at the hallway with a suspicious look. The inmates whisper among themselves, wondering if their strong leader is officially done for after losing the match. A scarred visitor arrives at the clinic door, claiming he has a highly important message from the director. The doctor tells him the patient is still resting, but the messenger says the news will be announced very soon anyway. He loudly announces to everyone that a boy named Amamori is officially the new boss of the Northern District. Hearing this unexpected news, the crowd of prisoners standing in the hallway is completely stunned. One inmate acts disrespectful, but his companion quickly warns him to show proper respect to their new leader. The excited crowd starts cheering loudly to celebrate the sudden rise of their new room leader. Inside the quiet room, the female doctor looks at her injured patient and wonders if he heard the announcement. A dark-haired ally standing by the door says he expected this choice and asks what the young boy will do now. Sitting up on his bed, the recovering fighter says he is still thinking because a rival group might not accept him. His companion explains that the director orders are absolute due to an upcoming inspection at the facility. The young boss looks confused and wonders who this official judicial group actually is. The ally explains that these inspectors check the overall safety of the reformatory to ensure everyone follows the rules. He adds that leaders are placed in each district specifically to keep the peace and prevent any major trouble. Since the director is running in the city council election for the third time, his reputation is extremely critical. The friend concludes that they absolutely need a strong person to step up and lead the entire district right now. The young leader gets curious and asks his ally how he has so much secret information about the place. The female doctor suddenly leaves the room while telling them that they need to resolve their issues alone now. The companion suddenly bows deeply and apologizes for everything he has done to the boy up until this moment. He admits that he only made the teen his disciple so he could use him to expose the darkest secrets of the prison. The older fighter looks down and decides it is finally time to introduce himself in a much more proper way. He reveals that he is actually the leader of a strong gang and also a hidden undercover narcotics officer. Hearing this insane secret makes the young leader stare back with a face full of absolute shock and disbelief. The officer explains that he lost his parents early and got saved by a gang member when he was just 10 years old. That generous savior took him in and fed him while also teaching him how to become a truly powerful fighter. It turns out that this kind benefactor was actually the highly respected second in command of the rival group. The boy asks what happened to the man, but the officer reveals that his savior was brutally ended by the gang. He adds that the man was destroyed simply because he was completely unhappy with the terrible methods of the syndicate. The The undercover officer reveals that the enemy group is heavily involved in human trafficking and drug dealing. The shocked young fighter asks if this illegal trade is actually happening right inside the reformatory. He explains that the syndicate drugged his close friend to force a fight which ultimately led to a tragic loss. Before pissing away that friend revealed the source of the drugs, and now the officer wants to destroy the leader. To fight back against this corruption, the officer gathered some strong allies and officially created his own gang. With help from the government, he infiltrated the facility as an officer to gather evidence against the syndicate. The mentor admits he never wanted to drag the boy into danger but saw too much of his own past self in him. He hoped that having a strong ally shake up the prison would finally force the corrupt leaders to make a mistake. Feeling guilty for the manipulation, the older man apologizes and says the teen does not have to become the boss. Staring down at his hands, the young fighter says it is truly terrible because he put all of his trust in his mentor. The room becomes completely quiet as the boy looks down while processing everything he just heard. Suddenly, the young hero shouts that they are not strangers and loudly promises that he will help no matter what. He explains that he is indeed angry, but remembers how his mentor saved him from ending up like their fallen ally. Relieved by the kind response, the officer looks up and asks if he can share one last piece of crucial information. He reveals that the doctor examined their fallen rival and discovered a massive amount of illegal drugs in his system. The officer explains that his benefactor was eliminated, but points out that the real culprit is not who they think. He reveals that a dangerous man named Hokuto Shindo is the mastermind currently running the entire drug operation. While the wind blows outside the facility, the scene quickly shifts to the outdoor yard where inmates gather. Two inmates chat about their missing boss while wondering who will step up to take over the empty leader position. One of them makes a joke about the situation while hoping they can finally get some benefits in the yard. Suddenly, another group of prisoners walks over and rudely orders them to leave the bench immediately. Standing up to the bullies, the long-haired inmate proudly declares that their new boss Amamori is supporting them. Hearing this statement, the rival thug laughs loudly and mocks the idea of a hated rookie becoming a real leader. Before he can finish laughing, a massive ally steps in and instantly slams the rude guy to the ground. The bullies panic when they realize that the giant and their newly appointed young boss are standing right there. Going back 3 days earlier in the clinic, the injured boy firmly decides to accept the role to repay his debt. Even though his mentor wants him to stay safe, the teen explains that getting stronger is his only real choice now. He adds that he must grow powerful enough until his enemies are completely terrified of his strength. Hearing this brave declaration, the officer smiles softly while feeling incredibly proud of his young disciple. Looking out the barred window, the proud mentor quietly admits that his young disciple has finally become reliable. Inside the clinic room, the tattoo leader stares down at the boy and says he might just end his life right there. Showing zero fear, the young fighter replies that he is fully prepared because a big boss would not do something so petty. The villain smiles and admits that it is hard to believe this confident guy used to be a weak little kid. Looking back with a smile, the teen explains that crying does not help anyone survive under a boss like him. Since their issues will not go away easily, the tattooed villain suggests that they should form a temporary truce. After making his offer, the main boss turns around and walks out of the quiet room. Lighting up a cigarette, the tough leader asks his silver-haired companion what he thinks about the boy. The smart ally explains that this deal brings good things but also raises some very serious concerns. He points out that the kid climbed up from the bottom, so all the other inmates respect his leadership. The advisor warns that the young fighter might not listen to them because the strong mentor is backing him. Hearing this name, the tattoo boss suspects that the boy is actually just a pawn sent to spy on them. He decides to let the teen handle the basic business, while keeping the secret illegal trade completely hidden. The silver-haired advisor smirks because he truly believes that the boy is just a puppet. Back in the open yard, a crowd of inmates gathers to hear the major announcement from the leaders. The giant leader loudly declares that Nagao has been defeated, so the teen is officially their new boss. Turning around with a confident grin, the boss then suggests that the young hero should say a few words. Hearing this, the prisoners start panicking because they worry the boy might try to get revenge on them. The young leader steps forward and calmly tells everyone to forget the past since he will not tolerate bullying. He adds that as long as they follow the basic rules of the district, he will do something very special for them. Looking directly at the crowd, the boy loudly promises that he will protect every single one of them. This inspiring speech makes the prisoners go wild as they start cheering for their awesome new leader. Everyone promises to follow the boy forever, while the tattooed boss watches everything from the background. Somewhere else, an angry hand suddenly slams down and knocks a glass of alcohol off the table. A young guy in a sweater screams in rage, wondering how a total weakling could ever become a district leader. The big boss tells his younger brother to calm down because this harsh prison is nothing like a soft high school. The furious sibling complains that the boss promised to make the new leader suffer through a living hell. He mentions their mother put the teen in this facility, but the boss warns that moving too fast will destroy them. The older brother tells him to stay calm because he has no intention of abandoning his own family. He sternly warns that their mother might completely discard the angry boy if he continues to make trouble. Annoyed by the advice, the young sibling stands up and decides to handle the situation using his own hands. He angrily promises to hurt the people close to the young leader, since he cannot attack the boy directly. Meanwhile, the scene transitions to a quiet corridor right outside the main visiting room of the reformatory. Standing near the entrance, a guard strictly warns the inmates that any kind of trouble will lead to solitary confinement. Our hero is incredibly excited because being a district leader allows him to finally see his mother without any applications. When the officer finally calls out his name, the young boss steps forward with a bright smile on his face. Suddenly, the guard stops him while checking the clipboard and says the boy is actually going somewhere else. The officer tells the confused teenager to follow him down the hall instead of going to the normal room. They quickly walk past the corridors and arrive in front of a private room meant for special individuals. Opening the heavy door, the guard instructs the young fighter to step inside without wasting any more time. Thinking about his beloved mother makes the excited boy smile warmly as he anticipates their long-awaited reunion. He enters the room with a cheerful apology for being late, but is surprised by the person waiting inside. Meanwhile, someone is running desperately near the gate of the facility while calling out to the guards. Standing near the gate, the guard looks surprised to see a familiar woman standing right there. Wearing a dark mask, the worried mother apologizes for being late and begs to see her beloved child. The officer asks her to wait for a moment while he quickly checks his clipboard to see the visiting schedule. Looking back at her, he explains that another person has already gone inside to meet the young leader. He adds that only one visitor is allowed today and politely asks the poor mother to return next time. Desperate tears well up in her eyes as she explains how long she had to wait for this rare opportunity. Since she cannot go inside, she desperately begs the guard to at least tell her who is meeting her son. Thinking back, the officer tries to remember the name of the visitor who registered earlier that day. He recalls that the guest brought some simple snacks and claimed to be the young leader's best friend. Meanwhile, inside the private room, our hero freezes in absolute shock when he sees who is waiting for him. Sitting behind the glass is a suspicious guy in a hoodie who is wearing a creepy and mocking smile. The atmosphere in the visiting booth becomes incredibly heavy as the two guys stare at each other. Wearing an evil smirk, the creepy intruder suddenly taps on the thick glass to mock the quiet teenager. The young boss clenches his jaw and tries to stay calm while facing this unexpected and dangerous visitor. The silent visitor grabs the phone to finally speak to the teenager. Holding the receiver tight, the young leader prepares himself for a very tense conversation. A creepy voice on the other side calls out the boy's name while mocking him as a toy. The arrogant guest remembers how he always felt like a special person during his childhood days. His father was a powerful official, while his mother ran a massive business, and his brother was unbeatable. Since nobody wanted to anger his wealthy family, the spoiled kid got away with doing whatever he wanted. He truly believed that his bright future was completely secured and that no one could ever stop him. The rich teenager felt just like an absolute god until everything suddenly went wrong for him. One reckless rival unexpectedly ruined his perfect life by landing a devastating blow to his face. Desperate to save her son's face, the wealthy mother begged the doctor, but the damage was already done. The surgeon explained that even a complex operation could never restore his nose back to normal. Losing his nose meant the young man could no longer show his face in public without being judged. He spent his days locked inside a dark room while mourning the loss of his bright future. Filled with absolute rage, the broken guy vowed to get revenge on the person who ruined him. He blames our hero for everything and points out that the nerd in glasses must pay for his mistakes. Standing in shock, the young boss tries to find words while holding the phone receiver tightly to his ear. Calmly, the boy mentions that he already paid for his crime by serving his sentence inside this facility. Hearing this logical argument, the hooded visitor simply scoffs and calls the teenager a complete idiot. He angrily claims that the boy would already be dead if his powerful brother had actually taken things seriously. Since he got expelled from school, the spoiled kid brags that he has plenty of free time to handle things himself. Twirling a chopstick, the villain explains how he spent his days planning a very special surprise for the teenager. He looks up with a sinister gaze and mentions that he tried some delicious street food from a familiar stall. Stabbing his food with absolute cruelty, the visitor smiles widely while describing how delicious the snack tasted. Shockwaves hit the young leader as he demands to know what this crazy psychopath did to his beloved mother. Grinning behind the thick glass, the visitor mockingly offers to show him a special recording to ease his loneliness. He holds his bright phone screen up to the window and tells the terrified teenager to watch the screen closely. Freezing in horror, the poor boy stares at the device as he realizes his worst nightmare is coming true. The screen reveals a terrifying video of his helpless mother trying to protect herself from violent strangers. Mocking her weak body, the cruel visitor explains that hitting an older woman was actually not very satisfying. The horrifying footage shows several heavy-suited thugs mercilessly attacking the poor woman at her food cart. Pure rage fills the young leader as he thinks about his mother and vows never to forgive the monster behind the glass. Dropping the phone receiver, the furious teenager lets his anger take over. He slams his fist directly against the thick barrier, which immediately cracks under the insane pressure. Deep red marks cover his hands as he continues to smash the window while promising to end the villain right there. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the desperate boy demands that the enemy target him instead of his innocent mother. Hearing the loud commotion, the guards burst through the door and shout at the teenager to stop his violent behavior. Safe behind the cracked screen, the smug villain just smirks while watching the protagonist struggle helplessly. When one of the officers tries to grab him from behind, the enraged young hero strikes back with a brutal elbow. The strong impact sends the grown man flying across the room and crashing hard onto the floor. Panicking at the sudden violence, the remaining guard quickly grabs his radio to request immediate backup. Completely consumed by pure fury, our main character loses all control as he prepares to fight anyone in his way. Behind the glass, the creepy villain laughs hysterically while begging the furious boy to strike him even harder. Seeing the heavy chaos, several guards raise their batons and prepare to take down the raging teenager. Grabbing his arms, the officers struggle to hold the hero back as he screams that he will definitely end the monster. With veins popping on his face, the protagonist yells at Kanemoto, telling him not to run away like a coward. Slowly turning around, the smug villain says that they will definitely see each other again very soon. Wearing a dark smile, the enemy mockingly promises to keep a very close eye on the teenager's mother. Watching the psychopath leave, the frantic teenager screams at him to stop running away. Reaching his hand out desperately, the boy begs the escaping visitor to wait for a single second. The heavy metal door slams shut with a loud sound as footsteps slowly fade down the quiet hallway. Shoving him inside a dark, solitary confinement cell, the guard sternly tells the boy to reflect on his actions. Standing alone in the empty room, the main character listens to the door lock as darkness surrounds him. The boy wonders how to save his mother and considers asking his strong friend Hojo for help before deciding against it. Clenching his fists, the teenager feels incredibly weak because he cannot even protect the most important person in his life. Gritting his teeth in pure frustration, the angry teenager cannot contain his massive rage inside the dark room. He violently slams his fist against the hard wall while cursing his own weakness. Outside the solitary cell, a long-haired guy quietly leans against the wall while listening to the loud noise. With a calm smirk, the visitor mentions that throwing a wild tantrum will never solve any of his actual problems. The protagonist instantly recognizes the voice and wonders what Koreha is doing in this restricted area. Smiling mockingly, Koreha explains that he heard about the visitor but did not expect the boy to end up in solitary. He leans in closer and eagerly asks the teenager to share all the interesting details about his recent struggle. Standing quietly in the dark room, the young leader remains completely silent as he processes everything. He approaches the barred window and asks if the guy came all this way just to mock his miserable situation. Shaking his head, the pink-haired visitor suddenly suggests that they should join forces and team up. The teenager is very confused by the strange proposal and states that he has absolutely nothing to offer right now. The clever guest explains that the boy is obviously terrified of Kanemoto and wants to protect his helpless mother. With a serious look, he reveals that he also hates Kanemoto because that guy stops him from reaching the absolute top. He promises that taking down this common enemy will secure the boy's safety and make him a powerful boss. Sensing a trap, our hero looks at him suspiciously and asks what his real motive is behind this sudden kindness. The visitor demands that the boy hand over all of the enemy business and keep his crew away from it. Silence fills the dark cell as our hero quietly sits on the floor to process the heavy deal. Smiling through the bars, the guest reminds the teenager that his mother's safety should be his top priority. He tells the boy to take some time before walking away and says to find him once a decision is made. The sound of fading footsteps echoes through the quiet room while the teenager remains in deep thought. He stares at the floor while wondering what kind of secret business the enemy is actually running. Sometime later, the cell door finally opens and the guard tells the teenager that he is free to go now. The officer sternly warns him that spending 5 days in solitary confinement will not be enough next time. Walking back down the hallway, the other prisoners whisper in surprise when they see their young leader return. Heading over to the medical office, the boy opens the door and calls out to see if the doctor is inside. Instead of the usual doctor, he only sees the dark silhouette of a female nurse standing by the desk. The young boss immediately stops in his tracks with a very confused look on his face. He asks where the main doctor is, and the lady calmly replies that the doctor went to check on another patient. Suddenly, she turns around with a very creepy smile and introduces herself as a trainee nurse named Miyabi. Smiling gently, the new nurse offers him a quick checkup, but the boy explains he is only looking for the doctor. She immediately gets excited when she realizes that this patient is the famous leader everyone keeps talking about. The young hero feels quite surprised that a newcomer already knows his name and entire background. With a cheerful grin, she mentions how a formerly bullied kid managed to defeat a powerful rival and take over. The girl reveals that she has only worked there for 3 days, but has already heard countless rumors about him. She hyperactively circles around the protagonist while asking crazy questions about his epic battles and strength. While the teenager denies having any secret training manuals, a nearby phone suddenly starts buzzing on the table. The energetic nurse announces that her shift is over and tells the boy to wait quietly for the main doctor. Just before opening the door, she suddenly stops in her tracks as if she forgot something very important. She turns back to hand him a small treat because eating sweet things is known to help calm people down. With a dark shadow over her face, the trainee tells the boy to stay out of trouble and avoid solitary confinement. Waving her hand cheerfully, she bids farewell to the famous chief and finally steps out of the room. Left alone in the quiet office, the teenager repeats her name while trying to figure out her strange personality. He looks down at the sweet in his hand and realizes that this new nurse is definitely a very unusual person. Heavy thudding sounds echo through the training room as the young boss hits a punching bag with insane power. Sweat pours down his face while he pushes past his limits despite the stinging pain in his hands. The teenager prepares to launch another heavy strike because he cannot afford to waste a single second. Suddenly, his strong friend Hojo enters the room and wonders what on earth happened to make him act so crazy. Approaching the frantic teen, the tall friend tells him to stop immediately since his bandages are soaked in blood. Turning around with a fierce look, our hero claims that this is nothing and insists he is completely fine. He eagerly asks if there is any harsher training because he wants to become strong enough to defeat their new enemy. Hojo warns that this rival is incredibly powerful and notes that the boy only won his last big fight due to pure luck. Ignoring the warnings, the desperate teen throws another punch while declaring that he will definitely win. Sadness fills his eyes as he realizes that even after becoming a boss, he still cannot protect his own family. Letting out a furious roar, the main character vows to grow stronger so he can crush every single villain. Before he can throw another punch, a strong hand suddenly reaches out and grabs his bleeding wrist tightly. Hojo firmly holds him back and demands that his friend calm down before he completely ruins his own body. Looking back in complete confusion, the exhausted teenager asks what his loyal companion is trying to do. Hojo lets go of his grip because he realizes the stubborn teen is not ready to back down yet. The tall friend sighs and asks why the protagonist simply refuses to listen to any good advice. The young boss gives him a cold glare and warns his companion that he will fight anyone who blocks his way. Suddenly, the desperate boy throws a fast punch, but the experienced companion easily dodges the wild swing. Breathing heavily, the exhausted teen refuses to stop because his mind is completely filled with worry for his mother. He launches another attack, but his friend blocks the strike with a calm expression. Grabbing the tall boy by his shirt collar, the raging teenager tries to push him away with all his remaining strength. Hojo glares back and sternly says that this useless tantrum has gone far enough. The furious protagonist yells at him to shut up while refusing to hear any more words. With a loud sound, they clash heads in a brutal headbutt that shakes both of them. A heavy strike sends the young leader crashing hard onto the floor as he loses his balance. Just then, the main doctor suddenly enters the room and angrily asks if they are trying to destroy the entire place. Clutching his head, the dizzy teenager struggles to stand up while his friend promises to end this right now. With a swift blow to the neck, the strong companion quickly knocks the exhausted boy unconscious. Carrying his quiet friend on his shoulder, Hojo asks the shocked doctor to treat the teenager's bleeding hands. Carrying his friend, Hojo notes that the enemy's little brother really made him lose his cool. Gently placing the teenager on the bed, the tall companion explains that he had no other option but to do this. The female doctor looks at his bandaged hand and mentions that his time in solitary probably caused too much stress. His friend states that venting will not solve anything, and they actually need a much more fundamental solution. Outside, the moon shines through the dark clouds while the two companions silently wait for their leader to wake up. Slowly opening his heavy eyes, the young leader finally wakes up after being unconscious for a long time. His close ally tells him that he slept for 3 hours because he could not get any real rest during solitary. Sitting up on the bed, the young boss immediately apologizes to his close companion for trying to hit him earlier. Waving off the apology, Hojo crosses his arms and asks the teenager to tell him one important thing. The loyal ally looks at the protagonist with a serious expression and asks if the boy really intends to fight. Standing up, our hero explains that the arrogant enemy relies on his family power and his strong older brother. He sits back down on the bed while stating that they simply must remove that threat before the enemy destroys him. Using a tiny flashlight, the female doctor checks his eyes and warns that fighting with his current strength is reckless. Looking at the bright light, the desperate teen worries that his mother is in danger and knows he has no time left. Hojo says his crew will handle things and tells the boy that raw hatred is not enough to protect his loved ones. Pointing his finger, the tall friend warns the young boss to stay calm instead of charging blindly into danger. Meanwhile, at a busy outdoor night market, the teenager's hard-working mother is busy running her small food stall. Suddenly, a mysterious pair of boots steps into the crowded area and slowly walks toward her business. A group of dangerous thugs arrives as one guy asks if they are going to cause trouble again today. The masked leader of the gang glares coldly while stating that a child's heavy debt is always the parent's responsibility. Approaching the food cart, the masked villain mocks her by asking if she is actually making any good money today. Terrified for her life, the poor mother begs the thugs for mercy since this small business is her only source of income. Pulling down his mask, the angry villain points at his face and demands that she take responsibility for her son's actions. He points a finger at a hot bowl and cruelly orders his men to force the helpless woman to eat the boiling soup. The ruthless boss tells his men to hurry up with their cruel punishment before the hot food gets cold. Trembling with absolute terror, the poor woman looks at the steaming hot dish being forced directly toward her face. Before the thugs can harm her, a group of powerful guys suddenly arrives and demands that they stop immediately. The strong leader of the new group steps forward with a furious look and asks what on earth they are doing to the lady. The masked villain turns around and mockingly asks if this newcomer is actually the poor lady's lover. Without saying a single word, the big guy launches a powerful strike right across the villain's face. The strong ally looks incredibly annoyed and wonders if he should just break the bad guy's hand. Holding his swollen cheek, the shocked leader can barely believe that someone actually dared to hit him. Furious and humiliated, the masked punk points his finger and orders his group to eliminate the intruders. A group of smirking thugs steps forward because they are more than ready to start a massive street fight. Standing tall with their own weapons, the main hero's allies prepare to defend the mother from these bullies. One of the fighters mentions that they are simply carrying out the orders of their young boss. Grabbing his own wrist, the muscular fighter says it is time to teach these punks a harsh lesson about life. Several defeated fighters lie scattered across the cold concrete after a violent encounter. A brutal punch lands on the dark-haired youth before a thug ruthlessly stomps his head into the ground. Standing over the fallen boy, the thugs deliver a chilling warning and stomp his head one final time. Leaving him bruised on the pavement, the aggressive group walks away while telling him to never return. Gritting his teeth, the defeated teenager slowly stands up and promises to destroy every single one of them. Walking down the crowded city streets late at night, the angry youth tries to cool down his intense rage. Suddenly, he accidentally bumps shoulders with a giant stranger who aggressively tells him to watch his step. The giant man warns the angry teenager to leave, but the furious kid prepares to throw a punch right at him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a loud nightclub where a female DJ plays music while waitresses walk around. Two girls knock on a private door to deliver some expensive alcohol directly to a group of dangerous guests. Suddenly, a rude customer grabs one of the girls while a nearby glass gets knocked down and shatters on the floor. Losing his temper completely, the angry man aggressively grabs her by the hair because he thinks she is mocking him. Suddenly, a powerful hand stops the attacker while a calm voice warns the angry man never to hurt a woman. The tattooed man easily slams the troublemaker onto the floor while the other guests watch in complete shock. Kneeling on the ground, the terrified bully desperately begs for mercy while the powerful boss looks down with cold eyes. The scary leader states that he hates guys who harm ladies and slowly draws a massive blade to teach him a lesson. A swift strike quickly handles the abusive punk while the nearby girls scream from the sudden splatter of red. Turning to the trembling victim, the generous boss hands over a thick stack of cash as a proper apology for the mess. Crying with deep gratitude, the young lady bows repeatedly and promises that she will never forget his extreme kindness. Walking away, the ruthless leader coldly orders his loyal men to sell the unconscious troublemaker on the black market. The terrified waitress can only cry while the ruthless boss decides that the troublemaker must pay with his own body. Returning to his drinks, the wealthy white-haired leader continues to enjoy his luxury without showing any worries. Suddenly, a loyal henchman enters the private lounge to deliver some highly unexpected news to his superior. Learning that his subordinate Takeshi got defeated, the powerful boss decides to personally investigate the matter. Under the bright full moon, a severely injured fighter lies completely unconscious on the cold concrete floor. A mysterious fighter smiles wildly before launching a brutal punch directly at the face of another target. The defeated opponent crashes heavily to the ground and gets brutally stomped without receiving any mercy. The angry young fighter yells at his opponent before delivering a brutal kick that sends the thug crashing to the ground. Standing victorious over the bleeding troublemaker, the black-haired youth calmly mocks his weak opponent. Suddenly, a heavily tattooed man begins to clap as he slowly approaches the scene with several followers behind him. Walking forward, the calm stranger praises the boy's potential but points out that his fighting style is still way too rough. The curious youth demands to know his identity, and the man introduces himself as the dangerous mastermind Hokuto Shindo. Placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, the powerful leader offers to take him away and personally teach him how to fight. Smirking at the strange offer, the independent teenager demands to know what the mysterious man is actually trying to do. Easily stopping his angry guard, the smiling boss says he will not force the kid and instead proposes a very interesting bet. The tattooed leader raises one hand and mockingly promises to defeat the teenager using only his left arm. Laughing at the arrogant proposal, the confident teenager charges forward to wipe the smug grin off the older man's face. Within 3 seconds, the powerful boss easily stops the fast strike and leaves the shocked kid completely unable to move. A single devastating strike sends the young fighter flying backward onto the hard concrete pavement. Coughing on the ground, the boy realizes in terror that this mysterious leader is actually much faster than his brother. The smiling boss offers to keep playing, but the stubborn teenager slowly stands back up to continue the match. Moving like a complete ghost, the older man instantly grabs the talkative kid by the throat to silence his barking. The boy struggles to breathe while the dangerous boss steals his precious item and threatens to throw it down the drain. The white-haired leader smiles and offers a deal to help the teenager stop relying on such weak items to protect himself. The young student can only choke in frustration as his windpipe remains tightly squeezed by the powerful mastermind. Falling to the hard ground, coughing, the beaten kid desperately asks the mysterious man about his true identity. The smug boss proudly claims that he is just an expert who can make the young fighter monstrously strong. He notes that raw power alone is simply not enough to win against the dangerous forces operating in this dark world. The criminal leader promises that joining his organization will allow the kid to get revenge and reclaim his lost pride. Reaching his hand out, the boss offers a high position of status where absolutely nobody will ever dare to laugh at him. The tattooed leader asks for a quick update while his partner explains the director made a sudden choice. Fearing that the new boss might discover their secret business, they discuss the need to handle him quickly. The clever partner smiles and suggests turning the rookie into a loyal follower who can never escape. He plans to hook the boy on their dangerous pills so he has to obey every single command to survive. Making the young boss an accomplice will ensure that absolutely nobody ever believes his side of the story. Hearing this cruel strategy, a long-haired subordinate trembles in absolute shock and horror. The poor helper refuses the scary mission because the new rookie leader has treated him with respect. Smiling warmly, the partner reassures him that he is not asking anyone to take a life today. The split-haired partner places a hand on the helper's shoulder and offers a bag of dangerous blue pills to use. Shocked by the plan, the young man immediately refuses because he knows the powerful classmate will never forgive him. The smiling companion threatens him with immediate death if he dares to reject their secret plan right now. Shaking with fear, the helpless student has no other choice but to accept the terrible task to save his own life. The manipulator hands over the package and gives him exactly 3 days to complete the job without getting caught. He promises to make him the new room boss as a reward, but warns that failure will definitely not be tolerated. Footsteps echo as the sneaky villain finally walks away and leaves the terrified kid alone with his heavy thoughts. The guards announce the start of an ethics class and warn the inmates to behave properly. Immediately, the troublesome teenagers run inside and start fighting over the best seats in the back. A sudden collision causes a fight when a rebellious youth accidentally crashes into another inmate. A long-haired rival stands up to defend the section by claiming the desk belongs to their boss, Kanemoto. Refusing to back down, the aggressive teenager mocks the name and prepares to launch a powerful attack. A heavy fist lands directly on the target face and sends him crashing straight to the classroom floor. The defeated rival slowly gets back up while complaining about the unfair advantage of their enemies. Smiling wickedly, the pink-haired leader orders his massive group of allies to attack and beat everyone up. A massive brawl suddenly explodes inside the classroom as the wild students start throwing heavy punches at each other. The poor teacher and guards watch in total horror, while the crazy teenagers start using chairs and buckets as weapons. Desperate to restore order, the panicked guard blows his whistle and screams for the rioting group to stop immediately. Instead of stopping, a heavy red bucket of dirty water flies through the air and splashes directly over the lecturer's head. This ultimate disrespect makes the guard grit his teeth as he furiously demands to know the location of the ward bosses. Inside a private office, the furious officer yells at the two leaders because this chaos happened during a major inspection. Slamming his desk, the supervisor screams that his entire reputation is ruined while the silent teenagers just stand there. The angry officer warns the ward bosses that anyone causing another massive fight will be sent to the sewers. Slamming his hand on the desk, the supervisor demands complete obedience or he will replace the leaders. While wringing a wet cloth, the young hero asks his roommate why everyone is suddenly cleaning up the cells. The companion explains that the new head of the judicial department wants to completely wipe out teenage crime. The protagonist gets shocked when his close ally reveals that he is actually good friends with this powerful chief. Looking back at his past, the companion remembers a kind helper named Akaban, who was 10 years older than him. They trained together to develop their unique strengths and became even closer than real brothers. The mentor explains that they swore revenge against their enemy and decided to split up their efforts. With the help of several allies, they successfully infiltrated the facility to wipe out the illegal products. The officer explains that they must cut off all the distribution routes to completely destroy the network. Smiling slightly, the older companion asks if the young boy is shocked by this massive revelation. The brave rookie calmly replies that he wants to help his benefactor and make that dream his own. Both fighters share a quiet moment of mutual respect as they prepare for the upcoming battle together. The scene transitions to the hot kitchen where another inmate is busy preparing a large batch of food. Sweating profusely, the stressed worker realizes he must make a very difficult choice if he wants to survive. The stressed worker feels terrified because he knows he will get eliminated if he fails to complete his dangerous task. Suddenly, a friendly classmate walks into the busy kitchen and cheerfully calls out to the nervous teenager. Startled by the sudden voice, the anxious worker accidentally drops his heavy stirring tool straight into the giant pot. Trying to recover his tool, he slips on a wet leaf and falls headfirst toward the steaming hot container. Hearing a terrifying scream echo through the room, his companion instantly realizes that something went horribly wrong. The kitchen quickly descends into absolute panic as the poor boy falls directly inside the boiling vat of soup. Scalding water splashes everywhere while the helpless victim struggles to breathe and screams in total agony. His friend rushes forward to save him, but a nearby inmate quickly holds him back to wait for the guards. The brave companion shoves the blocking inmate away and yells that waiting for the guards will be too late. Without wasting a second, he and another prisoner tip the giant boiling pot over to rescue the trapped student. The burned victim crashes onto the kitchen floor in total agony while the nearby crowd watches in complete horror. The loyal friend warns everyone not to touch the boy and quickly starts removing his own jacket to help him. He loudly orders the nearby inmates to strip off their clothes and soak them under cold running water. The young man gently drapes the wet fabric over his classmate to cool down the painful fresh burns. Looking down with deep concern, he promises the crying victim that he will get him to the clinic right away. Rushing through the hallways, the young boss carries his badly injured classmate on his back while calling for help. Inside the clinic, the worried doctor immediately begins treating the painful wounds before an infection can start. The medical worker warns that the situation could have been much worse and praises the hero for his quick action. Deciding to leave his friend in safe hands, the teenager turns to walk out when the cheerful trainee nurse stops him. She gently takes his hand to apply some soothing cream on a light burn he received during the chaotic incident. After placing a cute bandage on his skin, the cheerful nurse happily promises to take good care of his injured friend. 3 days later, the tall mentor carefully guides the bandaged student back to the cell and lets him sit on the boss bed. Smiling gently, the friend tells the weak kid to rest on the comfortable mattress because his body is still heavily damaged. Walking down the corridor, the strong companion decides to personally inspect the kitchen to prevent another tragic accident. Lying in bed, the injured student secretly stares at the dangerous blue pills while remembering the threat from the bullies. As a cold night settles over the secure facility, the tired prisoners finally go to sleep under the watchful searchlights. Suddenly, some painful coughing sounds break the silence of the room while a nervous classmate struggles to sleep. While the others rest, the bandaged student slowly sits up and decides to carry out his dark mission. Holding his breath, he secretly drops the dangerous blue pill directly into the clean cup of water. Without knowing the hidden danger, the young leader gladly drinks the liquid to quench his heavy thirst. Watching the scene unfold, the guilty boy trembles in fear while tightly crushing the empty pill packet. Cold sweat drips down his face because he knows he just committed a terrible mistake. Suddenly, the young boss starts choking violently and struggles to breathe as the dangerous substance kicks in. Panicking at the sudden medical emergency, the terrified cellmates yell for help and prepare to carry him away. The heavy cell door suddenly flies open with a loud crash as the panicked roommates rush out to seek urgent help. An alert guard quickly directs the group and orders them to move as fast as possible down the corridor. Their worried friend looks back with a very grim expression while telling them to hurry straight to the clinic. Arriving at the clinic, the medical team quickly places the young chief on the bed to clear his blocked airway. Checking his eyes, the doctor realizes it is acute poisoning, while the terrified friends claim he only drank water. Preparing an emergency injection, the doctor commands the nurse to immediately push the noisy room members outside. While the doctor fights to save the boy, the nurse steps outside into the hallway and lets out a quiet sigh. Turning back toward the door, the mysterious assistant shows a dark and chilling glare. Elsewhere, the villain gets surprised to learn that the young leader managed to survive the deadly crisis. The clever schemer smiles wickedly because the poison successfully achieved their secret goal. The powerful leader doubts the poisoning results and orders his partner to summon the boy once he recovers. He wants to see with his own eyes if the young chief is fake acting or actually becoming a loyal puppet. 2 days later, the young hero enters the room while the boss mockingly claims he was deeply worried about him. Sweating profusely, the protagonist insists he is doing fine while the creepy leader smiles with suspicion. Asking to leave, the teenager gets stopped by the split-haired ally who notes his terrible physical state. Sweat drips down his face as the ruthless boss taunts him for trying to act strong despite his condition. Gritting his teeth in frustration, the struggling student realizes the dangerous drug is already taking effect. The split-haired guy mockingly describes the terrible symptoms of the drug, while the boy tries to deny everything. Claiming he knows the effects of the pills, the sneaky manipulator tells the kid that hiding it is useless. Watching with a sinister smile, the tattooed boss lets his partner pretend to offer help to the weak boy. Sweat drips down his face as the scared teenager stutters while the cruel boss flickers his lighter. Holding out a container of blue pills, the evil ally reveals these are the exact same ones used before. Shocked by the massive revelation, the furious young leader screams at the villains for poisoning him. Clenching his fists in rage, the young hero prepares to fight while the tattooed boss steps forward to face him. Before the young hero can even attack, a sudden wave of intense pain causes him to collapse straight onto the floor. Standing over him, the cruel boss mockingly tells the suffering boy to beg for the pills to make the agony disappear. Gritting his teeth on the ground, the desperate teenager tries his best to resist the overwhelming urge to take the drug. The tattooed leader calls him stubborn, while the brave kid glares back with pure hatred burning in his eyes. Wagging his finger, the sneaky manipulator claims that accepting the pills simply proves his loyalty to their boss. Offering the blue pills once again, the villain softly promises that this medicine will bind their fates forever. Trembling on the floor, the young chief grits his teeth in disgust while listening to their ridiculous lies. Struggling to stay on his feet, the young chief covers his eyes while the dark substance takes full control over his body. A painful scream escapes his throat as the intense agony pushes him to his absolute physical limit. The villains watch with creepy smiles while the boy feels like thousands of ants are gnawing at his bones from the inside. Offering the blue pills once again, the sneaky manipulator tells him to cast away his past and surrender to stop the pain. Refusing to become their puppet, the angry teenager yells at the villains while doubled over in unbearable chest pain. Looming over him, the tattooed boss cruelly reminds the boy that keeping his own life should be his highest priority. Staring with wild eyes, the desperate young leader looks at the container of pills while fighting his breaking mind. Desperate for relief, the trembling teenager weakly reaches out his hand to take the offered drug. Lighting a metal lighter, the cruel manipulator begins heating the powder to show him how to use it. The tattooed boss secretly smiles, knowing the young leader will become his permanent slave once he inhales. Trembling violently from the pain, the struggling teenager raises his hand right toward the smoking vapor. Suddenly, loud footsteps echo down the quiet hallway as a voice calls out from outside the door. Hearing the unexpected visitor, the furious boss instantly orders his partner to hide all the dangerous stuff. The pink-haired rival boss smirks playfully as he enters the room and interrupts their secret meeting. Entering the room without knocking, the pink-haired boss notices the young leader trembling and looking pale. Sniffing the air, the sly visitor immediately recognizes the distinct smell coming from the secret stash. Smirking wickedly, he reminds everyone that any block leader using the illegal substance faces immediate death. Furious at the accusation, the tattooed boss gets interrupted as his partner claims it is just a misunderstanding. While the rival offers his help, the terrified teenager lies and says his sickness has nothing to do with the leaders. Screaming in rage, the tattooed leader orders his rival to leave, while the visitor calmly claims he has real business. The split-haired partner quietly suggests finding more stash somewhere else to deal with their problem. Guiding the young leader away, the pink-haired rival casually invites him to visit the South District for support. The angry tattooed boss screams in rage while the rival taunts him about bringing the director over. Walking down the quiet corridor together, both fighters exchange sly looks without saying another word. Furious about the sudden intrusion, the tattooed boss kicks a table and vows to destroy both of his rivals. During free time, the young chief meets his nervous roommate, who feels relieved that the fake acting actually worked. A sudden flashback reveals a quiet guard standing near the prison fence late at night 7 days ago. Late at night, the bandaged roommate sits up and asks to speak with the young hero. He confesses that he hid the secret contraband in his locker instead of betraying his friend. Hearing about the dangerous substances makes the angry doctor slam her hands on the desk. The mentor explains that the whole facility is running a drug operation and suggests a quiet investigation. He warns that calling outside help will take too long and leave them completely helpless. When the young hero offers to take on the mission, the doctor angrily refuses to involve a child. The teenager firmly insists that his dangerous enemies are already trying to destroy him and use him as a scapegoat. Realizing that the enemy wants to frame him, the young leader resolves to make the first move himself. The mentor agrees with the bold plan, and the doctor finally gives in to support their mission. Opening her desk drawer, the doctor warns the boy that he must act like a convincing addict to deceive the bosses. She hands him a harmless fake powder that looks identical to the real substance to fool the corrupt leaders. The clever student uses the trick to pretend he is addicted while secretly keeping his mind sharp. Asking his bandaged classmate if he feels afraid, the loyal friend replies that he owes his life to the young chief. Remembering how the gang eliminated their own partner, the injured classmate refuses to ever trust such evil villains. Patting the young boy on the head, the mentor reassures him that they will put an end to the corrupt syndicate. The mentor promises safety and suggests finding a strong leader like Narus to protect the young chief. However, the boy proposes making an alliance with Kariha because the enemy of his enemy is a friend. Armed with a secret recording pen, the young leader prepares to meet the corrupt boss while his friend worries. Approaching the enemy, the brave teenager threatens to toss the recorded evidence straight to the inspectors. Furious about the blackmail, the corrupt leader orders everyone to leave the room so they can talk alone. Standing firm, the young chief directly challenges his rival to an official duel to settle their feud. The rival boss scoffs at the sudden challenge while the brave rookie mockingly asks if he is afraid to fight. The clever student remembers that forcing this smart advisor into a fight is the only way to reach his main enemy. Threatening to hand over the secret recording to the director, the clever rookie warns that his main enemy will be furious. Gritting his teeth in pure rage, the arrogant rival finally accepts the challenge exactly as the teenager planned. Taking the small device, the furious boss sets a terrifying rule that the fight will only end when one of them dies. Elsewhere, a brutal punch lands directly on the face of the spoiled brother, who complains about getting summoned at night. Looming with absolute rage, the powerful older brother screams at the kid for causing massive trouble behind his back. The spoiled brother complains about his ruined nose, while the boss angrily brings up the recent attack on the mother. Stuttering in shock, the younger sibling listens as the leader reveals their original plan to destroy the young hero. Grabbing the kid by his collar, the furious boss screams that the sudden duel with Ishida ruined their whole strategy. Pointing a finger, the angry leader yells that the rookie would have stopped fighting if the mother was never targeted. The angry boss screams that the main character only wants to eliminate them now because the plan was ruined. The arrogant younger brother simply suggests eliminating the boy right inside the facility instead. Furious at this stupid idea, the older leader explains that powerful inspectors and rivals are watching them. The foolish brother yells back that his older sibling is just completely useless at handling things. Losing his temper completely, the terrifying boss grabs a heavy glass ashtray and smashes it over his head. While the injured brother holds his bleeding forehead, the boss claims failing the attack brought total shame. With a brutal kick, the furious boss punishes his younger sibling for getting beaten up by rival allies. The angry older brother tells his sibling to leave while calling him a complete disgrace to the family. Hearing those harsh words makes the injured teenager clutch his head while trembling in pure fury. Snapping completely, the enraged younger sibling kicks the table while screaming at his brother to shut up. Shocked by the sudden outburst, the older boss watches his brother point a finger and vent his built-up rage. Getting right in his face, the young boy yells that his brother also failed to defeat the new district leader. As the older leader calls him an obedient dog, the furious kid retorts that his brother also obeys the director. Calling him the biggest failure for failing to eliminate his rivals, the teenager pushes the boss past his limit. Unable to hold back his rage, the furious younger brother lunges forward and strikes his older sibling in the chest. Enraged by this sudden defiance, the massive boss grabs his sibling by the hair and knees him straight in the face. Refusing to give up, the stubborn teenager tackles his older brother and aggressively slams him against the wall. With superior strength, the powerful leader shoves him off and sends him crashing hard onto the floor. Raining down heavy strikes, the boss pummels the kid while the beaten sibling desperately tries to block the blows. Catching his breath, the victorious older brother stands over the fallen teenager with a satisfied look. Coldly declaring that useless people should stay home, the ruthless leader turns around and leaves him bleeding on the floor. Lying bruised on the floor, the defeated sibling mutters his brother's name and vows to make him pay for everything. Meanwhile, during late-night practice, the young leader crashes to the ground while admitting he is worried about their rival. When asked about the late hour, the trainer smirks while revealing that secret reinforcements are about to arrive. Suddenly, the door opens as the pink-haired boss steps inside the dark training room to surprise the teenager. Walking inside with another strong fighter, the ally introduces Himura as the only person who ever fought their target. The young hero asks about their dangerous opponent, so the South boss unbuttons his shirt to reveal a terrifying chest scar. Himura explains that Ishida fights differently by viewing human bodies like cheap, breakable toys. Using quick feints and minimal force, he strikes exact weak spots to easily break bones. When the opponent complains about his dirty tactics, the sneaky fighter casually throws dirt into his eyes. Taking advantage of the sudden blindness, he delivers a brutal strike directly to the opponent's face. The cruel rival loves watching his broken victims sink into absolute despair while remaining conscious. Himura warns that beating him requires crazy reflexes to read his moves before he strikes. Hearing this extreme requirement, the brave young chief simply smiles and considers it good news. The young chief points out that Ishida's constant victory makes him overconfident and easy to predict. Feeling confident, the allies gather around a blackboard to carefully analyze every single detail of the rival moves. Meanwhile, inside an underground arena, two powerful recruits violently clash inside a boxing ring. Watching the match, the cruel syndicate leader listens as his guard doubts if these fighters can defeat the arena demon. Enraged by the doubt, the ruthless boss suddenly smashes a heavy glass right into his subordinate face. Grabbing the bleeding guard, he threatens to feed him to the dogs if he keeps producing useless fighters. Hearing the noise, the vice chairman demands to know why the young teenager is insisting on meeting him. The boss mocks him for changing his mind, but the angry kid clenches his fist and asks if he can truly make him stronger. Laughing mockingly, the mob boss boasts about his gang power and offers to show him a direct demonstration. Pointing to a massive boxer in the ring, the leader promises to grant any request if the kid makes him take one step back. While the young fighter glares with fury, the surrounding spectators mock him for thinking he belongs in the ring. Sick of being looked down on, the angry teenager completely loses his composure and lunges forward to attack. Standing like an immovable wall, the giant opponent prepares to take the hit without flinching. The giant boxer effortlessly blocks the wild strike, with one hand leaving the young boy completely frozen in shock. Watching from the sidelines, the syndicate leader smiles while the fighter mockingly asks if that was his full power. With a sudden counter-strike, the massive brute slams the teenager hard and sends him crashing straight to the floor. Standing over his fallen opponent, the giant asks if he wants to give up while the bleeding kid forces himself back up. Seeing the boy's stubborn resolve, the evil boss smirks with interest as the angry teenager charges forward once again. A devastating counter-strike connects directly to his jaw as blood flies everywhere from the heavy impact. The force of the brutal blow sends the defeated teenager crashing hard into the corner ropes of the ring. With a brutal strike, the giant opponent easily overpowers the reckless teenager and sends him crashing to the floor. Standing over the beaten kid, the white-haired boss offers to guide him so he can finally achieve true success. Desperate for power, the bruised teenager begs to surpass his older brother and seals the deal with a firm handshake. Meanwhile, inside the facility, the young leader finishes a tough sparring session with his experienced ally. Smiling despite the intense effort, the brave chief resolves to train even harder to prepare for the real match. Shortly after, a sleek black car arrives at the juvenile reformatory while a guard rushes over to welcome the visitor. Inside the hall, an official announces a new program created by the government to help young offenders rebuild their lives. During the presentation, the long-haired ally secretly worries because the enemy already searched his belongings. Leaning close, the young leader reassures his friend that he will definitely survive and make it out safely. As soon as the official meeting ends, a guard commands all the prisoners to line up and return to their cells. Suddenly, a group of strict officers enters the hallway, causing the other inmates to whisper in confusion. The lead officer calls out for prisoner number 5400, prompting the long-haired ally to step forward. Looking at the slender boy, the guard orders him to go pack his belongings from his room immediately. Trembling with fear, the boy worries he gets targeted, but the young boss gently tells him not to be afraid. As the guards urge him to move faster, the young leader whispers to his friend to trust his plan completely. Bowing respectfully, the boy complies and walks down the hallway, while his leader feels relieved to see him safe. Outside the facility, the wealthy benefactor greets the teenager and embraces him tightly for surviving the ordeal. Stepping inside the luxury car, the long-haired student leaves the reformatory behind to start a fresh life. Meanwhile, the sneaky rival reacts with shock when he learns the ally bought his early release for billions. Crumpling the paper in pure rage, the furious rival cannot believe his target had such a powerful backer. Suddenly, a loud commotion echoes as someone calls out his name while kicking a bucket across the floor. Barging into the cell, the furious boss aggressively demands to know how the student got released. Sweating in fear, the sneaky advisor stammers that he was completely unaware of the sudden discharge. The clever rival worries that the young leader might be working with that wealthy supporter. Dismissing the thought, the angry boss insists that winning the upcoming duel will solve everything. Harshly slapping his face, the leader warns the strategist that failing will bring a terrible punishment. Left behind with his lackeys, the humiliated advisor trembles with pure anger and frustration. Screaming in rage, he orders his men to investigate every single recent contact to uncover the truth. Gritting his teeth in pure rage, the clever advisor blames the young leader for all his recent troubles. The official day of the duel finally arrives as the guards force everyone to quickly clean up the yard. Walking onto the open field, the sneaky rival arrives with his entire squad of dangerous followers. Standing tall across the yard, the young chief looks completely calm and ready for the incoming battle. Excitement fills the area as all the prisoners gather to watch the rare clash between two top leaders. The other ward bosses and guards take their spots around the field to witness the high-stakes match. Standing near the crowd, the female doctor and his loyal mentor quietly watch the boy from a safe distance. Silence falls over the massive yard as the two fierce rivals finally stand face to face to begin the fight. Standing in his fighting stance, the young chief gets targeted on his injured left knee by the cunning rival. Watching closely, the spectators note that the sneaky rival is provoking an attack to finish the duel in 3 minutes. Grinning wickedly, the cruel opponent taunts the young leader while promising to stain the yard with his blood. Spotting a sudden feint in his opponent's footwork, the clever rookie instantly changes his stance to dodge the trap. Surprised by the quick reaction, the sneaky rival realizes his deadly necklock attempt completely failed. Cracking his knuckles with a confident smirk, the experienced fighter gets ready, while the young chief stays fully focused. Watching from the crowd, the tattooed boss notes that the real fight is finally about to start. Mocking his opponent, the sneaky rival suddenly drops into a low stance and dashes forward. Tracking the wild movement, the young leader realizes the rival slithers forward like a dangerous snake. Glaring through the bright sunlight, the protagonist struggles to keep his eyes on the incoming threat. The opponent thrusts a sharp palm strike forward, but the brave kid swiftly raises his arms to block it. Surprised by the quick defense, the young boss wonders if he stopped the strike while his enemy just smiles. Slipping under his guard, the sneaky rival effortlessly deflects the boy's defense and lands a heavy blow. Moving around with insane agility, the dangerous opponent prepares to unleash another relentless assault. Smirking at his opponent, the sneaky rival backs away after leaving a fresh bloody cut on the young chief's neck. Watching from the side, the rival bosses realize the attacker is carefully testing the boy's reaction range. Finishing his analysis, the dangerous opponent targets all the vulnerable spots on the young leader body. Dashing forward, the sneaky fighter suddenly kicks a broken brick straight toward the young chief's face. The brave kid quickly ducks to dodge the flying rock, which strikes an unfortunate spectator instead. The mentor warns that the enemy is disguising his true moves to catch the young chief in another deadly trap. Adjusting his hand posture, the sneaky opponent launches a sudden strike that barely gets blocked. A swift low kick hits the protagonist and forces him to stagger back on the dirt floor. Aiming directly for a vital angle between the ribs, the vicious fighter prepares a potentially fatal strike. Watching closely, the worried spectators notice the brave rookie somehow dodges the most lethal blow just in time. The relentless enemy immediately follows up with another heavy strike, while wearing a creepy smile. Launching a powerful kick, the attacker takes advantage of the old knee injury that the doctor just noticed. Sliding helplessly across the ground, the young chief realizes he cannot escape the incoming assault. Seizing a sudden chance, the young chief grabs a handful of dirt and throws it straight into his rival's face. Using a swift backflip, the clever teenager barely dodges the deadly counterstrike to land safely on one knee. Watching from the crowd, the worried allies wonder how much longer the injured boy can sustain this brutal battle. Smiling mockingly, the sneaky opponent admits that he slightly underestimated the kid's quick reaction time. Feeling the heavy pressure, the young leader realizes that his enemy is predicting every single dodge in advance. The evil boss casually smokes a cigarette while boasting that his strong right-hand man will finish the job fast. Ripping away his torn shirt, the brave student prepares himself to continue the fight without any distractions. Looking at his rival, the young chief realizes the heavy rib damage is draining all power from his right fist. Charging forward with reckless aggression, the arrogant rival forces the young chief to carefully watch his strategy. Noticing the sudden stop and twitching fingers, the observant student recognizes the same killer technique. Resolving to gamble everything on this single moment, the brave rookie prepares a lethal counterattack. Reaching out at the perfect moment, the clever teenager successfully intercepts the enemy hand midair. Firmly locking his opponent's wrist, the determined leader holds him tight despite the surging pain.